Okay. Welcome one and all to yet another episode of WhickTV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And gang, today we have a show for you. We talk a lot about women's rights. We talk a lot about pornography, sex work, and sexuality in this space. But what I wanted to focus on tonight is how that affects our space in general. Have we over-normalized Coomer culture? Is it something that is making people more uncomfortable? Is it doing more harm than good? Or are we simply being prudish and inhibited, and we need to kind of just get more comfortable with a more free kind of society? Is pornography good for women's empowerment? Is it bad? Is it mixed? We're going to talk about all that tonight. I have some lovely guests with us tonight. Brittany Simon, unfortunately, couldn't make it. She came down ill, but luckily, Tom has agreed to be a last-minute replacement. So thank you, Tom, for this. We are going to pass it off, and Counterpoints is coming too. Don't worry, gang. He'll be here in a second. But we're going to toss it off to Azzy first. He's going to start us off. Brief introduction, tell people who you are, concise opening statements, and then we'll get into it. Azzy, go ahead.
All right, my name is Azzy, aka Calm Kingdom, and I'm going to be speaking against, or speaking for the prohibition of porn use in the community. Right. I believe that there's this has become a purely political conversation, and we don't speak about the negative effects. And anytime we ever do discuss the negative effects, it's always shamed or shunned. There's always whataboutisms. We never talk about the addictions, the desensitization. We never talk about the altered expectations that happens between men and women. The latent misandrous and misogynist effects that it has on people. And we never really have any type of real rooted conversation about it. So I'm here to speak against it. Thank you.
No, thanks for being here. Your mic apparently is a little low, so if you could turn
let
it
me
up
turn
on
it
your
up.
end, that would be great. I have you all the way up on my end. But appreciate you being here. I'm sure we'll get into it in the opening. Next up, we have someone who's been on my show a few times before. One of my personal favorites, okay, of the new kind of class of panelists, Rashad Crenshaw, please.
Thank you. I firmly believe that this issue, although it has taken an interesting turn with Vosch in terms of animals and things of other weird natures, I don't think that the answer is to try to ban this or remove it from the community or to try to alienate it from the community or to try to clear the community up of this. I think that in terms of just, radical, like one case scenarios like Vosch, it's really not that big of a deal in general. But I don't think the solution certainly is not to try to remove this from this space.
Okay, thank you for being here. I'm sure we'll get into it in the open. Next up, someone who is new to my space, at least, but she does work in other areas, and I met her in Ohio. She's pretty great. I'm excited to have her on. Maya Luna, please, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So there's nothing inherently wrong with any of these vice-like behaviors, whether it's addiction to sex, drugs, and of course, tonight we're talking about pornography. The real problem comes from the normalization of this culture, which leads to people over-relying on pornography as a crutch for easy dopamine hits. We had a long time where pornography, sex, drugs were looked down upon, and now we're seeing a counter to that culture and a bit of an overcorrection. The problem with these vices is that they're extremely easy to fall into. It's 20 seconds and you get that hit you need versus, if you want to go out and feel something real, you have to make plans. You have to interact with other people. With porn, with masturbation, it's a 20-second ordeal, if you really want to push it. So because of that, as I said, over reliance on pornography as a toxic tool of self-satisfaction, a toxic tool that also creates a weird relationship between the viewer and the porn star or creator, or I don't know what the correct term is nowadays, and which leads to the kind of devaluing of the female body.
Okay, thanks for being here. No, it's great. Good. I'm excited to get into it as we go. Next up, the Goon King himself, Tom Foolery. Please, what are your thoughts here?
I'm pretty pro sexuality and pro sex. In my experience, porn has been a net positive in my life and in my relationships. People that I know who watch porn are more open to like experimenting. They're open to a wider array of things in bed. They're more likely to be aggressive and get what they want and talk about the things that they want. They seem to care more about sexual aspects in relationships. While porn isn't like technically categorized as an addiction, it does have a lot of overlap with addictive behaviors. And as somebody who is an addict, I definitely empathize with these sorts of issues. So I think and those can have a lot of negative effects in your life. So I think it's good that porn and sexuality are becoming more normalized, but there should be more education on how to engage with it in moderation and responsibly.
Okay, well, we will be talking about that tonight. Again, thanks for coming in last minute. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate you inviting me.
No, next up is Not So Aerody. Please.
Hi. Yeah. So I definitely view porn as any other kind of material and good. It can be bad and it can be good. It tends to be dependent on the way that the material is sold, the like industry around it, and obviously the way that it's consumed by the consumer. There's obviously problematic porn consumption, and there's obviously non-problematic porn consumption. Um, I think sex work is here to stay. It's not going away, and it's better to find ways in our 2024 society to mitigate the pros and cons of the industry itself, rather than trying to shut it down entirely or just kind of like fully deregulating it and having no oversight.
Okay, and just in time, the man himself, our last guest, Counterpoints. Porn and Coomer culture, sir. Porn and Coomer culture. What are your thoughts? Tell people who you are, what your thoughts are, and then we'll just get into it, please.
Can y'all hear me or no?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're a little
Okay,
low,
beautiful.
but I'll turn you up.
Sorry, just had lots of fun doing tech stuff. All right, my thoughts on porn and Coomer culture. I think that we've had a lot of dramas recently surrounding what I would say is unhealthy sex habits in public. I think that we could point to Mr. Tom's drama here recently. I'm sure we'll get into some of those details. We could point to Vosch's drama history. I would like to point out to Ayala sharing her statistics on when she got gangbanged by 40 people, and me saying like, "Hey, this is gross," and if you don't think it's gross, then you're weird. And then I have like dozens of people popping into my comments, and they're like, "Why do you care about what consenting adults do in their own home? Why do you give a shit if somebody shoves 50 penises into them within 30 minutes?" And yeah, I think that y'all need your parents to grab you by your ear and drag you about a few decades. I think that you need to be spanked, but unfortunately, you would probably like that because you're so porn sick. And I'm very happy to probably spend the next 2 hours here shaming you for your sexual proclivities and trying to encourage you to take those proclivities back into the bedroom where they belong. So, yeah, very excited to be here.
Okay, well, what a strong opening statement. Thanks for being here. And with that, we'll open the floor up to open discussions here. I guess to start us off, the question I would ask, and it's open to anyone can answer it, is does the way that we treat sex work, sexuality, porn, etc., is it keeping women away from these spaces?
I don't think
sure.
In my experience, in my community, the more like open we became with sexuality and the more we talked about it, especially from both perspectives, the larger of a female audience we ended up with. And from the data that we looked at, we ended up having maybe the most disproportionate amount of women in our audience out of like the Twitch politics area. Somewhere from 25 to 35% of active members were women. And so it doesn't seem as though it's sexuality that's a problem. It's probably going to be about how you allow your members to engage in it and whether you're going to let them kind of harass women or make them feel uncomfortable, the types of things that you allow them to say. That's probably something that's going to push people out more so like misogyny, like, talking about women being dumb or talking about how they're making you more misogynistic by by talking or by not being good at debate or like grouping women in, saying like you would never say a black guy, this guy's making me more racist because a black guy is making bad arguments. But this is consistently kind of a narrative with women where women say something stupid and now you're making you're making them hate women more. So I think those are the things that probably push women out more than anything.
I would agree with that as well. I think that a harsher perspective and stance on sexuality and sex work. I mean, you look at a character like Sneeko. It all culminated in these kids running up to him and saying, "Fuck these women, fuck these gays." Like we've seen what it can create. We've seen what a harsher stance on these things can kind of attract. And I think that it's better for our space to embrace these things and accept these things and embrace a much more inclusive culture, but also harshly police individual acts of extreme sexism, individual acts of extreme sexual harassment, that I think it's better for society in general and for our space in particular to allow people to just express themselves as they will.
Just real quick, I don't know if you have an air conditioner on the background or a fan or
Uh-oh.
something, but we're getting
Might
some
be my
kind
computer fan.
well,
Hold up, let me mute
it's
myself.
it's fine now, but it wasn't just a minute ago. Anyway,
Okay.
I know Azzy wanted to get in here, so I want to toss it to Azzy for a minute. What are your thoughts?
I think people who are typically
Your mic is so
tend
distorted.
Yeah, what?
It's almost impossible to understand you.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
It
Okay.
sounds like
Sounds
it's
like a
not plugged in
fishbowl.
all the way. I can't understand you.
Beautiful. Wonderful. I'm getting an echo now, but I can't hear you. Well, I can hear you. It's just, distorted. Okay. Well,
Okay.
while he fixes that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I
go
would
ahead.
actually address the Sneeko point. So, Sneeko is obviously not a positive male role model, and he's not a positive model of sexuality. On one hand, he's calling women fucking whores. On the other hand, the only people that he dates are fucking sex workers. He's in Instagram girls' DMs. He's flirting with people publicly. He's talking about how to get laid. He's talking about how he converted to fucking Islam so he can marry multiple women and bang multiple people. Like, he's a fucking piece of shit. Nobody's gonna hold that man up as a positive aspect of like masculine or conservative sex culture. He's a fucking asshole. So, like, while I understand that he's as equal a part of the space, I would view him as just as much a contributor to the porn-brained Coomer culture bullshit that we all are steeped in as online creators.
I mean,
Yeah,
I would
but I don't
agree
want
with
it
you
to turn
the
into like
extent
an
that we shouldn't be like pushing this out in the world. Like, if I'm at work, I shouldn't be talking about sex with people there. But here, like, you've literally had numerous debates recently about like lolly porn and shit like that. You shouldn't be talking about that out in public or at work either. Here online, we do talk about more edgy things. We're going to have more edgy conversations, and we're going to dig into minutiae that we wouldn't anywhere else. This is a space where we should be able to divulge this sort of information or talk about the stuff that Ayala was talking about. Like, this is the place where we should be talking about that sort
I
of
wanna
stuff.
I wanna make sure that Maya can get in here, and then we'll toss it to Rashad. And again, if anyone else has it, just go ahead, Maya.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not 2008 anymore. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with having safe and educated conversations about sex and being able to be open. Like, those are objectively good things. Allow expression is always good. The problem is when it gets too commercialized, when it becomes almost like a role model. In the same way that Sneeko has a bunch of 10-year-olds running around going like, fuck women. Now there's a ton of like 17 and 18-year-old girls getting ready to make their OnlyFans as soon as they can. I know, just graduated high school, so like I know a lot of people who fell down that same rabbit hole. 2 years later, they regret it, and now there's a certain part of the world that is completely like they'll never be able to get in there. If they want to get a certain job, they can that's going to be lashed at them, right? If they want to get into politics, they can't do that, right? This exposure is leading young people to make really dumb decisions that they probably shouldn't be accountable for.
Yeah, the sex negativity, quote unquote, isn't about having a conversation about it. Like, I'm happy to have a conversation about it. I'm happy to have a conversation about Lolly. I'm happy to have a conversation about the endorsement of it. I'm happy to have a conversation about Mr. Girl's free speech perspectives on different degenerate Coomer content that you can consume. And for him, there's no moral negative. But on my end of the argument, there's always going to be an argument saying that this is a moral negative. It is impacting you. It's impacting your relationships, the way that you perceive sex, the way that you perceive the world. And as a result, maybe you don't need to be a Christian tradcon who's overcompensating in a different direction, but you absolutely need to reel it in. And this kind of like permissive attitude towards, well, this is the safe space for talking about all this kind of shit. We're hitting the barriers of what should be acceptable. Like, we're hitting those barriers. We need to back off.
If I may
What's
ask, oh, go
the
ahead, not
what's
so
the
Aerody.
line? What's the line that you want to have?
Well,
what
I
was
would
just
say not jerking off to, not openly admitting to jerking off to drawn cartoon child porn of prepubescent children getting by mythological monsters. That would probably be one of my lines.
Is it safe to say that that's an outlier, though? Is it safe to say that that's not really the norm or the standard?
I would
People
say
like
that
hate him
there-
for it. People, he's lost
Okay,
Yeah.
so
no,
many subs over
He
it.
got
outside
jumped
his
by everybody.
community- People outside his community hate him for it. There's still tens of thousands of young people who probably defend it within his community. And there's also probably tens of thousands of young people who are like, looking from the side where they're like, I agree with Vosch. This actually should be totally normal for whatever consequentialist philosophical argument they have for why jerking off to drawn kids isn't impactful.
I would
I don't
argue that
even
that's
think
more of an
Vosch was
aspect of
making
them
that
being
argument.
fans of Vosch more so than it being the temperature of the culture. I think it's more so them being loyal goons to Vosch more so than the space having an unhealthy addiction to pornography.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm kind of saying that we shouldn't be encouraging it. If anything, we should be beating it back.
No,
should
I
beat
Well,
it
think
I
back.
think that this is a
We
I
should
think
be
this is a
beating it
loyalty
off
to
with
Vosch
both
problem.
hands.
Okay, graphic. I think that this is a Vosch loyalty, Vosch goon thing. I think the goons of Vosch have set loose and they're going to do everything in their power to defend their favorite YouTuber. But I don't think this is indicative of the space in general. I don't think the majority of people in this space have been.
This is
even
totally
they
are
indicative. This is
hold on,
totally
hold on,
indicative.
hold on, hold
This
on.
is totally indicative of the space in general.
Yes.
Like if we can replace Voss with any influencer in that I know, right?
You're.
a lot
I'm
of
sorry. I'm sorry to say this, Azzy.
Yeah,
You're
now your
cutting
noise
out.
gate is
You're
out.
cutting out.
Coming out.
Yes, you're cutting out. Okay. Well, give it a minute. We'll give Azzy a minute.
We
But
can
I-
at least hear your words.
Yeah, we can
You
at
can hear
least
my words,
understand
right?
you better now. So
We
that's
can hear your
often does it
words.
co-
It sounds like your noise gate is clipping you. That's what it sounds like. So it could be your
Oh.
Discord noise gate.
And
It
you're
must be
peaking
the
at the
Discord.
same time. You're
It's the
peaking and you
Discord.
have a noise gate.
okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let me turn myself down and turn off the noise.
That's
gate.
already
Yeah, whatever
better.
you just
Oh,
did,
good.
it's much
That's
better.
so much better.
Yes.
I just moved back. I just moved
Then
back.
stay back. Stay
Alright.
back, buddy.
Drop your
Yeah,
gain
I'll
and
just
drop
stay
your
back.
Stay 10
Alright,
inches away
Okay.
from your mic.
We're gonna
Yeah,
toss it
this
back
is
to you.
totally.
Give us your
Vosch prefers 8
give us your
inches.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah, replace Vosh with any influential person that I know of in the space. He doesn't say anything that is like of like a significance or anything that is too unique. It's just that Vosh himself is a little bit more pro than us, right? So
Pro what?
like we've prolific, yeah, pro
Oh,
porn
Okay, there we go.
okay, both, yeah. So
Stay close to your
and-
mic.
You
Have
want me
it
to move
close enough.
closer?
Yeah, you want to like eat your mic on these things. They're pretty unidirectional. I think
I-
that's where we're
I-
losing you. I'm
I
sorry.
thought if I would get too close, it was clipping.
You're fine
Oh,
wherever you're
anyway.
now.
No, it's not the proximity. It's your gain and your peak that's causing clipping.
I don't know. That's Discord acting crazy. Probably doing some auto stuff, trying to fix me.
Sorry.
You're doing
Oh
okay
yeah,
right now.
automatically input.
Wait, you were gonna
into-
say something. You were
But-
gonna interrupt and say something.
The main thing that I was agreeing with him on is the fact that you can replace other large creators with this fact. Destiny is also a notorious gooner. It's one of the main things that I have a bone to pick with him on is the fact that like young men, you can tell them one thing, but if they view you as a mentor, they are going to
Okay.
emulate your behavior. So Destiny's like, I don't recommend my lifestyle. I think that it's a little bit too aggressive for people. I have a unique emotional, unique emotional outlook on these things, et cetera, et cetera. And I appreciate the fact that he puts those little asterisks on his behavior. But I think that a young man is going to look at a multimillionaire who gets, basically gets to do whatever he wants whenever he wants to by playing video games and having sex with attractive women into his late 30s. And they're going to be like, wow, that's fucking awesome. I wish I could do that.
But what's our evidence of the DGG fans emulating Destiny on a sexual level? What
Let's
do
talk
we
about
have?
the progressive victory
think they're
event that we
capable of
had.
it.
Hold on. Let's bring this up then. Let's talk about and again we're getting an echo now from you, Azzy. Azzy, you just can't win tonight. Okay.
No, your head.
Not So Erudite,
It's your
right?
headphones.
Not So Erudite mentioned that during the Ohio event, there were several women who had complaints about how things went down there. Do we think that Destiny's behavior contributed to that?
No,
There's no
actually,
way. I don't think
I would defend the audience real quick. Not that I'm not sure that they did creepy things. I think that the online space in particular attracts young men who are looking for role models. who might not have other social avenues. As a result, they might be particularly socially lonely. So if they find a woman who's into politics and autistic topics the way that they think they are, then they might have imagined their perfect e-girlfriend waifu who's now materialized in the flesh. So I think that has more to do with like loneliness than some specific Coomer brained to DGG or VGG. However, I think that they would be better served by having a more traditional role model that says, hey, from 15 to 25, fuck around and have as much fun as you can. But after 25, you need to be looking for your wife, and you're not going to be meeting her at a long distance relationship with a bunch of online personalities. You need to find her in your own community. That's like a normie advice take.
Thanks, Erudite. What I would say is that I don't think any of the community did anything wrong per se, barring so far what I've heard, there's literally only one instance where I think something like did go incorrectly and not
Sure.
even exceedingly so. Just like there was only one instance where I was like, yeah, this is too much. For the most part, it was just, yeah, it was like normal men that saw women who had a mutual interest and were like, all right, let's riz these ladies up. But there was like, you know, 250 men and like 10 women. And so that was more the issue. It was just about like the size and the bulk. And so if Steven's community emulates him, then they emulate approaching women and for the most part taking no's and walking away. They emulate actually really good behavior. It's just they're not being mindful of the fact that there's another 270. So I guess like maybe he could be more community conscious, but I don't know how he speaks to that. So I don't know how to
I
blame
don't know.
him.
I would say my experience is kind of the opposite, where they didn't emulate any good behaviors and just didn't know how to act around women in general, which is fine. It's endearing in a way. It's more of just like as Connor says, just like gamer bro who doesn't go outside much, sees woman, oh hey, or like
Oh, you like politics?
yeah,
I love politics.
or they
Let's
watch
talk
too much
about
Destiny
politics.
and they start arguing with you over any little thing and they think that's flirting. Like if I still get semi-daily DMs from guys I talked to like 3 times at that event. And it's fine. They're getting experience and I don't think it's because of Coomer culture. It's just kind of lonely guys who are a bit geeky who are wanting the experience.
I want to bring it back though to the narrative of creators negatively impacting their audiences, because if I'm listening to y'all, and I wasn't at the PV event, unfortunately, you know, the money a little low right now, but eventually we'll be up there. It seems to me like it was just a nerdy, dorky kind of space. There was a lot of guys, very little women, and you know, normal stuff happens. You know, people talk to women, they shoot their shots, some of them lose, very few of them win. Normal stuff. It seems to me like it still leaves Vosch on his own as the sole lone sexual crash out who made multiple attempts to basically poison his space with crazy sexual narratives. I'm not seeing the cultural effect here. It just looks like Vosch is just a little bit, you know, kind of like, you know, a little bit off, maybe a little bit, you know.
Well, but even Vosch isn't normalizing Lolly. Even he is saying, oh, I wouldn't watch Lolly. If I had known that was Lolly, I wouldn't have downloaded it. Like, his audience isn't defending Lolly. So even the normalization of those sorts of things, they're not defending it. They're not saying, oh, this is fine. Everybody should watch Lolly. That's not
I'm gonna
really
be
what-
real. When I heard about the Vosch stuff, my first thought was he's really getting canceled over this. Like I assume 70% of people on Twitter are
Disgusting.
actively gooning to Lolly or have gooned to Lolly. Twitter users are degenerate. They're weird. The only reason they hated on Vosch for doing it is because they already didn't like Vosch. This is like a rally around effect.
And he got caught.
Okay, hold
Twitter
on.
is the
Hold on. No. First of
Yeah.
all, I don't think that 70% of
Yes.
Twitter
Yeah.
users
We're good. We're good.
are engaging in that kind of behavior, right? I just
At least
don't.
once. At
Um,
least once.
okay, I just
But
disagree.
Vosch
At
made
least
this
once
same
I would
argument
put it, like,
himself.
5%
Vosch made this
maybe.
same argument. He tried to make it seem like everyone else was in on the crazy shit too. He was like, you know, sometimes you're beating it off to porn, and then you know after like 2-3 hours you realize you're watching kids, and it's like,
No.
no, gee, that's you. Like that's you. It's not us. That's you. That
Okay,
kinda
I
feel
do
like-
wanna draw it away from the lolly stuff because that's not what we're here to talk about today. I mean,
And it doesn't matter either. It's just about it in general, right? We do have an influx of and then I'm just thinking of like streaming in general. We have an influx of people who are pro porn, if not they have an OnlyFans or they've been professional in the sexual industry, and we're very welcoming to them. And then it's pervasive in the space. It affects the attitude in the space towards it. So that's going to affect our. It's going to affect how people feel about that, right? And whether or
Yeah,
not
it-
a typical woman who is against it is going to have any type of interaction in the space.
Yeah, if we're talking about too much degeneracy being in the space, yeah, that's the best example when it's like it's not an example of them normalizing this. It's not an example of them making excuses for it. Like, if that's the example that we're coming up with, it doesn't sound like
Oh,
there's
I have
actually a
others.
real problem.
I don't think it
Right.
has to just be degeneracy, right? Like, it doesn't have to be everyone's jacking it off to like horse cock and lolly, right? It can just be something kind of slow and toxic, right? I was saying before, this over reliance as porn as the main driver of sexuality is not good. Guys don't know how to go out and talk to girls. Girls are being pushed into OnlyFans as like a career opportunity. These are not good things, and these are happening because of the normalization of porn. And
But now
there's
we're
no
talking
question
about
about that.
now we're talking about male self-improvement now. Like now we're kind of veering
Yes.
off into that because we're eventually gonna have to come to the topic of, okay, these guys are mainly deriving their sexual experience from pornography because the average guy is not out here just slaying it. Like the average guy is struggling, right?
But
So
this
when we
barely has
start
anything to do with men. It has to just do with vice, right? Whether it's
Well, yeah, but I
drugs
mean,
or
men are
whether
kind of
it's
overly invested in vice because they're not really sexually successful. So it would this
Yep.
conversation would eventually kind of veer into the whole like men self improvement thing. I don't think the solution is to torch goonery more so than it is to try to get young men to realize goonery is not the answer.
well,
But
I
I don't think we
Also,
should
really
it
torch
does
believe
it.
affect the genders
I
It,
think
differently.
what?
we
Hold
need
on, hold on,
to
hold on. One at a time. We can't hear you when you talk over each other. Let Maya finish, then we'll pass it to counterpoints. Go ahead.
I think you can have a lot of sex and still love porn, right?
Okay.
You can get that from other places and still goon a lot because you're just chasing that high. That's the problem. It's that constant chasing of a high. At my house, I don't let people use microwaves. I hate microwaves because I think it's a signifier of moral decay. You can't wait 5 minutes to fry something up. You have to 30-second microwave it. You have to wait if you want something. And it's the same thing with porn, right? If you can get it quickly, you'll get it quickly, right? Like you'll make that choice, even if you can't get it through other means.
Now I gotta fight this. I gotta fight this.
No,
There's
so
there's
many
way too
Spicy
sto-
much
hot
male
I've heard so
loneliness.
many
There's
stories of guys like on Tinder jacking off. They're setting up dates, and then as soon as they come, they like don't even go on Tinder anymore. They like
but
Yeah,
there's
that's why you
like
shouldn't have
there's
girlfriends either, because it's easy access to sex. It's too easy. You gotta make it harder to get.
Agreed. No,
I
it
just think there's too
obviously
much
affects the
male
genders
loneliness.
differently.
Who
Well,
cares
it
about
affects the
man?
it affects
That
the
matters in this
genders.
conversation.
I care about male loneliness. It affects the genders differently. So obviously, like women are pressured in order to be sexually attractive, but not too sexually attractive. They're told to be or they just embrace it and they're just like, yeah, this is how I'm going to make my money. And a shitload of the culture says, yeah, I get it, girl. And the reason why they're saying that is because they want to be like libertarian or liberal about sex. But the truth is that it probably affects a healthy chunk of these people negatively in different ways. So the whole point, like honestly, like if I was to build the ideal life, it's like date and experiment from 15 to 25. But after 25, you need to be getting your shit together, and gooning into your fucking 40s is not going to work out unless you're a multi-millionaire who's charismatic.
But that's
So
the
that's
thing, though.
I honestly think we need to talk all
uh,
about all of this stuff more. I think the reality is that like sex isn't going away. Masturbating, boys are still going to want to beat their meat, and girls are still going to want to diddle their skittle. And so the reality is that we should probably talk about it more. It should be easier to talk about because that's the way that you get a society to actually figure out healthy ways to engage with these things. Not talking about drugs with kids leads to kids doing dumbass shit. We know this, for example. You don't teach kids about condoms and sex ed, suddenly your teen pregnancy rates are exploding because they
But is it
still want to
always going to
stick
be
it in the hole.
liberal and libertine? Is it always going to be liberal and libertine? Because plenty of people do disgusting shit, and then people are like, "Yeah, why do you care?" And it's like, obviously, I care because I don't want other motherfuckers to be doing that shit.
Yes, obviously you can have structure that's imposed too, but I think talking about it is how the zeitgeist creates this conversation. If conservatives aren't willing to even talk about sex and be the brakes on this conversation, which they're important to have in this conversation, then like most conservative parents don't even want to talk about sex, right? Lots of conservatives like just get it out entirely. And it's like, well, we have to talk about it. It's everywhere. We have to talk about it. Of course we do.
Sure.
Well, I think
I'm
that
I'm a
if I may,
pioneer. I'm a sexual pioneer with a machete coming into the lands of degeneracy.
if I
But
may,
yeah,
if I may, if I may, I don't know if the question is should we talk about it more. I think everyone can agree, or at least most people could agree, that there's a time and place to talk about sexuality and things like that. That really isn't the question at hand in my mind. In my mind, the question is, how do we address it and how is it affecting us? Not just talking about it, but our behaviors with it. And Tom, you're here, so we got to bring it up. Okay?
Yeah.
Do you think that the way you behaved towards women, right? Was that a good example of how to treat sexuality in this space?
I think that one of the main things that we came away from that looking at is like the way that the audience reacted, and a lot of the comments that were left in the chat. That seemed to be the thing that most people brought up was what was being said in the chat, not things that I was saying or necessarily doing myself, but what the chat was saying at the time. And we do talk a lot about like respectful objectification, or like making sure that you're saying things in a respectful way, and we don't always moderate those things the best. And so we do need to have more conversations about those sorts of things, especially if we're going to pull up like a girl's Instagram or we're going to talk about these sorts of things. We definitely need to moderate that a lot better. And so I think that that's like the main takeaway that me and my community took away from the entire thing is, yeah, trying to moderate the way that we allow people to engage with this stuff a little bit more.
Did you
Wait,
say
what's
one
the
fucked up
entire
aggressive
What's
thing?
going on?
Did you say one fucked up aggressive thing?
In the chat.
the
In the
No,
chat.
oh, the
on
stuff
the
that
Slack stream.
I said in chat. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what's the drama?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't see. Let's not blame the
Yeah,
chat
yeah,
here,
yeah.
Tom. I've been
No,
on
he's
your
not
so,
stream
blaming the
sorry,
chat.
as
He
you're
said
Googling.
a fucked up thing in chat.
Sorry,
that
hold
we-
on, hold
I think
on.
we all know.
Yeah,
We're-
no, I
oh,
think
okay.
that's
talking
like
about-
pressing to the
okay.
conversation. Obviously, if we're like, if we're putting Tom on blast and if he's agreeing to this conversation, then yeah, obviously this pushback is required of like, well, it's not just like not saying anything. It's not just the chat. It's also like what you're saying in chat. It's how you represent yourself globally, which means like if
You-
I'm shitting on somebody, even in somebody else's chat, I'm still like responsible, and that's like part of what I'm modeling.
Yeah,
His
sure.
name-
Well, those things were definitely like.
And again, I don't want to make to be clear. I don't want to make.
It's not
I
about
don't.
Tom.
Hold on.
Sure.
Hold on. To be clear, this isn't going to be the focus of the conversation. But I mean, the elephant
Yeah, sure. So,
room.
like the things that I was saying were meant to be like aggressive and hyperbolic, and like, yeah, it probably wasn't the best thing to say at the time. I'm more so talking about like, I thought we were talking about like as content creators pulling up stuff and having stuff on screen. But yes, if you're talking about just what I said in that chat at that moment, yeah, sure.
But
Like,
I want to
probably
throw
wasn't the
throw a
best.
rock at a different member of that conversation though. So I did feel like Tom was probably shitposting, being aggressive, whatever. We're all guilty of hyperbole and aggression in some of these scenarios. Sometimes we put our foot, we're a little bit too aggressive. But one of the things that I kind of took away from it is that also women who do sex work but then no longer want to participate in sex work are then like uncomfortable with people consuming their sex work in public. And I get
Yeah.
that, like, sex work is meant to be largely consumed in private, but that's the thing. That's like the nature of the internet. It's open for people to do whatever the fuck they want to do. So if we're having like a libertarian perspective on young women engaging in sex work, I think that we do warn them a healthy chunk, but I think we need to bring this up as an example is like, hey, you can show off your tits and your pussy for 4 or 5 years, make a shitload of money off of it, but then people might continue to use it for social leverage, not to bar you from employment. I think in the future that barring people from employment for this kind of work is probably going to decrease, but what they're going to do is they're going to use it as a weapon against you whenever you shit talk them in public. And so you just need to be ready for that to be a part of your life. If your kids do something fucked up at school, other kids could look up your former fucking pornography and send it to them as a vindictive weapon.
Is that I mean, that just speaks volumes to like even more. And then let's bring this back to male, what was it, male loneliness, right? So we have a bunch of young males, right, who are insecure, vulnerable, overuse. I won't even use, they overuse porn, right? But they also have bad character, right? The way they act, especially in this space where we make it like fun to be bad, right? To be annoying, to be loud, to be hyperbolic, right? And we do it, right? And sometimes we get in trouble for it. But this is something that we popularize. So now couple that with somebody who is already vulnerable, probably has tons of mental health issues. So now they're treating other individuals who, like you said, those male, they're not the male and female, doesn't matter. The porn stars who want to get out of the business, now they're using it as a weapon against them. So now we have put weapons in the hand of people who are immature and unable to regulate. So what have we created? A monster.
Yeah.
And it was already a monster before it was even digitized.
We as in
Information is being
society,
weaponized to hurt each
or
other aggressively. Yeah, absolutely.
we as in society is what you're saying?
Both individuals and society, because
So the
it works in
alternative
tandem.
is
Digital
to
culture.
so the alternative is to, I guess, make people more aware, more so than trying to dismantle or get rid of this Coomer culture, so to speak.
I think Coomer culture should be like I don't think it should be made illegal. Like I don't think that like looking at naked women, like cops should come to your house and fucking SWAT raid you or some shit.
Okay.
However, I do think that it should be socially discouraged a little bit. Where if
Hmm.
you're being a Coomer in public, yeah, sure, you can do it for a joke, you can do it for a laugh, whatever. But people are going to shit talk you for it, and I think rightfully so. There's a reason why these things are important. There's a reason why these things are have for most of history been largely kept private.
I think the simple solution here is just strict moderation whenever these things get out of hand. But I think that in general, I think sex positivity is a good thing. I think that in society, people should be allowed to pursue whatever they want to pursue as long as it's private and they're comfortable and consenting. Even if they want to post it on the internet, I think that that's a perfectly fine thing. I don't think we need to necessarily rail against it. But when there are incidences where people are abusing it or abusing others, I think that's where we step in. But I think generally speaking, I think it's best for society that we move toward a much more free and just, you
So
know,
so if they do something, you took the liberal position that I actually object to a little bit. So if
okay.
they take that liberal perspective towards all consenting adults can legally do whatever they want to do, and as long as everybody's consenting and having a good time, then that's okay. Am I allowed to call it gross in public?
Sure.
Yeah, of
When we
course.
start trying to derail it, when we start trying to derail, I don't think you're arguing for this, but when we start trying to deconstruct people's freedom to do this, or maybe even their desire or want to talk about it in public, or just in, whether they want to do like events or whatever the case might be, I think when we start trying to actively derail people's freedom to do these things, it can have effects that we don't want. Like, for example, we were bringing up male loneliness. It's like, yeah, like men are consuming porn at a significantly higher rate than women because men are a lot more lonely. It's harder for them to find sexual partners than women. So we start deconstructing porn and getting rid of pornography. Now you have a whole bunch of young men who have no sexual, like, they have nowhere to engage in sex. So
Except for the
what
real
are we
world,
looking
the women
at?
in their
mean,
community that they
except
can
for-
build
yeah.
relationships
Yeah,
with.
What's the real world? The real world, they're not even succeeding in the real world. They're not even thriving in the real world.
That's
I think
that's
this conversation is a little
Hold on, one at a time,
We're talking
one at a
generalities.
time. Let's give it to Tom first, and we'll go Maya, then we'll go Azzy. Azzy, check your DMs. Turn your gain down.
I'm gonna tear it down. I'm gonna turn it down. Right.
We're talking in like too broad of generalities. Like when we talk about the things that would be kept like in private, like even just watching the whatever podcast and the ways that a lot of the girls dress on there are things that in the past would have been kept in private, but now these are things that are on almost every show, and that's pretty similar to like so pulling up an Instagram or something like that. Like these are the ways that they're dressing are things that a lot of people are stigmatizing, and the point in stigmatizing is to make it happen less often. But we need like a rationale or an argument or an understanding of like why we would want this to happen less often and not more often.
Because being promiscuous is bad.
So the issue you have to substantiate that like properly, right? Being promiscuous isn't
Yeah.
bad. Being promiscuous in the wrong way can be harmful, right? That's the actual argument. Unless you're religious, you don't really get to make that argument. I don't know how you do
I
it. I don't
can.
know what you ground it on, right? You can say it's icky, and I would say sure. But this is my problem with conservatives. Conservatives are just run by feelings, and leftists are just run by whatever makes them look good, right? And I'm not interested in policy based on either of these two things. I really hate that conservatives will say, this makes me feel icky, therefore, I need to find a logical answer as to why it must also be icky, which is the problem that I think is occurring here.
Oh,
So-
hold on. I have to
Go ahead.
fundamentally reject this. Okay, there's a reason why things are found to be icky. We have discussed responses for, like an example. Like if I walked down the road and picked up a piece of shit off the side of the road and started eating it, and then you were like, "Ew, that's icky," and then I turned to you and I was like, "You need to substantiate that with a 50-page study." I'd call you a fucking nerd. That is
Okay, are
ridiculous.
tampons
feces
icky?
on the-
Are
feces on
tampons
the street.
icky?
Well, I mean,
tampons
if
icky?
you eat them or stick them in your mouth or use them
No,
for sex
just
play,
them by
yeah, they
themselves.
are.
Imagine I'm just holding a tampon that's got blood on it. I'm not eating it,
Uh-huh.
just holding it in my hand, and I'm telling you, I'm going to throw it out right after. Isn't that kind of fucking gross?
I mean, you're asking the wrong person. I'm not grossed out by blood, but
It's a
no.
tampon. It's not just blood. It's not like a nose.
it's also being
Okay,
used for
come
the
on.
correct purpose.
Most people
It's being used for
would
the
say
correct purpose.
you can yell, but that doesn't mean you can interrupt. Most people, if I held up a tampon that was full of blood, would say that's gross. If I asked people,
Pussies.
can I fuck a dead chicken before I eat it? most people are going to say that that's gross, even though there's not really any moral reason as to why. This is why feelings aren't
No,
facts.
there is
You're
a moral
right.
reason to
There-
why.
Hold
fucking
on.
the
You gotta let her
dead
finish.
chicken
Let her
before you
finish. Let
eat
her
it is
finish.
wrong.
Let her
Yeah.
finish.
Yes,
Let her finish.
yes,
and
my
you can-
naturalist king. There is a good reason why the disgust system can lead to moralization, but as a transcended, intelligent Homo sapien, we can look at our disgust system or our anxiety system and go, what is legitimate and what is not? And the issue when it comes to sex, it seems like conservatives just want to be like, oh, it's icky, it's all slippery. And it's like, what's the problem here? STIs, teen pregnancy. These seem to be the really big problem. How do we ameliorate that?
Well,
That
okay,
isn't
there's
just
like another
no
dozen.
sex.
There's like another dozen variables there. And also, I don't even think most conservatives who have like a real brain would say no sex.
Hold on. I want
Obviously,
to. I
they would
want to
say
see.
sex within the
I want to
confines of
see who
marriage.
agrees with Kyla's take that it's okay to fuck your dead chicken before you eat it. Any
Yep.
takers on this? Okay, Maya's
Completely morally neutral.
okay, morally neutral.
Yeah,
Unless you're religious. Unless you're religious. Hold on. Unless you're
Hold on.
religious.
What if you got salmonella through your fucking dick? Are you shitting
That doesn't
me
make
right
it
now?
moral. Getting sick isn't immoral, you retard.
I would
So
say
you
that
said
you're
you're feeling
Morality
feeling
is the
into, like, what is
analysis
moral.
of good and bad. There
Do
are
you think
good
it's
behaviors
immoral to
and
eat
there's
pork
bad
if you don't
behaviors.
cook? Wait, do you actually think it's immoral to eat pork if you don't cook it to a high enough temperature because there's high risk of getting disease? Of course not. Just
Wait,
because you
let-
can get
hold on,
sick
hold
from
on,
something
hold on,
doesn't
hold on.
make it
Let's pause.
immoral.
Let's pause.
Obviously.
Let's
Yeah,
pause.
the
You're-
wait,
Hold,
You're saying-
hold,
like,
hold on,
is-
hold on. We got 20 different people trying to say 20 different things. I want to pass it to Maya, I'm sorry, Maya, and then we're gonna pass it to
You
Counter.
just asked me a question.
It doesn't even matter. It's fucking chickens. We're talking about Coomer shit or something. I don't know. No, there is a reason
where it
why
goes next.
This is a
promiscuity is
logical
wrong.
extension of the conversation.
No. There is a reason why promiscuity is wrong. It erodes like real relationships. People fuck around so much that there's like so many stories of people just going into situationships and friends with benefits, and they're incapable of having that go to a next level, right? Because of this amount of promiscuity, people aren't ready to get in those relationships. There's an erosion of family, there's an erosion of relationships, and there's an erosion of community because of promiscuity. And I think that's just objective.
Okay. I don't want to let the fucking the dead chicken and eating undercooked pork walk away, okay?
Go
Morality.
ahead.
Give me your
You can
naturalist
go ahead.
argument for cooking
I,
meat.
I will
As
give
a
you
moral.
a
Yeah.
naturalist
Include shrimp
argument.
in there too. Can you argue why eating shrimp if it's not cooked properly is immoral? Love for you to get those all in there.
Okay,
Great.
so here's the thing.
Is the
We
chicken
have to
alive?
expand it. Oh
No,
my
it's
God,
dead.
everybody shut the fuck up so I can articulate a worldview that is coherent, because I don't get to say that fucking a chicken is morally neutral and then giga chat and walk away, because my ideas take a little bit more thought, okay? So let's say, let's use shrimp. That's actually the perfect example. So let's say that cooking shrimp improperly, you're like, how is that moral? Okay. I agree with you. Largely, if you don't have an allergy and you cook shrimp properly and you eat it, there's no fucking problems. But let's say that you're a fucking asshole and you don't wash your hands and you let shrimp shit stick on your fucking hands. And then you walk around and there's people in your community who have allergies and you wipe it on various surfaces and it fucking kills them. Do you think that would be negligent? Do you think that would be morally bad?
So you realize all you've done here is you've added other behaviors to then make it immoral. So what's immoral isn't cooking the shrimp, which is the action I'm asking about. What would be immoral is bad cleanliness management. That's what would be
Now
immoral.
take your intelligence, because I'm not degrading your intelligence, but now let's take this and then let's expand it to sex. So obviously conservatives don't hate sex.
Of
Conservatives
course, I
love
mean, I was
sex.
obviously being hyperbolic. Yeah.
We love eating shrimp in this analogy, right? So we love eating shrimp, but we love eating shrimp if you wash your hands, if you don't rub your shrimp juice on other people, if you fucking I can't keep going with the analogy. The point is that there's a right way to cook and eat shrimp, and there's a right way to fuck. And what liberals and progressives and libertine fucking degenerate libertarians say is that you can fuck in any way you want to as long as no one gets hurt. But there are such things as risky behavior that increase your chances of getting hurt.
And which side of this argument advocates for condoms, advocates for regular STI testing, encourages to try to make these things as accessible as possible, and also advocate for birth control?
So
What
what's
are you
enough? Is
talking
enough
about?
curtailing
The
the freedom
moral-
of the people?
No,
You
the
can
It
see
seems like
moral
you're arguing
requirement.
for the curtailing of people's freedom as the
Yeah,
answer here. It
the
seems like that's what
moral
you're arguing.
requirement you are outlining in this analogy isn't to not have sex with the chicken. It's to clean up afterwards so it doesn't hurt your neighbors. That's what you're advocating
Hold
for.
up.
And I'm saying,
So hold on,
in the
hold on.
analogy to
You're-
sex,
you're
liberals do a
talking-
better job of advocating for cleaning up after
You're
yourself than
talking-
fucking
okay.
conservatives do.
Okay, but
What?
I'm gonna go exactly with your analogy on fucking the chicken. So what's gonna happen? I really love that we're getting so aggressive about this, and I like that it's around something disgusting. It's making me very happy. So what a liberal would say in reference to fucking the chicken before eating it, they would say, wrap your tool. Don't get salmonella on your penis. Before you eat the chicken, wipe off your cum. Get some hand sanitizer and some Dawn soap and wash it in the sink. And then you can eat the chicken because nobody's getting hurt. Whereas what a conservative would say is don't fuck the chicken.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, what?
Imagine how we did a full circle and you just made the argument that conservatives are saying don't have sex.
Okay. Okay.
No,
Okay.
so don't fuck the chicken. Eating the chicken
Okay.
is the sex
Okay.
but this is what
Okay.
I'm
The
saying, this
chicken
is-
stuff. It's beating a dead horse,
a
but
big
we're
God.
no, okay. Anyway.
No, we're fucking the dead
We're
horse,
fucking
Wick.
it.
Yeah. Okay. We made that
I
joke.
appreciate you doing the full circle for me. Thank you.
Okay.
But I
Correct.
feel like
I
this is
really
Conservatives
also
don't want
Hold on.
sex.
Hold on. Hold
You
on.
don't
Hold
need
on.
to
Hold
be-
on. Hold
I
on.
really didn't.
I want to.
Who's next?
Okay,
Eating the
Azzy,
chicken is the
Azzy, we're
sex.
gonna toss it to you because I know that you really wanted to get your say in, and then maybe we'll go down a different rabbit hole. Okay,
Yeah,
and we'll
I'm
see.
never gonna talk about it.
go ahead.
Yeah, you can trust me with like, it doesn't matter.
Your mic is
Any-
10 times better.
Yeah, I just fixed the volume, turn on the gains, right?
Thank
Shout out
God.
to Wick. Intelligence. You know what I mean? This doesn't matter because morality at the end of the day, you don't need it. Religiousness just speaks to a moral arbiter of morality, but morality at the end of the day speaks to human flourishing. Anything in and of itself has no morality. Nothing is good or bad. Nothing is bene. Nothing is mal, right? So it depends on what it's doing in tandem to the person next to you or to yourself, right? It's whether or not you're able
But
to live and function in a bountiful way, and that you're able to do that in tandem. It's like you're
The
just,
moral
like,
line in the sand here
for
is
instance-
obviously just advising people to do it safely, but that's where I would draw the line in the sand. We should not be going any further than that. I think it's much more immoral to curtail people's freedom to pursue a life in which they choose to.
But we
I think that's
curtail
way
the
more
barrier
immoral
to the
than
safety of the
because
majority. I mean, not even just majority. I've said that wrong.
I'm not arguing that we should be telling people to use protection and to avoid getting people pregnant, teen pregnancies and stuff like that. But what I am saying is that people's freedom to pursue sex in which they choose to, consensually and safely, is more important than like what you're
Sure.
arguing for.
Okay, stop. I want to ground this a little bit. Okay, by proposing a bit of a hypothetical for you all, and maybe this will drive us down some more fruitful lines of discussion. You have a community. It's a sex positive community. Every day in your voice chats and your discords, people are just masturbating. They're just openly masturbating. They're pulling up their porn folders, right? They're sharing it, sharing their screens. They're just going around and jacking it every day. Okay. Now, do you think that this space is going to be very welcoming to women?
If they're goons too.
Yeah, I guess so.
Most of the women in this space are
I don't think women are
Yeah, no
turned off
shit.
or like afraid of male sexuality. I don't think like it's a thing that they run away from or something.
Well,
that they're
no, it's
terrified
because
of.
male sexuality is inherently kind of predatory on women, so I think that's the issue.
Not
right.
inherently, no. It's
Well,
not.
Sometimes they
I
like
mean,
that,
like,
though.
Not inherently
typical,
whatsoever.
The
No.
woman is the kind of keep guard, the man is the hunter, right? So any area that's like heavily focused on male sexuality is inherently going to kind of push away.
But in
women.
a sex positive
Like,
space
that's
where
like
everybody's
a
just beating
really-
it, like there's really no aspect of that. Everyone's kind of just
Hold on, can I
hyper promiscuous
expand
and
your
everyone's just kind
metaphor?
of free.
Wick,
Well,
I would like to expand your metaphor.
You can after I try, right? Because the point of
Okay.
saying that is I have never been in a space, and I've been to all sorts of spaces in my life. I've lived a long life. I've been in the AOL chat rooms. I remember the old days, okay? Right? The before times, okay? Predatory doesn't even begin to describe how these people act and treat others. The objectification that comes along with these kinds of behaviors. I have not seen a world where you can separate the objectification of women with this kind of open, sexualized, overly sexualized behavior. They seem to come in
Objectification isn't the
pairs.
problem.
You
Yeah,
don't think
objectification isn't the problem.
it's not the problem? Why not? Why?
course
Well,
not.
because a lot of
One
women
of the
do say it is to me,
I don't
right?
care. They're wrong.
They're
Yeah, no,
wrong,
they're
okay.
dumb.
In a
They're
sex
wrong.
positive space where everybody's engaging in hypersexuality, is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm saying the
There-
problem is when you.
No, I'm
remove
talking
the
about
sex-
Wick. I'm talking about
Oh,
Wick. When he brings up objectification,
Yes.
are you speaking in the context of a
Because
sex positive
women
space where
who want to
everyone's-
okay, because again, that just these spaces don't stay isolated to the own, like what happens in DGG doesn't stay in DGG. I'm not saying that's overly sexualized space. Like what happens in my server doesn't just stay in my server. The behaviors that we do in my server don't just stay in my server. These things have bleed over effects. It's a pool, and we are peeing in the corner of the pool and pretending that it's not going everywhere else,
So
right?
You're saying
So
that
the-
the people who are participating in these spaces are bringing that behavior into real life or into other communities, is what you're saying.
In that atmosphere as well. And a lot of women who come into the space as a whole, this space, Twitch poll, panel spaces, and things like that, they see these kinds of behaviors and they see and experience people treating them in certain ways. They are not taken seriously. They are predated upon, sometimes harmlessly, right? When I say predated upon, I'm not saying that is necessarily a negative thing. But a lot of people don't want to deal with that shit. And I think it's a
Would you say
problem.
the same? Would you
So
say the same
if-
thing about
Wait,
women
wait,
who are
Kyla,
only
hold on.
fans models?
Can I
Instagram
please-
models?
Oh, one at a
It
time.
is
One at a
not
time. One at a time.
objectification. It is
Losing
obviously
agency or
not.
whatever.
It is not objectification. It's when the subjectification is removed and when you violate social norms because of your objectification. Right? This is true for a ton of behaviors, by the way. So me looking across the aisle and noticing some cute guy on the bus and going like, "Damn, he fine." I'm objectifying him. Objectively. That's fine though. I'm allowed to. The problem, for example, is when I go up to him and I have a weird kink and I'm like, "Yo, bro, I wish I could just like suck on your balls and like guzzle them deeply and like say some
Oh,
weird
you're
shit."
just going for clips now.
I'm
I know
not.
what you're doing.
I'm not.
You're
The
gonna get suck your
issue,
balls
the
on the
issue,
bus.
yeah, there you go. The
Finish your
issue
point,
is when
yeah.
you violate the social norm. So women have a pretty hard line of being like, "I don't want to be approached in every space. I need to be able to say no easily, and I need to feel safe in the situation." Those are the social norms we've established with men approaching women. So if you're going to objectify her, you need to do so in a way that honors those social norms. Otherwise, it's completely fine to just look at somebody and think that they're fine, which is objectification.
Okay, I
don't
know a
even
few
if
people wanted
objectification- I
to
don't even know if like noticing
wanted
a
to-
human being attractiveness is objectification. Isn't it turning them into an object where you no longer like value their humanity, you only value their attractiveness? Isn't that objectification?
Well, to some extent, that's what a lot of people want. Like, especially if you're an Instagram model or you're an OnlyFans model or you're posting a bunch of pictures of you saying, "Hey, I look cute today." The point is that yes,
Well,
people are going to
Kyla's
value
saying is
your
Yeah,
objectification.
but wouldn't you just
When
look
you
at
Hold
watch
on,
guys
hold
who
on,
are
hold on, hold on, hold on.
Hold
Maya,
on.
go ahead. Maya,
on.
Maya.
Objectification
Can I
is
finish what I'm
fine in
saying?
small bursts. No. And like Kyla said, like, oh, this person is hot, right? Like I am looking at their body, and for those like couple seconds, they are an object to me, right? The problem is when it kind of leaches over to everything that person is. I almost deserve their body. Like they aren't a person, I can do whatever I want. That is where the problem is. The thing is, in reality, when people are heavily objectifying others, they generally just like pass the line already. They're like, oh, I'm just gonna want to fuck people, right? Like creepy guys in DMs, right? They're just like going on and on and on about it.
Yeah, you're not a whole you're not a whole human being. You're something to be conquered. You're an achievement to knock out, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, like young men, I would say, kind of culturally are taught to think this way for an extended period of time, and it actually takes a decent level of maturity to start realizing that women are like coherent human beings who have fucking problems, which is another thing that I would encourage. You should be able to be attracted to somebody without demeaning their humanness, their
Sure.
wholeness.
Tom, you
But that's-
wanted to finish. Go ahead.
Well, that's kind of the point of like, even if I post on Tinder, right? Everybody, all the girls posting on Tinder are posting pictures of themselves in bikinis. All the guys are posting pictures of themselves without their shirts on or like in suits or in like, they're
Being
dressing
objectified and they
sexy.
want to be objectified.
Yes,
obviously.
you don't know anything about their subject. You have no inkling of their subjectivity. They want you to think that they look good and good enough for you to swipe right and DM them. And then even once you do, they're likely not to say a whole lot to you and just send you some like news or some shit, because the only thing that they want is for you to objectify them in this scenario. There are scenarios where objectification by itself is the thing that is wanted, and then there are scenarios where it's the objectification and the subjectification that they want in these scenarios. And you have to
Right.
know when is appropriate and when is not.
But when you have
If you bake into objectification the removal of the subjectification and autonomy of the other person, then yeah, objectification is bad, which is why when women say objectification is bad, what they mean is when they are only an object and you violate their subject and autonomy as a result of it by breaking taboo or by breaking social norm and making your objectification of them their problem. That's what women have an issue with specifically. So when they say objectification, it's because we baked in these two things. But if you look at really good feminist writers, there's very good, like Simone de Beauvoir talks about this, about the separation of objectification and subjectification, because the reality is that women still often want to be objectified. In fact, men do as well. It's when their
Heroes,
subject
but
is
yeah,
removed.
Hold on.
heroes are
As
objects.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Azzy, give
heroes are
me a
objects.
second though, because I think
Go
we're missing
We're going
something. I
off.
think we're moving the goalposts here, because when you talk
do
about
that
Tinder
again.
and other places such as that, fair enough, right? I hear you. I feel you, right? When you're talking about spaces designed for hooking up, for dating, for these kinds of behaviors, absolutely. But when we're talking about this space, my Discord ain't Tinder. I doubt any of your well, maybe yours, Tom, right? But I doubt most of our Discords are Tinder. I just, it's not the same. And there are different, or should be different standards. But what is happening and what I'm observing and what people are telling me, right? And this is why we're having this conversation, is that people in this space are, because of the lackadaisical way we treat sexuality, pornography, sex work, and just all this in general, women are being driven away because they don't feel comfortable in these spaces, because they feel they're being badly objectified. We don't look at them because of I don't invite
Their
them to their
subjectification
panels.
is being removed. Yes.
Yes, it's a problem. And I
Yes.
think we can
Yes.
draw a line between how we talk about pornography and sex work to this kind of behavior. I think we can draw a direct line.
I
The
think it's a
issue is
thin
like when
line,
I'm
though.
saying that women are wrong about this, I'm not saying that they're wrong about how they're feeling. I'm saying we're using the wrong language. And if you don't identify the problem accurately, you can't solve it. Because then men think women don't want me to think that they're attractive and to notice me, which is not actually true, because we have the converse problem in spaces like in church, for example, or for our liberal spaces. Like coming from Canada, I grew up, and most women I know grew up thinking we were super unattractive because nobody ever says anything, nobody compliments you, and nobody ever hits on you, right? And so that's a mind fuck for women, because our value is still tied to our like attractiveness. And so it's not just the lack of, it's the subjectification being violated. It's a man thinking my want of her sexual body supersedes her level of safety and comfort, and he feels a need to impose on that thing, and no matter what barrier she tries to erect, he doesn't back down. That's the thing that makes women run, and they is super fair. Whenever I get to the crux of what makes women uncomfortable, because I talk to every woman that is in my server and who leaves, it is always that. It is that their no matter how like they framed it, just didn't feel like it could be enough. That's the problem, is that their no's are not being listened to. That's the issue.
Before we get to Connor, and we will, it is the top of the hour, and I said I'd read super chats at the top of the hour. Gang, you can still get them in. So if you want to have your say in this discussion, please consider super chatting, throwing bits, all these things. We're going to read them again nearer to the end of the show. So please don't feel like you missed out. Feel free to get those super chats in. Let me go through them really quickly, and we'll get to them. $5 from Deuce Halcyon, I should say. Just preemptively let Connor rant. Fair enough. $5 from Testicle Johnson. I agree with Wick 100% on this issue. If women didn't want to be objectified in public, then they wouldn't be hot. We need Sharia law in America now. Thank you for the $5. $5 from Brittany Simon. Excited to hear your thoughts, everyone. Thank you for the $5, Brittany Simon. Sorry you couldn't make it today. $5 from the Trib1 to say, no shot you think this space is more toxic for women than in real life places, Wick. That stuff bleeds into the space, not the other way around. And $5 from the Observing Otaku to say, OnlyFans chick. I want men to pay for basically doing nothing. Also OnlyFans chick. I'm a proud independent woman who shouldn't be objectified. I see a flaw. Thank you for the money. Thank you for the soup chats. Back to the discussion. Counterpoints. Go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of want to go back to moral foundations because Mr. Crenshaw said something that I found interesting because I actually disagree with one of his foundational principles. So I want to take your metaphor or analogy, and I want to expand it. So let's say that we had two digital communities, right? In one digital community, we took a libertarian perspective on sex, and we said, hey, as long as everybody's consenting adults, we don't give a shit. People use the community in order to like organize gangbangs and to date and send each other sex and nudes and all that kind of stuff. And there was like drama every now and then, but all in all, people were able to negotiate and they were able to be as sexually degenerate as they wanted to be. And then let's say that there was a conservative digital space, and the conservative digital space said, hey, you need to be focusing on personal development, finding your wife, and having children. And we understand we're going to put limits on your sexual behavior. As a result, if you try to date here in an aggressive way, if you try to organize orgies or threesomes or whatever, if you creep out a bunch of the women or whatever, we're kicking you out of the space. You need to be focused on personal development. Let's say that for the next 30 years, that the libertarian and liberal space was having more fun. They had higher reports, like self-reports of happiness, of pleasure, et cetera, et cetera. And then the conservatives had higher reports of like purpose and satisfaction and contentment and like kind of those, what I would call deeper, like life anchoring goals. Which one, what would you choose to be in, and which one would you view as better for your moral values?
Me personally, I wouldn't participate in the hypersexual, pro-sex community personally, but I don't like the idea of trying to curtail other people's desire to do that in any way, shape, or form. I think people's freedom to choose to be in either community is more important to me than trying to derail it. We have lines in the sand that are perfectly workable. Telling people to, practice safe sex, telling people to, policing harassment, policing, other forms of just disgusting activity. That's the best that we can do, especially when we talk about digital communities. But,
I want to throw you a curveball real quick. No, you answered it, and you also told me where your most important value is. I heard you. I understand. I want to throw one more curveball your way. Let's say that 70% of people, because we're like very, very much tied to our sexual impulses. Let's say that if you create the free society where nobody puts any pressure on anybody, not even cultural pressure, not even social criticism. Let's say 70% of society goes into the libertine sex society, and then they don't have kids. And then the entire socioeconomic structure of the world collapses, and we have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of neglected old people because nobody had more people in order to take care of them in their age thing. Would that factor into your
Bro,
decision?
you
I
must
think
have
don't
the
have
most
kids is a-
impressive quads because you just leaped so far.
Whoa, I got it. I got
It's a
it. I
hypothetical.
got it.
Okay,
not
it's
real.
a
It's very
hypothetical.
The hypothetical took a very,
In the
very
hypothetical that people stop having children and it is the end of the society as interesting because there are no women that are still able to have fruit having children.
Let me
Gotcha.
talk.
It's not Black History.
Gotcha.
Hold on.
Just-
It's
no,
not
no,
Black
no,
History
no,
Month.
she keeps
It's
going
Women's
on.
History
No.
Month.
It's Women's
Whoa.
Month.
It's Women's
She keeps
History
going
Month.
Just
now.
ended like hold up. Maybe I want to identify. Hold up.
Listen, as a veteran,
You took a
need to get
massive
into that
leap.
past. No,
You
hold on.
my life.
You
Okay.
took a massive.
Hold
You
on.
took a massive leap. You added in the no kids thing. That was a very specific and massive leap. How do we know
I
that
can't
most of
let
these people don't want to
I can't let
reproduce?
Erudite walk away. Don't let me.
Don't let her
I'm not gonna
derail
let
what we
her.
got going on. She came in and
No.
tried to crash. We're not
You
gonna let
and
her
I
crash
are
this out.
vet bros. We will make out with each other in a second. Give me 2 seconds to address
Crazy.
Erudite.
Okay,
Do not
hold
let her
on.
derail this, please.
Hold
Okay.
on. Hold
Okay.
on. Hold on.
Rick,
Hold on.
please. What the fuck?
Hold on. I'm just trying to. You're all yelling and screaming at once, and I want to make sure that you do it one at a time. Stop!
We were
enjoying it.
settling.
We're gonna go. Counter can finish his point in whatever way he wants, and then once he's done, we'll get everyone else in here. Go ahead.
Okay. Number one, it is a hypothetical, so you don't have to take it literally. However, Erudite, you're coming in a little spicy tonight. I don't know if it's because I'm really sex negative and you're super sex positive or something, but we align on some shit, but we don't. I don't know why.
I
you're coming
warned
in
everyone
spicy.
before. You just
but-
weren't here.
Okay.
On a lot of
But
caffeine.
I'm going to
That's why.
point out the fact that you just smugly said that this isn't happening, whereas people can very much argue that the crash in birth rate over the past century and a half and our tax structures and our immigration structures are directly affected by exactly what I just said, which is plummeting birth rates, libertine attitudes on sex resulting in no children, and then the entire socioeconomic shifting of the Western world. So while I'll admit that my logical extension is extreme, you acting like these things don't impact each other at all is patently fucking crazy.
I didn't
Sorry,
act like
Mr.
they don't
Crenshaw.
interact at all.
Oh,
But
okay.
did I ever say none of these
No,
things
you
are
just
correlated?
smoothly fucking said,
I said your
this is such
quads
an
are
extreme
strong.
example.
You did such a good job leaping, right? Obviously, these things are
It's
softly
not a
correlated.
leap if basically it's
Yes,
the
it
logical
is.
extension of the same worldview. What the fuck are you
No,
talking
because
about?
in your own hypothetical, you don't account for the most important thing for plummeting birth weights, which tends to be increase in GDP and technology. People who have access to better technology in
What
general.
technology?
Technology like birth control, technology like higher education, technology like anything that anything that seems to increase societal levels of impulse control tends to lead to better GDP and also better technology and also less kids, because the same motherfuckers that are going to school now that can access it are the same motherfuckers being like, I should probably wait to have kids until I'm financially stable, right? That's what happens. Yes. So your
So,
whole
hold on. So
hypothetical
if that's
left out an
disingenuous, that's
integral
disingenuous.
If that's society,
part of the slippery slope.
If that society craters in birth rate
It's
to
not
the point,
disingenuous.
okay, so if it craters in birth rate to the point that our economic models don't work anymore, and we have a whole bunch of old ass fucking libertines passing fucking herpes in the retirement home who then die of bed sores and fucking misery, isn't that a concern of mine that our society is basically saying, don't tell the gooners to stop gooning, they're having fun gooning.
This
You're
is your
interrupting
problem.
their
This is
goon
your
session.
problem. Yeah, I get it. Your goon session. This is the problem with the conservative straw man of the liberal position. I'm not a fucking retarded leftist. I'm not here trying to say everyone should just have free sex and have no consequences, and the social safety network will just pick you up by your bootstraps eventually. I'm actively talking about certain specific liberal guidelines of structure. Of course, a free society needs structure. That's fucking obvious. That's why I talk about things like sex education and birth control, right? And STI testing, all sorts of things, including talking about family planning and how you should have kids.
Okay.
All these things should be included in structure, obviously.
Okay, I want to get everyone else in here. I want to, like, the Connor versus Aerody thing is great, but we have other guests here, and I want to make sure that they get their say. Let's toss it to Maya. Let's toss it to Tom. Let's toss it to Azzy. And then I have a hypothetical for everyone.
To Connor's point, like if we want to look at a country where this is actually happening and gooner culture is a big part of that, we can look at Japan. Right? Lonely men being cast out, oh, now I'm just gonna jack off now, and then their porn gets fucking weirder and weirder and weirder. Now we have lowly shit. That's where, if you like Vosch, that's who you have to thank for that. But like, this is a direct example of this kind of culture.
You absolutely should not be comparing Japan. No, you do not compare Japan, because we fucking nuked 2 of their cities, eroded their culture in 10 years, and rebuilt it from the bottom up and said, God, I hope they don't have intergenerational trauma. That's why they're not comparable to the United
Japan,
States.
especially after the war, had a beautiful rising culture, right? Like, I love Japanese jazz.
Yeah, facilitated. Yes, they sure did. Real fast. Who do you think facilitated that?
Yeah, no, it was definitely the United States. They were inspired by the US.
Was it organic? Was it organic?
Who cares? The problem with Japan is not inorganic culture. The problem with Japan is loneliness because of gooning culture. Loneliness because people weren't able to reach outside of themselves.
Should you encourage the gooning culture, or should you discourage the gooning culture? That's my question to you, Miss Erudite.
It's not a one-to-one.
Or is it value neutral? Is it morally neutral?
Is gooning, like, should you goon or ideally go out? One or the other.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not.
When you're saying gooning, are you talking about being like sexually attracted?
Hold on.
Fapping? Are we talking about fapping?
We're talking about being a porn addict, and you know what we're talking about.
I actually don't.
Hold on. We have a gooning expert on the panel. Sure. We have a gooning expert on the panel. Tom, I'm going to pass it to you. Please, before you give your point, though, please define gooning for us, Gooner King.
Yeah, I don't like that we're using the word gooning. It should be like cooming or something like that. Technically, gooning is edging for days on end. So
that's what I thought. That's why I was confused.
Well, that's
gooning, not gooning. But anyways, yeah, like it's not a one-to-one. Like there's a ton of other problems with where we have like condoms and birth control, the internet, more technology. Kids are growing up on video games and in Discord and online communities where they're not getting as much socialization and they're not learning how to interact with other other people, and then when it comes time for them to engage in one of the hardest like human interactions, which is like romantic relationships, now they have no idea what it is that they're doing. The problem isn't that they watched too much porn or that they're sitting around edging all day. The problem is that
but
like
they're all related.
Yes, it
multifaceted
is.
problem.
Accepting gooning
But
as a part of society does not help us at all.
Porn has always been around though. Like even in the 70s,
no,
before
porn
there was
has been
internet,
always
they
been.
all-
No
everybody
one
had porn
you can have
magazines.
Yeah, does anyone
Does anyone
have any concrete data? Does
Stop,
anyone have
stop,
any
stop,
concrete
stop,
data?
stop,
Please,
stop,
Eric,
stop,
what
stop,
the
stop, stop,
fuck
stop, one at a
you
time.
got?
Finish.
Does anyone have?
Let Tom finish, and then we'll get to you, Rashad. You can ask your question after Tom finishes his
Porn
sentence.
has
Go
always
ahead.
been around. Take go.
Yes, porn has always been around, and it's always like
No, it hasn't. You're
magazines were
wrong.
under everybody's. Okay, in the 70s, 60s, we didn't have the same problems. But they were sitting under everybody's mattress. Everybody had porn. They had porn video
No,
shops.
they
that could go
weren't.
to. That yes,
Not everybody had a hustler. Not everybody had a penthouse. Your gooner fucking
they had
dad
them at
might
pretty high
have,
rates.
but not fucking
They had them at
everybody
pretty
did.
high rates. They had them at pretty high rates.
No, they
Even
didn't.
even in the
Many
early.
conservatives had to jerk off like Sears magazines, like proper traditional conservative.
Yeah, Tom, are you really saying that internet porn is the same thing as magazine porn?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that porn, obviously, it's more prolific today. I'm saying the problem isn't porn; it is in moderation. That's the issue. We're
I
talking
used to
about-
have to
It's
jerk
like
off to
the
2
problem
sticks in
is
a row,
life
and we had to
over
share the
reliance, right?
stick.
Where the porn becomes a problem when it becomes a replacement for sexual activity, a replacement for social interactions, right? And that's
But
what's
it's
happening
become-
right now.
It's
That is
becoming
what
that
makes
not
me
because
cool.
I don't think men are choosing to do this because they want
Yes,
to.
they are.
There's so many
Yeah, a
other
lot of men
there's
just
so many
don't.
other there are so many other factors in this. Online dating, the sexual liberation of women, the increasing of social media.
No,
These
okay,
are much
here's-
bigger
let me-
factors.
let me
These
explain
are
to you
much
this.
bigger
Let me explain to you
factors.
something.
These are much bigger factors than pornography. The idea that
absolutely.
OnlyFans and
It's all
porn
connected.
is derailing young men's desire to succeed has not been proven in any way, shape, or form. And honestly, I would venture to argue that's a very small minority of men who are being held back by OF. And if you're being held back by OF, let's just be real. Like you probably were never going to make it. The idea that
Isn't
this is the
30%
reason
of
why
online traffic pornography?
that's why young men aren't succeeding is because of porn.
I think it's a contributing factor. Absolutely.
I don't
If you
think
have
it's
a porn addiction.
If I
I
may-
don't think it.
Rashad,
I may-
real quick.
Okay,
Or it's
Maya
a
finish.
symptom.
Maya finish.
Or it's a
Okay.
symptom, right?
Yeah.
That's the
In
question.
an ideal
Is it a
world,
symptom
would we
or is
get
it
rid of
contributing?
porn addiction? Yes or no? Would that be a good thing?
No.
Okay. This
It would not
sure.
be a good thing to get rid of porn
Yes.
addiction.
No, of course.
No.
Of course.
No.
Yes.
No,
yes.
because
Yes. Okay.
Why
well,
is
that's
that
his-
why is
there
that a
would
bad
ne-
thing? To get
All
rid of porn
addictions are
addiction.
Getting
technically
rid of
bad by
porn.
definition.
Look at the
addiction.
fact
It's
that
like she's being dumb. She's basically saying, "Isn't it good to get rid of cancer?" Just say yes, and
No,
then
no,
when
like,
she gives her
No,
bad
it's
analogy,
not-
talk
see,
about why it's
here's the
disanalogous. Okay.
the
whatever.
problem is this, right? You're taking this solution and throwing it onto the problem without looking at the entire picture of why the problem exists. If you get rid of porn, you still have a bunch of lonely young men because guess what? Most of these girls aren't interested in them. So now you
don't
have a
think we're
significant
saying
amount
get
of young men who have no sexual interaction and they have no sexual outlet. What's your solution then? They can't watch pornography. They can't get
Less
pussy.
Maya,
What are
would
you
ban
gonna give them
would you
now?
ban porn in
No,
entirety?
You
I
guys
would-
have
let me-
No,
never
what's
seen
I don't
no?
think we
porn
should
in
get
the
rid of
world.
porn. I think the problem is over reliance on porn as a driver.
There you
Again,
go.
as I've said like 15 million times, right?
But I think
Yeah,
we all
we're
agree
not
on
talking
that.
about
How
We
do
all
we
agree
measure-
that porn
how
in
do we
moderation is
measure-
better.
I'm just saying
How
that
are we
I'm
measuring
fighting
the
in the right
over-reliance on
direction.
pornography?
Crenshaw,
How do we measure it?
I'm fighting in the right direction. Okay, you guys are fighting in the wrong direction, or you're not pushing the fucking cart. Okay,
I'm willing to draw the
Hold
line.
Hold on. What I see is tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of young men who are spending their time looking at pornography, Instagram, social media, gooning and objectifying fucking women, and wasting their time on things that will not lead to them having a wife or a serious girlfriend or children. And to say that them spending their energy on those ventures instead of in real life developing social skills, developing job skills, becoming a person of worth inside the society is incorrect. So what I'm saying is I am reserving the right to say when we have popular figures on the internet saying, I just fucked 50 people at once. And that isn't that based ? And then you have a bunch of fucking liberals in the fucking replies being like, go off, queen, smashing 50 dicks into your poo hanny and making a fucking cum sandwich in your fucking vagina is awesome.
You
I'm gonna say,
haven't even
y'all are
taken
fucking
into
gross.
account
Y'all are gross and you
gaming.
should not be held
You
up
haven't taken
as
into
examples.
account gaming, scrolling on TikTok, watching non-sexual content. These are
all the
much
same
more common
behavior.
and much bigger distractors than
Then
pornography.
porn.
All the same.
So how about we? How about we?
Hold on, hold on.
How about we ban non-sexual content in general as well? Because that's curtailing young men's desire to go out and socialize too.
Yes,
Hold on.
they're
Gotta
always
get rid
the
of.
problem. It's vice.
I would say,
How
hold
much
on,
are we gonna get rid of though? Because you're
It's
picking
not
porn,
about-
but you don't want to get rid of everything else though. So let's get rid of everything else.
Shout out to Nick.
If you said, if this was a conversation about gaming, if this was a conversation about gaming and gaming addiction, I would say that we should encourage kids to game less. And we, hi Nick, I love you. You're the only person I'll goon to from now on.
Nick,
So
how
anyway,
often do you goon, Nick?
Crazy.
Yes.
He can't
Okay.
hear you.
Oh, he can't hear me? Okay, well,
If it
I'll
was-
ask. I'll
if it
DM
was
him
a-
in private.
If this was
Okay.
a conversation about gaming addiction, then I would say that it would be good to tell young people that gaming for 80 hours a week is fucking crazy. And they should reduce the amount that they're gaming, and they should at minimum work out 3 to 6 times a week. And I don't have a libertine or liberal perspective on that. You should reduce your gaming and you should work out.
I'm arguing
Wait,
that pornography as an addiction is not the leading. Like your answer to this, I'm not sure. I think your answer is just encouraging to not engage in this in the extreme of vice. But it seems like Maya and is it Azzy? It seems like you guys are advocating for just the obliteration of pornographic content,
No.
and that is not even close to
not
being
I don't
my
think they've
answer
ever
here.
said
And
that.
I would go on to
Not Maya.
argue that pornography
yes.
is low on the list of reasons why young men aren't out there socially and financially and sexually succeeding. I would venture to argue that porn is way low at the bottom of the list. You ever try to link up with 10 of your niggas, your boys, in 2024 as a Gen Zer? It's almost impossible. Dudes be gaming all day, watching YouTube, watching TikTok. That's one of the biggest, I'd say those are the leading reasons why young men aren't out there doing what they're supposed to be doing. But porn is way at the bottom of that list, in my opinion. And if you have data to contradict that, by all means, unleash it.
Right?
They
It's
literally
they're like
had to
little
put
things
in-
that everyone can do on their own that drives them away from social, like a normal social culture, right? Whether it's gaming, scrolling on TikTok, gooning, right? All these things are things that you can do easily on your phone that keep you home. We should curb those behaviors. We should legislate them in ways that stops
But
people
why is
from
porn on the chopping block specifically?
because it's the same thing.
the
They're
same
easy dopamine
behavior
hitters,
as
right?
gaming. It's the same
Okay, so
behavior.
you wanna
as watching Netflix.
you wanna decapitate gaming and the rest of that too, right? Or is porn the only
We
one that's gonna
gotta
get away with it?
reduce
it.
Listen, you
Okay,
reduce
wait,
it.
can I
because
get a
the
clear answer?
nature
Do you
of-
guys want it reduced? Do you want porn consumption reduced? Or do you think porn is inherently bad for society?
Reduce.
It's inherently
Reduced.
bad, but like you
Reduced.
said, it's
Or inherently
always
bad.
going to be
Why is it
around.
inherently bad for
Reduced.
society?
Because the root cause of it, nobody, the minimal 1% of performer, the entertainer, is in it for just for fun, and they
Hold
have
up.
no other option.
A question.
Majority
for money.
Hold up. A question to the
They're in it
panel.
for money. Yeah, go ahead.
No, finish your statement, but then I have a question for the panels. Finish your statement, and I'll ask.
They're in it for money. They don't care who they exploit. They don't care if they exploit themselves. They don't care of the long-term negative aspects of it. They're just it is a total detriment to society, to themselves, to their mental, to their physical, to their relational.
Can
They
you
step
measure
in-
the width of this destruction? Like
Can
how
I-
big is it for society?
You can measure it. This isn't something where you just take a survey. You can measure it by watching the you can watch the economy,
at
you
least
can
like
watch the
5
legal
feet thick.
system, you
Oh,
can watch the
porn
laws
is-
made. This isn't some statistical thing where we have to go in and say, hey, how
I
many
think
of you
it
are watching
is, bro. If you're
No,
trying to
it
connect
is
porn to the
because-
damage of the economy, you
No,
gotta
that's just
start
one
drawing up
singular
paperwork.
aspect,
Yeah,
but
the
that's not
majority
But
of
that's a big
American-
one, though.
The majority of
When we
Americans
take
are watching
statistics, we're not
porn.
just looking at we're not just
It's anywhere
looking at
from,
we're
like
looking at the movement of the marketplace. We're looking at the
Yes,
movement of culture.
but
But how can you demonstrate that porn is derailing the American economy?
You're making a claim of damage while most Americans watch porn, and it's only somewhere from like 2 to 10% that actually have negative consequences.
Question.
So like that.
Okay, this is a great jumping off point for my question to the pro porn people here, right? Or the
10%
more
of
porn, if I may, please, the more pro porn people here.
Porn.
Like, you asked what are the downsides, the negatives to porn. Can I ask what are the positives? What does porn do for society? And I'm talking about pornography as it stands today. The porn industry today. I'm talking about OnlyFans. I'm talking about Pornhub. I'm talking about all. Dom will be able to name these better than I am, right? What does it bring? What positives does it bring to society?
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone is advocating for positives anyways, necessarily. Does it have to have positives?
I
Yeah, you
mentioned
get to
some positives.
orgasm. Isn't
I talked
orgasm
about this in
fun?
It gives
I talked
people
about
that don't
this
have
how
sex a
they-
sexual outlet, which is a pretty good thing for society, right? If young
That's
men
what-
are having a hard time having sex, they should probably have a sexual outlet. Otherwise, we could see some real nasty shit take place.
But
Yeah,
science
well-
says you don't need the porn in order to have a orgasm. Masturbating
Listen,
in
I
and
don't
of
wanna
It's
go
not
back
just
to
about
sticks and
it's not
rocks,
just
okay?
about that though.
masturbating in and
Ah.
of itself has the benefits. It's not the porn that has the benefits. It's the masturbation.
So
that has
you actually believe that society can just drop
Because
the
it's the
big
because
big
it's
booty
the orgasm
Latinas? You think they could
itself.
just drop all of that and just go to just beating their meat and just imagining shit with white bubbles above? You think
The
society
The fact
could
that you
thousands of
Zoomers
years
cannot do that
Christ,
is a problem.
ye of
No,
little
hold on.
faith.
Counter, stop. All of you stop. All of you stop. All of you stop.
Whoa.
All of you stop, because this is hitting on it. The fact that you have to have this outward stimuli or else you can't get off is a problem.
We're fried
Yeah.
up, but like, hey,
It's
at
a
the end of the day, here
problem.
we are where we are.
We're no you.
Wait. Yeah, I was about
We
to
are.
say,
Gen Z is fried. Were you trying to argue that Gen Z isn't
Shot.
fried up? Are you
You
special?
said something.
No,
You
I'm
said
not.
something
You
wrong.
said
Okay.
we're.
You said something wrong, and it needs to
Okay.
be corrected. People have been imagining sexual scenarios in their brains and jerking off to it for thousands of years. And the fact that you think that
But we're not in that timeline anymore.
I'm not
We're
saying
living in
we
an
should,
era.
I'm not saying we should go back, but the fact that you think that a solar flare can't go off and then you can't imagine sexual scenarios in your brain, like, are
That's
you one of those
different
people?
from banning porn.
Are you one of those people who can't imagine a fucking apple in your brain?
I
Because
don't
can see
have
a 3D apple.
aphantasia. I can imagine anything. What I'm saying is
Then
the
imagine
action of
some
banning
titties in your
pornography and a solar flare knocking out Pornhub is two completely different things. It can have two completely different outcomes on society. Like, are you?
Sure,
Are
I'm
you
not
arguing
advocating
against?
for it. I'm not
How many
advocating for it
jobs-
either way.
How many jobs do you think Pornhub generates for like even just like back end editors? Because my suspicion is that porn is good for customer satisfaction and economic momentum. I think it's pretty good for the economy.
How many
Bias.
slave owners would have lost their jobs if we
Well, it
outlawed
doesn't-
slave owner
Bro,
early?
thank you,
Like,
Ray.
well,
No,
yeah,
that's
sure,
my
people
point.
will lose their jobs.
No,
but come on.
stop. This is no. Hold on. I'll outline to you why this is obviously disanalogous. The reason why this is disanalogous is because the industry of slavery is inherently violating human rights. That's the issue. So if porn only required sexual slaves, I would agree with you that it's bad. But the reason why slavery was a problem, we couldn't justify it with economic growth. It's because of a violation of human rights, fucking obviously. Whereas porn doesn't
up.
seem to be doing the
Hold
same
on,
thing.
but the porn
So- yeah,
industry.
yeah.
Hold on, stop. The porn industry
Uh-huh.
absolutely has a huge record of violating human
Okay,
rights.
Okay, but the
right? To a
slavery,
large
okay,
degree,
that's-
much larger than
Wait,
other industries.
Are you
much
really going to
larger.
try to tell me? Hold on. Are you really going to try
Not
to
the
tell
same,
me
not
that
to
you
the same
believe that
degree that slavery
slavery-
is. Absolutely.
Do you think it's at all in the same degree? Because in my conception of
Lot closer
slavery
than
is that it is predicated necessarily on the abuse of human rights, and in the case of sex trafficking, because of the criminalization and delegalization of it, it has housed sexual slavery. That's
No,
my
you're-
understanding of the difference.
Okay,
Or
I
is
have a question.
porn
You're-
Slavery, it's
predicated
also
necessarily on slavery?
I have a question.
Right? Like that's
thing.
a part
You're
of it.
not, no, no,
Hold
no.
on, no,
Hold on.
stop.
Okay.
Let me answer her question, and then you can all answer her question. So it is not predicated in the same
Your
way.
question hasn't
However,
been answered yet.
hold on,
Yeah.
what?
Go ahead.
Your question about the benefits of porn hasn't even been answered.
I know,
yet.
I know. We'll get to that.
You can
I-
have an
I
orgasm.
Hold on,
said
but let-
economic momentum.
Let
I said
me-
economic
I
momentum.
said what it
hold on. Let
was.
me address this.
He said a sexual outlet.
Let me address this before I lose it, before it goes out my brain, okay? It almost did. Okay. So yes, it is not as bad as slavery. Absolutely not. I was being hyperbolic to make the point.
It's fundamentally not as bad.
However,
It's fundamental.
the porn industry, I think, at its root, is exploitative in nature and leads to more exploitative risks and behaviors for those communities and cultures who engage in it. In general,
Do you
there are
think-
outliers.
Do you think
there
that
are
if it was
outliers.
legalized, do you think that if it was legalized properly, that it would be fundamental to the porn industry to be exploitative?
I
Do you
don't
actually
think it
believe
will
that?
be legalized properly, and properly is
I didn't
doing
ask
a
do you
lot
think
of
it'll be
hand handling.
legalized. I
Yeah,
didn't
sure.
ask. You're
No,
anyway.
if you do it
I
perfectly,
think
it will be
18-year-old girls will
perfect.
get
Do
exploited.
you
no
think
matter
that if
what.
you
But
legalized
I don't think you
slavery, you
can.
could find a way to not have it violate human rights?
Yeah, I'd be super nice to my slaves. So the
Hold on, make him answer. Don't let him run away.
Sure.
Do you think there's a way that if you legalize slavery, you
that's
can
why
make it not
slavery
be a
is
violation?
worse.
Great. This is why the
That
porn
is
industry is
completely voluntary.
disanalogous to
because-
slavery.
No,
it's
just
not,
because it's
because-
no,
no, it's
hold on,
not.
stop.
Yes, it is.
Go ahead.
Hold on, stop.
It is
Just because it's
completely
not as
disanalogous.
bad doesn't mean it doesn't have some very similar risks to it.
So the
because-
issue
But
is
slavery was
they
literally
are
something you were born
disanalogous.
into from day one. Pornography is a choice to participate in.
which
Slavery
we are
is you're
pushing
born.
people, and the industry is
But
pushing
you,
people in.
being born
And it's
into something
not good
and
to
knowing
compare
your
it to slavery.
children,
There's no point in
knowing
this.
your
This is the issue.
children will be a part of
That's
this.
chattel
being
slavery.
born
That's a
into
very
it.
specific types of slavery. There are other types of slavery which didn't involve
but
that.
True.
someone being in bondage against their will, be it born into it or not, is completely different from someone of their own free will choosing to engage in something.
What I'm
and
saying
also
is
being able to
pornography-
Your
say-
better
Porn
analogy,
industry-
to give you a more accurate analogy, if you want to keep following it, would probably be more like sweatshops in third world countries. That's a little bit closer because at least sweatshops are still
Sure.
fundamentally
Okay.
consensual, but there is a weird perverse incentive that you're outlining. This is why I'm making it clear. Slavery is not the analogous thing here, but we can use sweatshops if you want.
Okay, I'm willing to take that
Alley-oop
because that's
for
a
the win.
huge issue too, right? Like,
Sure.
fair enough. But I do want to open it up more. But I just, again, to reiterate my point, okay, there is problems with the industry of pornography in and of itself, and its creation, distribution, and consumption, which does have negative effects on the people involved in it and the cultures in which it is celebrated. That is my contention. But I want to give other people a chance here. I see you, Counter, but we got to go to Tom, and we got to go to Rashad, and then we'll go to Counter after that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did want to say, like, especially for me, somebody who grew up in like a fundamental Christian household, like porn was something that actually gave me the ability to learn about female anatomy and sex and like sex education, things like that. People who watch porn are more willing to experiment within their relationships. They're seen, men who watch porn are seen as more experienced by women. Couples who watch porn together have report higher satisfaction in their sex lives. The couples who watch porn are more dedicated to each other, and people who watch porn seem to report more sexual well-being. Porn is used as a treatment for women with sexual dysfunction. Like, there are tons of benefits from porn and with porn, and seems to help make people happy. It's the same like with video games. Is that like video games, we can overuse them and get addicted, and it causes problems, but in moderation, it can make you happy. It can really like help you what do you call it, like
It's pleasurable. We
Kind
know
of-
it's
yes,
pleasurable.
it's pleasurable, pretty much. Yes, it's helpful to yes, it's helpful to your life, and so yes, in moderation, these things are good. If you overuse them, that's when they become bad. But it seems like everybody's talking about porn as though everybody overuses it, and by far the majority of people don't seem to do that.
Sure. Actually, Tom, I just want to rebut your point real quick. Not rebut necessarily. I am trying to talk to, I feel like Twitch and YouTube poll in our online spaces disproportionately does have the fact, or does have the people, the 2 to 10% that you're talking about that do
Yeah,
have some kind of
I agree.
pornographic social dysfunction.
I agree.
And so as a result, I'm trying to speak to them to encourage them, like, yeah, sure, you're in a happy relationship and you jerk off once or twice a week in the privacy of your own bedroom, and then you feel shameful about it for 13 seconds, and then you move on with your day. That's fine. But if you're fucking beating your meat 5 times a day and it precludes you from having a normal relationship, you need to reevaluate your relationship with pornography.
100%. Yes. And I think that that's why, like, I think that these things are important to engage in a more respectful way, or talk about in, using these things in moderation, not just like, hey, this is bad. We need to stigmatize, engaging in gooning and cooming and all of this shit. It's like more so like, hey, engage in it, but also talk about like the right ways to do this
At
stuff.
what point, if you had a kid, a son, let's say you had a son, and your son's 14 years old, and you find out that he's watching pornography on the internet, okay? He's beating his meat and things like that. At what point would you say that, would you counsel your son, hey, you're doing this too much, you need to stop?
Oh, I'm not going to allow him to even have a life where it's possible for him to fucking do that. He's going to have hobbies. He's going to have school. He's going to have friends. He's going to be going to the movies.
He's not
going
gonna have 10 minutes
I'm going to be
He's
taking. No,
eventually
he
going to
didn't
beat
take-
it, G. I'm keeping it
They
real.
said
no,
too
but I'm
much.
saying
in the
but
bathroom, in the
too much.
shower. Like,
Listen,
they'll
if
find
he
fun.
if he snaps one off in the shower, that's his fucking business. Well, that's between him, God, and those four fucking walls. But what I'm saying is, like, the too much component that you asked about is when it starts affecting those other behaviors. Do you have a job? Are you able to maintain a job? Do you have hobbies? Do you have interests besides sex? Are you able to maintain good relationships? Do you have friends? And so those questions, once answered, if the answer is like, yes, I have hobbies, job, friends, family, relationships, I have a girlfriend, et cetera, I don't give a fuck if he wanks in the fucking bathroom. That's not my fucking problem. But he's got to have those other things. If he's playing video games 80 hours a week and he's gooning 5 times a day and I find out about it, then I fucked up as a parent and he fucked up as a human being.
Yeah, as a teenager, if they're doing these things a couple of times a day, it's already too much. As an adult, if you have the time, if you have the lifestyle, like, who gives a fuck? But as a teenager, it could probably cause some negative
Stop jerking off.
like,
Go start a
behavioral
dog
side
rescue.
effects.
Yeah, the line in the
A
sand is
day?
obviously addiction and self-destructive behavior, but beyond that, I don't really see the issue with people engaging in the behaviors that they want to do. If there's an individual whose life is being derailed,
Fucking life. There's other shit that you could be doing with your life.
if
And you should be
an
encouraging them
individual
to
person's
go do
we're
those
meeting in the
things.
middle, if an individual person's life is being derailed by porn, which I think is a rare case scenario, but if an individual's life is being derailed by porn, then of course we jump in and say, hey, this needs to stop. But generally speaking, I don't feel the need to derail pornography consumption or sex positive culture in whatever little bubbles it may exist. I don't see the need to do that.
Here's the difference here. Let's say that we all knew an ugly gooner, okay? Let's say that there's somebody who they stay inside all day, they work their normal job, but they go home, they masturbate 3 times a day, they don't have any friends, they don't have any relationships, etc. They're not harming anybody. What I think, based off of the liberal and libertine perspectives on sex that you guys have presented tonight, you would say they're not hurting anybody. As a result, I'm okay with them continuing their lifestyle. If that person was my friend, if I cared about them, I would say, hey, you're wasting your fucking life. This is your one shot on this fucking planet. There's 10,000 other things you could do besides looking at porn. You should look at porn a little bit because, let's face it, tits are fucking awesome. However, go do something productive. Get a dog, get a friend, get a hobby.
If
some models,
that person
work out,
wanted
do
to,
any
they
of that
would.
shit.
If that
Fuck
person
that.
wanted to,
Fuck
they
that.
would.
No,
There is no
fuck
fuck that.
No.
And I'll tell you
fuck
why
that.
there is no
As-
fuck that.
No.
Because the reality
as iron
is,
sharpens iron, men sharpen men, and you are neglecting your
the truth of the-
responsibility as
the
a
tr-
man.
the truth
Yeah,
of the
hold
matter
on.
is, you can't lead everybody. You can lead people to the water, but you cannot make them drink. If somebody
Sure.
if someone really wanted a social life, if someone really wanted a
You're
sexual
not even
life,
leading them to
they
water,
would
though.
take
You're
the
saying
step-
whatever. Die
they-
in the desert. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
That's
hold
what
on,
you're
Rashad.
doing.
I'm gonna agree with
hold
Connor
on.
here because
I'm the
what-
kind of guy that will.
Let
I'm the
Rashad
kind of guy
finish.
I'm the kind of guy that's for sexual freedom, but I'm also the kind of guy that will give a young man the advice that keep it real. Like, look, you need to go to the gym, you need to have friends, you need to have a job, you need to have a life. However, I become very familiar with the reality that you cannot convince every single one of these dudes to do what they're supposed to do. If someone actually had a desire, if a guy actually had a desire to explore these things, they would, and we need to acknowledge and understand the fact that some people are just going to fucking crash. And for me, allowing people to do as they please is more important than trying to derail their freedom to do so.
You, in my estimation, I like you, I respect you, I enjoy being on panels with you. You are neglecting your role as a man. We talk about the crisis of masculinity. We talk about the crisis of loneliness amongst young men. We talk about how a third of our society is fucking checking out. And what I'm telling you is that men need a mentor. They need a paternal figure. They need somebody who says, I don't have all my shit together, but I'm doing better than most. This is what I'm doing. You should try some of it. That's what they fucking need. So when you say it's not on me to encourage them, I think that you are failing the young men who might be improved by your influence. And I think as a result of this liberal libertarian perspective, there are men who are being hurt by your neutrality.
Okay, I want to
not
get to
just
this
that-
hypothetical because someone paid me some money for it, and I see the other super chats. We'll get to them soon, but I want to get to this one first because I think it's worthwhile. Down the road, a shop sells leather bags. You know that there are bags within the shop that are made of human skin. Not all of them, right? But maybe one or two. You don't know which ones. Do you buy a bag from the store?
If you have other
Sorry.
options for bags, then no. If you have other options,
Okay, so you
and
would
it-
know.
like if the
What
bags are
about other?
cheaper,
Who would buy a bag
you
from
know.
the store? I guess
How cute are the bags?
they're pretty cute.
Wait,
They're,
do
Yeah,
we-
it depends.
And
There's a lot
we're,
of things
it's
that
been
make it depend.
people have been globally aware that this shop may or may not have some.
yeah,
human
you
skin in it.
know that there's
Yeah,
there's
shop
some.
elsewhere.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
shop
if there's
elsewhere.
other
Okay, out of 10, how
options,
cute are they?
if there's other priceable options, like if this is way cheaper than everything else and everything else is way more expensive, it might be worth it to go get a human bag, possibly. There's a lot of, yeah.
So
If all bag sellers in the planet always sneak in 2 human skin bags, then the burden is on the buyer. It's basically like buyer beware to figure out a system to verify which bags are human skin and which bags are not human skin, and only buy the non-human skin bags, assuming if that's where they like want to
Saying
force us
bag?
to go.
You sound
Bag.
Canadian.
I'm Canadian. I am Canadian. Bags.
the
And
the reason
sorry.
this hypothetical has been brought up. So did everyone answer? Like, is there anyone not buying bags anymore, going to use something else? Right? Anyone?
Wait, is the example just like there's a percentage of something that will be necessarily unethical no matter what you do?
Yeah, I think we should assume that
Mm.
it's like globally all bag selling distributors have a sneaky 1 to 2 human bags. I think that's what the super chatter's probably going
I think
for.
so.
Are
I'm
they made
not
out of
hundo,
bags?
but
So yeah. So no, we're all going to consume the bag. This applies to every industry on the planet. Human imperfection and human malevolence.
what if you
is
don't need
everywhere.
bags? You can make your own
no,
bag,
the
right?
technology is mad convenient. No.
Fair enough. The reason I bring this, I'm gonna assume. Okay, they haven't told me. I'm gonna assume the reason this is brought up is because in the porn industry, one of the problems in the porn industry, and I think Pornhub had a huge scandal about this. Some of the porn in there is not of age porn, and a lot of people, right, a lot of times have troubles, right, deciphering what is of age, what is of not, especially when in the porn industry, the younger you look, the more successful you'll do in certain cases. So I guess in that case, is it even ethical to consume porn from the porn industry these days at all?
I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
yes.
child labor making a lot of the stuff, shirts that we buy, and we can't necessarily differentiate one shirt from another lots of times, yet we still all buy shirts. Like, it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah, like the reality is that you should vote with your dollar. So if like you find out that there are like underage people, you should get really upset, which is what happened to Pornhub, is that a lot of people got upset. And if a producer, if a private company comes out that is like guaranteed no children, you should vote your dollars there, and your dollars includes your views because that contributes money to the company instead of at the company that seems to have lackadaisical policy when it comes to human trafficking. That's what capitalism is for. You vote with your dollar. Based capitalism.
Yes.
W,
Okay. And
W for capitalism again.
No, by the way, this actually segues all the way back to the lolly conversation, because some of the like morality was in consequentialism, where if there isn't a negative consequence for the consumer or for like the neutral existence of the product, then where's the harm? For me, it's the fact that you're incentivizing the harm by consuming it, and you're also fucking yourself up. So if you see underage pornography or whatever, and then a ethical company comes out and says, we are going to ban this content, and you go out of your way to go consume the content somewhere else, you're contributing to the problem through your demand. So consequentialism is not just applied in this like neutral way in which your behavior does not impact the world.
Right, and I think that kind of like goes back to the conversation that you guys were just having, where somebody who is just staying inside all day, they just go to work and then go home. This sort of behavior, and then just goon all day. This sort of behavior is stigmatized pretty heavily, to where those sorts of people, even if they don't have a life mentor, this person's going to feel a lot of embarrassment and self shame, and they're going to likely
In this
try to
space?
change their behavior.
You think it's you
Sorry?
I
think
was
it's
about to say,
being
in this space, they
stigmatized
might
in this
be
space?
Yes, I
perfectly
think
accepted.
yes, I think the people who don't have lives, I think we talk a lot about the fact that like lots of men need more friends, they need more people in their lives that they're hanging out with, they need more social activities. I think that everybody, not so erudite, I know, talks about this a lot. I talk about this a lot. Destiny does, like that people need better lives outside of the internet and that they need to be engaging with people more. I think that this is talked about pretty commonly for sure.
I agree with you, but I also think that within the subcultures of this place, you can find other people who do live that kind of A to B. All my relationships are online. All my relationships are long distance life, because this is the one place that they can find socialization. And especially if they're smart. Like, dude, if you're ugly and smart and antisocial, these spaces are fucking perfect for you.
Right.
Because not only, not only do you get to engage with other people online, but you also get to engage in higher level ideas that make you feel more important. So I mean that, that I have a wife and kids and shit, but that's part of the reason why I'm here, is because I meet smart motherfuckers in this space all the time. It's a cool place to be.
But what if this experience is pulling away from their attempts to socialize more and interact more? Do we curtail? Do we encourage
Yes.
the break off from this? Do we encourage maybe
Not
even
break
the
off.
deletion
You
or
keep-
getting rid of this?
You
In
keep
extreme
going
cases,
to
yes.
you keep going to breaking off, but I don't think that we're totally eliminating porn, and I don't think we're eliminating digital relationships for people who are lonely.
Is it okay?
And as a matter
So
of fact, I wouldn't want to. I would
you're not
want them
arguing
to
for that.
hybridize. I would want them to hybridize their life. They take the best parts of digital culture, the best parts of pornography, they retain that, but then they take the energy that they would spend in these spaces unhealthily, and they dedicate that to more difficult pursuits. And we as a community encourage that.
I'm not going to argue with that. But I do believe that if someone decides, hey, look, honestly, that fucking, and I think we need to come to terms with the fact that these people do fucking exist. There are some people who just don't fucking want to adventure. They don't want to explore. They don't want to test themselves. They don't want to do that. What then? Because I'm saying, hey, look, there's going to be people out there like that.
Life. That is a less healthy life. It would be better if they did those things.
It would be better, and I'm not against encouraging that. I'm not against
things
encouraging that. But what I am saying is, if there's someone who is overindulging or someone who is allowing it to derail their life, is the solution to then take pornography as a whole for everyone, even the people who are properly balancing it, and detonate it?
Let me ask you this, Rashad.
Is no one on the panel arguing that? I want
Hold
to
on,
make sure.
Rashad. Hold on.
I said
Stop. Let me ask you, Rashad.
I think
Because I'm
Azzy
very
is the only one.
curious. I'm very curious, Rashad. So you become a famous YouTuber, and you have a great, thriving community, and you find out that there are people in your community who are doing that, who are using your space as a substitute for bettering themselves. They are hurting themselves by staying in. They're again very, very unhealthy, right? Do you ban those people from your space? Or do you let them continue to harm themselves in your space?
I would encourage them and leave it at that.
So you wouldn't ban them, even though you know 100% that they are hurting themselves by coming in every day. And I'm not just talking a little. Like, that their lives have been destroyed. They're giving you all their money. They are donating all their income to you. Their kids, starving. Their wife left them.
Okay,
all their money is going towards you.
I draw the line there.
I wish I had chatters.
I will draw the line there. If you're sending me money and your kids are starving,
So you
and
cut them off?
You've got to go. I will ban you. However,
They won't ban you though. You'd still let them send you money?
I will ban them. I will in a scenario such
them.
as that, where they're literally like their life is just completely falling apart in every financial you got to go. However, if this person is like, I wouldn't even mind talking to someone if they're like, hey, Rashad, like, I'm crashing out, like, I'm in your community every single day and I'm fucking my life up. I would talk to that person, but I'm not gonna ban you unless I see something like really, really extreme, because I just don't believe in derailing people's freedom to do as they please. But yeah, if they're like donating me like any amount of money, it could be fucking 40 cents. you got to go if you're bordering on that, if you're getting into that kind of activity. And maybe I'm being like really like, I don't know, maybe my argument is like flimsy, but that's where I would draw the
Yeah,
line.
because you're trying so hard to try to protect people's freedoms. But just a second ago, you were asking us, wouldn't we be willing to delete or end their access to like Discord or pornography? So like, which one is it? If they're in your community, they're objectifying you, they're objectifying the conversations they have, they're sitting for hours watching your content instead of getting something actively done, instead of like
Wait, he's
going out.
consistent here.
The
He would say,
difference is
let
this
them
is an
watch the
individual.
porn, let them watch him. That's his position is decently consistent. To be honest, you could make a decently strong argument for what he's saying, because the issue is that, say you ban that person from your Discord, assuming as well that you're not asking that person for money, you're not encouraging their like obsessive behavior, and you're regularly being like, hey man, I don't think that this is healthy for you. Say you ban this person, the idea that that actually will help that individual is decently unlikely. That means that your moral principle is mostly on, I don't want to facilitate, versus I don't want to actually help this person.
It
Right?
needs
So like
be.
there's an argument.
Yeah.
I just think a lot of people are trying to paint Rashad's answer as like, see, you're just willing to hurt people. And it's like, that's not really the
No,
case.
that's
The
not.
issue is that like making these decisions for other people isn't obvious that you're going to help.
Sure, it needs be that offense must come, but woe be unto him through whom the offense cometh. Right? Like, I understand that Rashad's position is consistent. I just think it's wrong because, again, we can understand that they'll just go somewhere else and do something else, and it won't fix the problem. And the offense has to come, right? But I don't have to be a part of it. I don't have to participate in it. I don't have to contribute to it. And I think that I think when it comes to pornography and when it comes to Coomer culture in your communities, in this communities, right?
Yeah. I think both of you guys have pretty reasonable moral positions. Is all I'm trying to. I just don't want to paint Rashad as like being bad. I think what you're deciding to do, Wick, and like I'm going to take a principled stance, is also fine and moral. But I'm just saying I don't think Rashad is immoral necessarily for his decision, because he's not actively encouraging a person to do more self harm. He's in fact saying, I'm going to discourage them. I'm just not going to take away their freedom. But it's like
Okay.
it's hard to know who's right there.
With the $20.
Yeah, but it's not about whether or not you're. It's about the behaviors, right? It's about the behaviors that are being adopted, that are being facilitated, and that are being encouraged so that future generations pick up those, and then they don't have any type of stockgate or any type of discipline to deal with that. We're talking about people who want to like. There's a lot of people who want to stop doing something, but their brain is so like fried, or their brain is so addicted to doing something that they can't get up. Right? It's like smoking
I agree.
cigarettes or drinking alcohol,
Sure.
right? Or even
I don't think banning them
non-drug
from like a Discord server is going to stop it. I don't even think banning porn is going to stop those individuals. We know for example, with addiction, if you ban the substance that they're addicted to, the truly addicted individuals will just lead a criminalized life in order to achieve their substances of desire.
So then the
That's
question
that's the reality of it, right?
so then the
If you're talking
question
about porn addicts, they're just gonna jack off in the forest to their illegal porn that they printed off from 30 years ago after the great porn prohibition.
So then the question is, should you reduce the access
No,
so that these behaviors don't become more prevalent?
no, not
I mean, you
necessarily.
could. I mean, how? Because at
Hold
that
up.
point, how much are you willing to do? How much are you willing to like restrict that? Because you can't just draw the line.
I guess what do you mean by
porn.
restriction? Maybe.
You gotta
I
go.
guess,
You gotta go.
what do you mean by
wide.
restrict access?
What do I mean
Like,
by
do you mean, so like, for example, if you said that porn sites were required to verify that the user was over 18 and they had more strict policies on that, I'd actually be super for that, because I'm really not sure how a developing brain who's forming their schemas right now react to any sort of stimulus, right? In general. So I think it's better to leave the kids out of it. If you said, for example, just making life harder for sex workers so that it's harder to do sex work, I would say no, their life is solidly hard enough for their sex work. So it really depends on what you mean by reduce access. Sorry, I should have clarified before I said no.
Okay, so we socially discourage it. We have our legal protections up, prevent those who are underage or those who are developing minds from accessing it. We have, like you said, we don't push it. So now we, like you said, you brought up before, Kayla, how it's such like a economic benefit that now it comes off as, because we're making money from it, now we're going to look to protect it because it's helping us stimulate the economy, it's help stimulate society in certain ways, right?
Not that's not my argument. I said that's one of the. You said what are the pros of porn? And I said, well, one of the pros of porn is
Okay,
it's
yeah.
the
So
GDP, like obviously.
something that was bad has now, or at least we deemed it socially immoral at one point, is now has become like a economic boon, right? So now you don't see there's a confliction
But it's
between
not
those two
socially
things?
immoral anymore, though.
Right. I would argue that if the only reason that you
Well, that's
legalize
the
something
point.
is
If
because it's
we
good for
no
money, that
longer
might be a problem, right? This is why the slavery argument fell apart because obviously, while slavery is probably also pretty damn good for the GDP, I think it's really evil and immoral, and I'm not willing to take the GDP bit out of it.
And
You
was
asked for
also
blanket
socially moral at
porn
one point.
benefits. Yeah, and it also was socially like normal at one point, and I think it's still bad, right?
no, it wasn't.
Brave, stunning stance,
I
anti-slavery.
don't think it was.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't think it was socially moral. It was just something. It was just something. It was socially immoral if you were to like. There were stipulations to it. Like if you enslaved your brother, right, you would be shamed, right? If you enslaved your kids,
Sure,
you would be
the
shamed.
slavery
If
as
you
a
were to enslave
generality was
somebody who was
socially
attacking you,
normalized
it was like
all over
it
the
was like
world.
I think it's a distraction to get into the particularities of slavery. I don't think
well,
this is the part of
that's
the.
bringing that into particular.
I understand. I know. I get it. It's partially my
But
fault for
porn is
bringing
just
it up
so
earlier.
consensual in
Okay.
nature, so it's like
I get
what
it.
do you like?
I think
I'm not
it's
talking. I'm talking about
because
Azzy.
now we're talking about this ideal world where all these disciplined, mature individuals are only using it like once a week or whenever they have some type
That's
of
not
urge.
what we're
Yeah, but
talking
you're talking about a
That's
fantasy world in
nobody's
which
talking
everyone
about
is
that.
crashing out because of porn. You're
I'm
talking
not
about
talking
an
about a
equally
fantasy
fantastical
world.
world.
I'm not talking
You
about
I was
a
gonna
are.
say I don't know if
The
this
world
is
is not
more and
crashing
more.
out because of porn.
Do
You're
you think?
making
Hold
up
on.
like a
What
alternate
do you
reality.
mean by that?
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
at
We
all?
mean
What do you mean
we
the world is not
mean
crashing out?
Are you
to
are
stan Rashad, we're meaning that back when Connor's giant quads took massive leaps, because I want to say that again, Wesley. You
Mhm.
guys are making it seem like porn is the nascence of social decay, where if it's anything, it might be a symptom of social decay, but the the factors that are causing this are probably multifaceted, and it's probably not porn, just to be clear.
Can
I'm sorry,
I
is that correct,
drive-
Rashad? Would you agree with that?
Like
Can I-
you brought
can I
up
I
just-
would
the-
I have a-
completely
I
agree
have
with
a
that. I'm
coherent-
arguing.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm still
arguing-
manning us correctly.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not
I have a
arguing
coherent
here.
worldview.
Like Connor
I have-
didn't land on
I
Saturn.
would
He
rank
landed on the
porn
moon.
way. I would rank way
I
down.
have
on the
a
list of things
coherent
derailing
worldview that I would
society.
like to articulate to you. That way, you don't think that it's such a stretch.
It's
Okay.
not. He landed on the
So-
moon. They're talking
Okay.
like he
Okay.
landed on
After you
Pluto
do
and
that,
he's not
after
on
you
the
do
planet
your,
anymore.
after you do that, I'm gonna read super chats, and then we're gonna begin to go to closing statements. Do you guys want to stick around for some call-ins? I know we got some callers that are ready to come in. Is that cool for everyone?
Yeah,
Okay.
juicy.
Yeah, I'm
Sure.
I'll stay for like an extra 15.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is what's happened. We've always had prostitution in a way, but we didn't have a good way to prevent STDs, and as a result, people didn't necessarily participate in it all the time. We did have pretty wild sex in the pagan days. However, there was all these negative externalities like disease and death in childbirth and kids and infanticide and all that kind of shit. So that lasted up to about 150 years ago. 150 years ago, we were able to mass produce birth control and we started doing prophylactics and all that bullshit. And then that really took off in the 1950s and 60s, where we had like wide scale access to condoms and birth control. And as a result, you see a correlated, I'm not saying it's all caused, I'm saying we see a correlated precipitous drop in birth rates. From the 1850s to the modern day, we basically go from like 4 to 10, depending on what part of the world you're in, down to less than 2. And that's where modern developed societies are. What I would say is that since you can say that all the way up until the 1950s and 60s, and you're like, well, wide-scale pornography was not available up until then. Point taken. However, in the 1990s, through the 2000s, through the 2010s, we now have access to wild-scale pornography. So not only do we have prophylactics, not only do we have condoms, not only do we have birth control, but now we have unimaginable access to all of the craziest kinds of sex you could ever possibly imagine. You can see T-girls, fat people, BBC, orgies, threesomes, guy threesomes, girl threesomes. You can see whatever the fuck you want, and it's all at the click of your access. So, of your access point. So what we're saying is there are tens of thousands of people likely in Twitch and YouTube politics alone. There are hundreds of thousands of people within the United States, if not millions of people within the United States, whose now sole social interactions are video games, pornography, and this is correlating with a precipitously unhealthy culture that cannot replicate itself. And so as a result, we don't want to encourage this behavior. We want to discourage this behavior.
I got a counterpoint for you, G. No pun intended.
Very
You know,
briefly, but then I gotta make my money and read my super chats, and you're not gonna get in that
but
way. Okay.
right, but we have birth control, condoms, drugs that cure and curtail STIs. We have so many things that like contributing to the curtailing of society's population growth. Also, women's freedom to choose. Women's freedom to choose who they want to be with is definitely getting in the way of population growth. The fact that so many young men are unable to reproduce is also a reason why we're not having an increase in population. How much do you want to discourage here? Do you want to discourage, like, how far are you willing to take that? Because we can extrapolate society's lack of population growth to a lot of problems outside of just the consummation of pornography.
I would like to answer this before you make your money.
No, hold on. Let me ask, and then you can answer.
No.
I
I'm
got
drawing a
two
line in the sand here, gang. We're gonna make my goddamn money.
I do want to address
And
it
then we're
before
gonna
the
have
end of the
closing
night.
statements, and you can address it there. And then we're gonna do call-ins. That's the order we're gonna go in because I gotta make some money, and I don't want this to last till 11 o'clock tonight. So we're gonna push, gang. Okay, let's get to this. $5 from Origin of Logos. All these bozos are lost. I have the correct stance and verdict. Read what I posted in Discord. No, you can call in if you want to do that. $5 from Zephyr Hash. Hi, Wick. Thanks for hosting this NSE versus Connor debate. Can I also be an audience member in the background, or is the limit only 4 members? Thank you for the $5. $5 more from Zephyr Hash. I know the audience members are allowed some time to speak, but it still focuses on NSE versus Connor. Very nice balance. Thank you for the $5. They're just the loudest, okay? I'm going to let you know. That's good, though. We like different levels of energy. $5 from the Trib one to say counterpoints is just saying get rid of fun. Addiction is bad no matter what it is. Society has an over-sexualization problem well before a porn problem. Perhaps they're linked. We'll see. $10 from Origin of Logos. Why is everyone whining and bitching like spoiled 7-year-olds? LOL, you better have call-ins at the end of this because I got to slap everyone around logically in this one. Okay. Thanks for the $10. $5 more from the Trib one to say what it brings to society is similar to what roller coasters do. We don't need roller coasters. We don't need fun in order for society to be effective. Thank you for the $5. Lawson Harrison for $10. Get these whippersnappers, Wick. Kids have no imagination these days. And I already read it, Fairy Queen's $20 donation. So thanks again. Okay. Thank you all for being here. It's been a robust discussion. I know that we could go on all night. Okay? We could. But let's get to some closing statements, and then we will get to if you want in on this discussion, we'll be bringing people briefly in, one at a time. Be concise when you get in here. Don't ramble. Please have something to say or something to ask the panelists directly. That would be great. Okay, with that, we're going to go to closing statements, and we're going to start with counterpoints, and we're going to work our way, and we're going to let Not So Aerody have the last word. So counterpoints, go ahead, give us what you got.
Sure. So I will stay for questions and answers, but just in case you're looking for where I'm at, type in Counterpoints 40K into YouTube. You'll find the channel, and basically I do science fiction breakdowns, but Twitch and YouTube politics is still my passion, so I like coming on here and debating, so thank you for hosting us, Wick. So before we ended, Mr. Crenshaw asked me, how much do you curtail freedom? I don't. I like the liberal republic. I like the American system. I think that it is the right balance between responsibility and liberty. However, I do reserve the right in order to criticize it in public. If I see middle-aged, 30 and 20-year-old adults encouraging young people to be degenerate, orgiastic Coomers, I'm going to yell at them in public, and I'm going to encourage people around me to do it because, frankly, the orgiastic Coomers have been running the society for long enough of a time, and I feel like we're paying social consequences as a result. Not only that, if I become wildly financially successful, let's say my Warhammer YouTube channel takes off and I'm literally like a multimillionaire, I do plan on creating like a hybridized online real world community where we basically get a bunch of people together who are actively trying to build better lives, build families, build relationships, build friendships, build hobbies, build all that kind of stuff that actively discourages people from becoming cosmic nihilist doomer, Coomer, fucking losers. And the reason why I don't like the neutral perspective that you and Erudite seem to have is I think that there are souls that are spinning down in the fucking drain of spiritual decay in our society, and you are saying it is not my job to grab them on their way down. And I'm saying it is your fucking job. It's your job to tell them to start swimming.
Okay, thank you for being here. Check him out. Counterpoints is always welcome to my panels. It's always great time, even when I disagree with him. I think he's been based tonight, but thank you for being here. Next up, Azzy, please.
I feel like there is a giant academic smokescreen and a lot of like whataboutisms. Maybe not as much as usual, right? We didn't really get into the effects on what it has on society. We just talked about whether or not um, we can still function while pornography still goes on, because it has always been around, right? But like, to Counterpoint's point, the the die has been cast and society has changed within the century, right? Century and a half. So we don't know what's going to happen within, to the future. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 100 years. uh we can only predict, right? So, and I don't predict the best, right? Unless we create a place where people are more mature, more equipped to deal with these tools. Like, if we're going to call porn a tool, right? If we're going to make, in fact, yeah, I don't foresee, like, when I look at people and the way they use it and the way it's a lot of people who are individualistic. They're looking out for themselves, right? They're not trying to better other people's lives. There's just a lot of preaching going, right, and telling people to be better. Leave the house, do better, think better, go to the gym, but nobody's doing the step by step going out into the community. And then meanwhile, these men are being entrapped, right? Or these young boys. I teach young boys, right? And I'm seeing them getting locked up into the cog. And then there's a bunch of other individuals saying, "Well, I'm a cog as well, so there's nothing I can do. They just need to take care of themselves," right? So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And things are not going for the things are not going towards the better, right? Unless something severely, like a miracle happens. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
My name is Aziom. Also, you can call me Calm Kingdom, King Priest Authority from the line of Melchizedek. Um, uh, I'll leave with a question: which is worse, right? Men not being chosen by women, or men being disabled where they don't even enter into the marketplace?
Thank you for being here. Check him out. Aziom, Calm Kingdom, a Melchizedek priesthood holder, apparently. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate you. Next up, first time guest on my panel. Hopefully not the last time, despite how chaotic this was. Maya Luna, please.
Yeah, I thought this was gonna be more of a conversation about porn culture, and its effects on society at large. Instead, it was more of like, is porn bad? No, yes, that's cool. Everyone knows porn is whatever. Who cares? Um, to the point, to the topic of porn culture, I think it is a part of a larger problem. I think one of the largest, like the big dichotomy in society, especially Western society right now, is ease versus responsibility, right? It is easy to get trapped into broad narratives around society. It is easy to, kind of ironic, um, it is easy to just watch porn. It's easy to just scroll on your phone. It's easy to not read the news and just get mad at whatever you see. Um, and people just embrace that. We have fallen away from responsibility. People are getting married later. People are not going out as much. People are not taking it upon themselves to be responsible over their own lives. And porn is a part of that problem. Porn is a symptom of the problem, but it also creates the problem to begin with. It's a really weird kind of self-creating loop. Outside of that, my name is Maya Luna. Find me on Twitter at Real Maya Luna. If you're in the DMV area, actually on Saturday, we are holding a canvas for Joe Vogel. He would be the second ever Gen Zer in Congress. He's 26 years old. He's been a hero in the Maryland area for the opium crisis, for mental health, for gun rights. His big thing has been protecting schools. You want to make sure that smart young people get into office and not just a bunch of wackos, come support. More
Gang.
detail, check the Twitter for that.
Yeah, gang, check her out. she's great. Thanks for being here. And yeah, if you're in the area and you want to actually do some electoral work, hit her up. And that's something that you could actually change lives. So that'd be great. Next up, Tom, please.
Yeah, I think for the most part, we all seem to mostly agree. The rhetoric seems to be mostly faced or directed towards people in this community, where I agree that lots of people in this community are more likely to be lonely and more likely to engage in these types of behaviors. And so these things probably should be talked about pretty regularly. But I don't think that over sexualization is a problem in this community. I don't think it's something that chases women off. I don't think that it's something that is causing problems for people joining. I think that prosexuality and sex positivity are things that we should be talking about, especially when we talk a lot about relationships and we engage in red pill arguments and what it is that people find attractive and what it is that is beneficial for healthy relationships. And so I think that these sorts of conversations and engaging in this type of media is generally beneficial.
Okay. Where can people find you?
Tom Foolery Show, youtube.com/Tom Foolery Show.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Gang, Tom was a last-minute replacement, so he came in unprepared, but I think he killed it tonight. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Next up, Rashad Crenshaw, please.
To address Connor, as a young man who I would proudly say that my life was saved by red pill content, I completely understand your argument of young men seeing a fallen brother, so to speak, and prioritizing picking them up. However, as someone who's seen a boatload of red pill content and has seen thousands of young men return over and over and over to watch the same thing over and over again and to donate money to insult women, I've become increasingly aware that you can't save more than half of these guys. You cannot save them. You can throw it at them over and over and over again, and they will not listen. What I won't do in any way, shape, or form to address Azzy is curtail or get in the way of their right to consume whatever content they so please, even if it gets in the way of them bettering their lives in any way, shape, or form. I think that we need to understand that some people are going to simply do as they please as long as it's not hurting people. We need to accept the fact that they will do as they please and allow them to do as they please. I believe the line in the sand is freedom. We can encourage, and I completely encourage those who want to encourage, but the line I draw is at people's right to do as they please. So that's my closing statement.
Where can people find you?
You can find me at Rashad Crenshaw on YouTube.
Gang, check him out. He's great. I really enjoy every time he's on my show. So, gang, give him a follow, give him a sub. He's a great guy. Next up, last but certainly not least, Not So Aerody. Go ahead.
I always love a good panel where we get the conservatives to be advocating for social safety nets. Okay, based as a liberal, it makes me happy to hear that. So I think, as he said, we didn't get to what effect it has on society. I think almost every single one of Connor's monologues did exactly that. We talked about it. We're just somewhat disagreeing about the level of effect that it's going to have. Right. The big question is pornography use a predictor of the downfall of society or a symptom or unrelated? What's the correlation there, right? Because just because it's correlating, if it's not actually contributing to the problem, which is the downfall of society, we shouldn't really be fixating on that thing, right? I think probably my main takeaway on porn is you should allow people to have access to it. I don't really care. And yeah, I'm not quite as love freedom of choice as Rashad is. I'm very much I want to have derails. I want to continue to encourage men to curb their pornography use. If it's becoming problematic for them, I want them to touch grass. Obviously, that's all I do is tell men to go boulder and climb. Okay. That's all I ever want them to do. So obviously I'm pro giving men off ramps for their loneliness, of course. I just don't think it's going to be done by further stigmatizing sex work, which is mostly just going to fuck over the sex workers. There's no point to that.
Okay, and with that, what a great panel. What a great show. We are going to get to, and people can find her at Not So Aerody on all platforms. She's great. But we're going to get to some call-ins. Again, concise, be brief, get to your point. I love the monologues from Connor, right? But not so much from the caller-inners. We'll see how it goes. Gang, and I'll try to get you in mostly the order you came in. We'll see what we can do. Okay. What else do I got coming up on my end? Tomorrow, the next show we have tomorrow is at 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have a debate on Israel and Palestine between Kevin Logan and Quibbles Over Coffee. Tune in for that. Okay, with that, let's bring on our first guest. You're live. You're live. Hello. Origin. Now's your
Here
time.
we are.
Okay, here we are. Get to it.
Here we are.
This is the issue that hasn't been addressed necessarily. The whole problem that we have with, men of the upcoming generations being more lonely, not going out and interacting more. A lot of it has to do, it's a comorbid problem, and it has a lot to do with the ubiquitous nature of how sex and how it's displayed, and how even normal people go on Instagram, Twitter, OnlyFans to just show their tits. They're not fully nude, of course, but they're going to shake their tits. It's the Instagram models. They make their entire career basically being scantily clad and shaking their ass or jiggling their tits. And a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, this is all I need for the romantic interest or for something to jerk off to. And it's so ubiquitous in society. It has been for the past decade, that it's hard to distinguish if anyone can come out and say what is a little bit too risque, or if it's just part of the norm. And if people want to come in and say maybe people shouldn't be doing that for their careers, or that's pretty much petty or pointless, or it's not going to have any realistic, healthy outcome for men or even women to how they want to express themselves sexually, then you're going to be scrutinized. And this is something that needs to be addressed in a very healthy, rational manner. But it's more culturally and societally ignored for the most part, because we can't really address it unless we're going to address it to the fundament of it, because it reaches every aspect of our culture.
Do you accept the fact that this is probably just going to always happen with social media? There's always going to be some chick that just loves to show off her body. She's probably got a fat ass, titties, and she wants to make money, and she probably doesn't mind being on the internet. Do you acknowledge that this is probably just gonna happen no matter what, unless you ban it?
Yeah, there's always going to be some level of it, but with the problem with it being on places like I just mentioned, Instagram or Twitter, these are social apps. These are social apps that anybody can use. It doesn't have to have an age restriction. It doesn't have to be. It's not like Pornhub.
Okay.
Or like how you age restrict the picture or the video.
I have a criticism of conservatives based off of what you just said. You're
Can we
right.
clarify his actual position? I just want to make sure that I'm steel manning Origin's position, because
women are ubiquitously being whores on all platforms. Okay.
And
if you criticize them at all, then you will be called a stick in the mud. So
I feel like he's saying that it's bad, though. He's not just saying if you criticize them.
Well.
Are you saying when women shake their
saying-
titties, the ubiquitous of sexuality is bad for society? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is it's gotten to a point where it's so ubiquitous in any social media app, or it's pretty much in every social sphere, that it's pretty much difficult to even
We get that.
have a criticism.
It's ubiquitous. It's ubiquitous. What's the problem? What's your concern?
Yeah, is that
The
bad?
problem is that it's
Too
so
many-
ubiquitous, and that it can be over the most simplistic and even subtle
Is it
ways.
bad?
Is the
Is it
ubiquitous
bad?
nature of it bad in and of itself? Is the ubiquitous nature bad in and of itself?
Yeah, because it makes it harder to make distinctions between what is something that should be, it makes it harder for people to make a distinction what is permissible to do on a app
So do you
versus
feel
what
like
we
people
probably
are?
shouldn't do.
So do you feel like people are more cool with chicks twerking at Chuck E. Cheese because of Instagram models? Do you feel like that's I'm not trying to be a dickhead. I'm saying is that where you think things are gonna go?
Yeah, you got to call
we
them
see
both
people
whores.
do it sometimes.
Okay,
Do you think society is becoming more accepting?
Well, I want to hear the
Like,
horror
your
point
argument?
from Counterpoints.
No.
Counterpoints.
Okay,
Something about
yeah.
horse?
So
Go
here's
ahead.
the thing:
I'm
when you are
curious.
sex negative, in public spaces, everybody's going to hate you. The liberals and the
Public
libertarians.
spaces?
Yeah, if you say out loud, I don't like how much you're fucking flashing your titties on fucking social media, people are going to criticize you. But
Okay.
what you have to
And
realize
if you flash your
is
titties on social media, people are going to criticize you.
fantastic. That's great. So liberals
Okay.
and libertarians. Okay, I'm trying to address him, not
And?
you, Erudite. I'm trying to address him, not you.
Look, I still meant his position. Okay, you can talk to me.
Okay, woman,
Just
stop it.
kidding.
I know I'm fucking around as well. All right. Anyways,
Pretty
Origin.
girl syndrome.
The The conservatives talk about how they're big balls, they eat red meat, they shoot guns, they drive trucks, they like their best friend's a bald eagle, they fucking, they killed a baby seal with their bare hands the other day just because they could, et cetera, et cetera. You cannot, if you are that fucking hardcore, you cannot be scared of a little bit of criticism online. So if you see people engaging in bad behavior and you think that it is your moral duty to criticize them, then you need to do that even though you will get public backlash. That's the answer to my answer to your statement is don't be a pussy about it. Jesus hates a pussy.
Oh, fair enough. Anyone else want to have a point on this before we get to the next caller? Anyone else?
I wanted to ask you,
Tom,
Wick, because
go
I
ahead.
did ask you earlier, because you were talking about the fact that like men objectifying women in this space seems to be something that women report being pushing them out, but
Yes.
also like Instagram models and OnlyFans girls coming into this space and promoting their stuff on these channels. Do you make this as like a male issue that men are objectifying women?
No,
and this
women
is
do
the
it too.
problem?
Women
Is
do
the
it to
problem not
themselves.
also women objectifying women?
No, it is. I think that again, the when you see everyone in this space, and I've made this argument before on different panels and things, when you see every woman in this space, in order to get or you may not even know why they're getting noticed, but they all seem to have something in common, and most of them have risque pictures of themselves online, are very overtly sexual. If you are a woman and you are not that, you think two things. You think either A, I need to do that to succeed, or oh, I don't want to do that, so I'm just not going to be in this space anymore. And they could be wrong. It could be a false perception that they have, but that is a large perception that many women have in this space, that if they want to succeed, they're going to have to shake their titties, as Origin would put it.
Yeah, I think if men are doing it that like in chat or like pushing those expectations onto women, then
No,
that's a
women
problem.
do
But if
it
they
too,
just
right?
perceive that just because other women are like showing off their bodies, that's just like a insecurity problem.
Okay.
Look,
Anything
I
else
think
from
that
Origin,
women
though?
should have a right to jiggle their titties as much as they like, and I think every Chad shy
Would
boy
you
should
let
have
your
a
daughter
right
do
to
it?
watch them if he wants to.
Would you let your
No.
Yeah,
daughter?
Jiggling her
actually,
titties?
if you have a child, are you gonna carry that same attitude?
Possibly, yeah.
Interesting.
If you have hold up. Now I'm gonna
That's my
fucking
level,
drill down on that.
Final
If you
thoughts.
have a daughter, you are gonna say it is your right as a woman in Western society to jiggle your titties as much as you want on social media, and that is what you're gonna
Probably.
teach her.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
also probably going to be
think
clear
that
about
is
the
bad.
consequences of it.
I think that is a bad thing.
That's brain rot. That's literally what I was talking about. That's
Wait,
the
no, it's
societal
not brain rot at all,
implications that I feel
because
like
It's
need
not
here's the
brain
problem,
rot to
right?
encourage your
No,
child to be overtly
hold on,
sexual
I can explain
in
it.
public.
You're not
Okay,
encouraging
now
her
you've
to
hold
do
on. You've just made a completely different position. This is why these questions are really silly
No,
and
I
bad
didn't.
faith. Yes, you did. You said that I would
And they're not
encourage
bad
my
faith.
child to shake my titty. Respecting
You
somebody's
said it's
ability,
morally neutral. Do whatever the fuck you want.
respecting
titties as
somebody's
much as you want.
ability to make a choice is not the same thing as encouraging it at all. That's insane. It's obviously not the case.
You
And
asked her
I
if she would
also
say that's her right, and that's what she
Stating
said. Yes,
no
I would say
preference.
that's her right, but I would also tell her that there's consequences to it. That's
Yes.
what Kyle said.
So a massive criticism that I have of lots of OnlyFans girls, which is aligned with Maya, is the romanticization of sex work that's occurred. I think it's really unhealthy for young women that we act like it's just awesome and that there's no consequences for it when there obviously fucking is. We didn't really get to go into that today because we're mostly focused on men. But yeah, absolutely, if I have a kid, the reality is I hope that she doesn't make that choice, because I would hope that she chooses something else that isn't just quick cash. However, if she does make that choice and she's over 18, the reality is that I will have to respect her choice, and I will also probably caution her on the certain costs that it will have to her as an individual.
So a
Yes.
direct question for you,
Yeah,
not Sir
that's
Aerody,
a
before we move on
criminally
this, before we
fucking
move on
insane
to this,
statement from a parental perspective.
before we move on from this, a direct question. Your daughter is 17 years old. She's about to turn 18. Okay, and she says to you, "I want to start an OnlyFans. Will you put me in touch with some people, right, to help me do that? Would you do that?
Put her in touch,
Put her in
to
touch
do
with like a
OnlyFans?
producer, someone who will get them equipment.
gonna help
to,
her do it?
Like,
Probably not.
okay,
No,
so no,
probably not.
that's the line you would draw.
So
Interesting.
you're gonna
Okay.
tell her do whatever
Wait,
you want.
how is that interesting at
No,
all?
it's good. It's
absolutely
good.
aligned
That's a
with
good
every
thing.
position that I've had. Okay, just to be clear, This has been my position the whole time. When you use bad faith questioning of, would you respect your daughter's choice to do this? The answer fundamentally, if she's an adult, is yes. And I would discourage her choice, right? Obviously, if you have a different choice as a parent, that's fine. But the reality is that I don't think it's healthy to have an 18-year-old child to say that I would disrespect. Remember, it's not encourage. It's not any of these things. It's disrespect her choice. What the fuck does that even look like? Of course, I'm not going to shame my child if they choose to do sex work.
Yeah, no,
You say
it's
don't do
very
that,
easy to
you
say
fucking hoe
that
bag.
you're
Get your
you're
ass
gonna
to church.
respect the choice.
Yeah,
but
I'm not going to say, don't do
the
that, you stupid
realization-
hoe bag, to my child. Yeah, not going to do that.
No, you don't have to
Okay,
say that.
that's
Just say,
better than
That's
her
what he just
jamming
said.
boys into her fucking pussy at 18 years old for the whole world to see. I would rather insult my child over have them make
You're making it seem like these are the only two options. Erudite, would you insult your child or have her shove dildos into
Do you think
herself?
my
You see
insult was
no
maybe
other
a little bit
off-ramp?
hyperbolic to be comedic while at the same time making a serious point that it actually is better to be insulting to your child when they're making a bad decision over letting them make a horrific decision?
Okay, the issue that I would argue here is that obviously if it's just this, if I just insult my kid once, would it stop her from doing sex work? Sure, I guess I'll
No, you
insult my kid
probably failed
once.
as a parent if she's considering OnlyFans by the time they
Exactly.
But yeah, but you know
Probably,
what?
yeah.
It's probably stemming from your liberal libertine fucking perspective on sex,
No,
where you say
And it also
it's
stems
actually
from
neutral
probably
if you
not.
jam
No,
toys
it's
in your fucking
probably
pussy
not.
at 18.
It
No,
also
it's probably
stems
not
from a
because I've
naive
outlined my position
perspective.
regularly, which is that there are certain ramifications of sex work that should also be talked about, but that I do want it to be legalized and to be able to be talked about. None of this is devoiding at all from my position.
I feel
Yeah,
like it's
Kyler
very
as a
naive.
would be
baseline
telling my
argued
child
that
it's bad and
OnlyFans
very
was
naive.
predatory.
That's
Like,
my
I find
position.
it's very naive to believe that in the moment you're going to stay as emotionally stable and consistent when speaking to somebody who has come from your body, or maybe is an adoptee. It doesn't matter. When you're speaking to
Sure.
somebody who is family,
It's possible
you're
that when I
going to
breed and
not-
have children, I
you're
will change
not
my
going
position.
you're not going to. Well, then there.
Should adopt
If you're
one.
gonna,
Wait,
this-
hold
this
on.
is-
This is an
There's
entirely
no need to
hypothetical.
backtrack
As it's,
now. No, stay consistent.
I'm not.
As a matter
I'm
of fact,
no.
mentor a high school
Oh
kid.
God.
Die on this
Wait,
hill.
Mentor a high school
Wait,
kid.
Down
Azzy,
the hill.
Azzy thinks he has a
for a
dub.
week.
Azzy thinks he has a dub. Uh-oh.
No,
Okay.
I don't.
Have
I
a
just
dub.
feel like
I'm
Yes,
saying
you do.
mentor a
I
high
think
school
what
kid
she's
for a
saying
week.
is that the emotional impact might be different to
Uh-huh.
actually see it in and of itself, but she's more than likely going to still say, hey, look, here's what's probably going to go wrong, but if you're so solidified and just stone-footed in this decision, you're going to stand 10 toes, I respect it. However, I don't think she's
Do you have
backtracking by
kids?
saying that when she
Sunshine, you
sees
got
it in
kids?
front of her, she might have a... No,
Okay, for
For
Allie's,
example,
hold
I
on.
wouldn't
Do you plan
ban
on
my
having
child
kids?
from it.
Yes.
I wouldn't ban my child from attending family meetings because they end up doing sex work. I wouldn't kick my kid out. I wouldn't regularly shame them about it. I wouldn't constantly
Are you
talk to
gonna
them about
say,
how
"I
gross
respect
what they're
it"?
doing is. I've never said that because in
Crenshaw
that
just did.
wait, no, because you fucking moron. When I say that I legally
Yo,
respect
hey,
people's choice
hey,
at a
why you being a
macro
bitch
level,
tonight?
because I'm
guess
tired of being bad faith. Because there is an obvious
I'm not
difference when
bad
I
faith,
say
I'm
at
telling
a.
you what I think.
Do you want me to finish saying? Because when I say at a
Yeah,
societal
if
level,
you
okay,
recognize the fact that I'm not being bad faith because I'm telling you
okay,
what I think.
okay, sure. Let's back it up. Do you recognize that interpersonally saying I respect your choice is different than saying societally I respect a person's right to make that choice? Would you agree that these are the
I would-
same or different things?
I
Okay,
think it's
I will
easy to do when they
acknowledge
do it
those
in
are
the
I'm
vacuum.
only asking counterpoints, Azzy.
Okay,
Would you agree
I
that
will
these are
acknowledge
same
that those,
or different?
I will acknowledge that those are different
Great.
things.
So then why
However,
would you
I will
ask me a
say-
question that makes those two things look like they're the same?
Because
That
I
me
will
saying that I would
explain.
respect societal choices is the same thing as telling my own child that I respect their choices. Do not conflate these two things because you obviously understand how these two things are different.
Okay.
And what you're trying to
If
do right now,
forgive
and is
me-
at high risk
forgive
for me, is
No,
getting
no,
me
I don't-
clips
I
to be
don't try
saying
to
to
do
like
anything.
viewers and stuff like that. It
I
is.
don't try to do
You're putting
anything.
me in a situation where it looks like I'm going around telling my kids to be 304s, which isn't happening. And you know that that's not what I believe at all. And in order to do so, you have to conflate my position of I would societally respect people's choices to do sex work with. I would tell my child that they should do sex work, that I encourage it to do sex work, and that I respect them for those choices. Those are not the same thing. And you know that those are not the same thing. Do not
Okay.
put me in that
So
position.
let me.
Okay.
All right. So let
We
me
do have more
articulate
callers.
Why I'm doing?
Hold on.
I'm
Hold
happy
on.
to move to the next caller, but she just said some wild shit. I need to be able to address
And
it.
you deflected from what I was saying.
Okay,
but go
stop,
ahead.
stop.
Don't
All
care.
of you,
You're
all of
not
you,
keeping up.
all of you stop. All of you stop. All of you stop.
Uh-huh.
Okay. We will never get to more callers if this, like, we
This feels like sweeping. I want to be able to respond.
Concisely, you have 30 seconds. Go.
I did not ask you that because I'm trying to get a sweet dunk on you. You and I have a better relationship than that. The reason why I'm asking you about what you would do with your fucking kid is because that is the logical extension of your worldview taken to the extreme. Most
it's
people have
not.
a maternal, yes, most people have a maternal and a paternal instinct in order to protect their kids against bad behavior. So while you can say, I respect your choice, I respect the ability to make that choice, and you think that you're giving them their autonomy, what I would say is that you're doing a soft level of condoning that I, as a parent, would never fucking do.
Okay.
Never.
We're gonna go to the next caller. Otherwise, we're gonna keep doing this all night, and I don't want to. Let's go to the next caller. Void. Hi, Void. You're up. What you got for us?
Hey, what's up? Can y'all hear me?
Yep. What you got for the panel?
Are you the guy that jumped in and was like talking to me, but I couldn't respond to you?
Don't ignore
No.
him for now.
Let's go.
Ask your
Okay,
question.
sorry.
All right. So I think Aerody got the big W here. Connor, you suck.
Okay, is that
Eat
is
my
that what you wanted to call in
metaphorical
and say?
ball bag
I was
purse
gonna say,
thing.
it's
that
been
there's
decided.
technology.
Okay. Is that it, Void? Is that what you got?
Well, no, there is one thing I kind of agree with Connor on, just to give you the small W if you want, which is like you said something about like discretion during sex work or something like that, which I kind of agree with. Like, I don't know if y'all are familiar with weeaboos, kind of personally hate that subculture, but it's like there's no purpose to me in my mind when I've thought about this issue about like people who just sort of randomly post up stickers of porn in public in places. Like, there's no QR code to an OnlyFans. There's no other information there. It's like, okay, what is the point in this? I could go look at porn at home. Clearly, there's a threshold for how you can be sex positive, right?
Absolutely.
You are now a conservative Nazi. Welcome to the club.
Fuck off.
Okay. Void, thank you for calling in. We love you. Bye-bye.
Right, see.
Okay. Reset. Next caller. Let's bring them in. And at this point, I'm going to start guessing because I don't know what the order that you guys came in. So here we go.
I'm using a shot.
You're live. What you got?
All right, let me mute the stream. Sorry, real quick. There you are.
It's your time to
All
shine,
right.
buddy.
Connor, you're almost a normal human being. I think just a few more steps and we'll get you there. You know, I'll be your hybrid, your hybrid gooner normal person who has a life and also is a little sex positive. Let me up that.
Just a little bit.
Iron sharpens iron stuff. You know what I mean? So the problem that I have with your position is that you tried to make this argument. It's like a fucking Ben Shapiro argument where you say that, oh, porn is destroying society because birth rates are plummeting, and that's not backed up by data. The problem there is that it is education, advancement, and human rights for women, frankly, that mean women have a career and then the family has a long-term societal plan for their retirement, other than we're going to have 8 kids so that maybe 3 of them survive and they can put us up in their house in old age. This is the societal, actual family planning thing that happens. And maybe like 1% of the problem is overstimulation, but it is not much bigger than 1%.
No, I thought there was no correlation of data. How are you even adding numbers to
Well,
it?
because I am an expert on energy. Like, I love nuclear energy, as you can tell. And so there's this correlation in everywhere across the globe. And it is like somewhat cultural. So culture lags progress. And so you do see some families that are in a very high-tech culture have enormous families because it's traditional. And this is what we need to do. And then they're like, oh my God, it's crazy. I can't do it. My mom didn't have a job because she was taking care of 6-8 children because we thought that 2/3 of them were going to die. And so like energy, advancement of civilization, and all of this goes together. It's like, what is it? Sure. 300 watt hours, 300 watts continuous per person. And so whatever number per year. Anyways.
Okay.
There's some energy level where you have the resources that people stop dying in infancy, that people start surviving. And so then instead of we're going to have a huge family to make sure a few people survive, we just continue on. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
Brief,
that was-
brief
yeah,
responses, then we're
okay.
gonna move on. Brief responses,
Yeah.
please.
I don't know
So
how
you go first, Com.
Okay, I don't know how that's related to what I asked. I thought you said 1% of
Okay.
the problem is attributed to porn.
I don't
use.
know you were gonna go there. Like I tell you the data I know about, and so
Yeah,
I'm saying
I'm
there is
pretty sure.
enormous amounts of data for
He's just saying
why
that's not the
people,
problem. He's
It's
just
not
saying
the
that
why
problem.
people
The
make
problem
family
is
planning
it's
not a
decisions.
cause.
I'm pretty, and this is
It-
another issue, another time where I say that this is disingenuous because yes, as technology and sexual safety goes up, yes, we're gonna see the stop of high risk, or we're gonna see the stop of unwanted pregnancy. We're gonna stop seeing the birth of children from rape. We're gonna see the stop of children who are being born because someone wants to keep going back at it every time they come home, and now you have 16 kids on the farm. Like, yeah, we're going to see that. But when we're talking about individuals who are literally not entering into the marketplace to find relationships, we're talking about that issue, and that's going to affect the birth.
Yeah, but
But-
that's a very small percentage of what's happening here in terms of the
because there's no
problem.
data. So maybe there will be data someday.
But that's the
but there is
conversation. It doesn't matter if it's a
No.
that's the
No, it
So
does
I
matter
would
because
like
then
to-
because if
we're talking
you're
about this
arguing,
problem.
if you're
Yes, there's
arguing that
probably a
pornography, if
bigger,
you're
badder
arguing that
monster we can
porn
fight.
addiction, if you're arguing that porn addiction is a significant cause for lack of societal growth, you would have to substantiate that. If I'm arguing against it, like that's literally the point of this entire discussion is to argue for or to argue against. So you sitting there saying that porn consumption and porn addiction is the issue and ignoring the fact that when people are career planning, they're probably not going to want to have a lot of kids or kids early, right? If you're planning for a career, that's a really big thing that can curtail how many kids you have. Not even to mention the fact that, like I said before, women are
I gotta
becoming
give
even
some
more
space.
selective.
I gotta
So
give
I
some
want to
space
address
to
the
Maya.
person
Hold on, I
who-
gotta give some space to Maya. She has to go.
Druid.
Maya, thank you for being here. Any last words?
Bye.
Okay.
Is that one word?
That'll be fine.
Nice meeting
Thank
you.
you.
Seeing you.
Okay, Connor, and then I
I
want to
would-
get
yeah.
to more callers. So yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to try to address you from an energy perspective. Okay. So, I think that you're right. Society is evolving. I also don't necessarily care whether or not porn is causal or correlative or a symptom. I'm pushing in a direction that I think is positive for society. If you wanted my prescription, I would say that we need a 2.15, birth rate in order to sustain society. I'm going to encourage people to have families, get married, have a couple of kids, et cetera, so we can continue as a species. But frankly, I don't give a fuck if the rest of y'all who don't have kids, if you wipe yourselves out in a generation. Because the truth is, I won't have to have fucking debates with you, and neither will my
Okay.
fucking kids. So from hold on. I'm not saying that you're going to kill yourself. I'm just saying you're going to die of old age in a fucking nursing home of bed sores. So what I'm saying is, the people who are doing progenic things, they're taking care of themselves, taking care of their bodies, having kids, building a future society, etc. Those are the kind of people who are going to inherit the earth. So if degenerate Coomer people who don't want fucking kids end up blowing themselves out of the fucking gene pool, it is what it is.
Okay, thank you, Soyaddle. I'll see you later.
I'm
Parasocial love.
Bye. Okay, $10 to read this comment from Lav. Okay. Men should coom as much as possible. They should coom so much that their sex tapes with their schizophrenic fans get frivolously leaked with their medical journal. Heinous.
Damn.
Okay. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Let's not do this. Right. They should coom until they can't see straight or interact with real people, until they must have sex with sex dolls, rendering themselves perfect genetic dead ends. This is good for society. Okay. Thank you for the 10.
And let the dead ends die out. It is what it is.
Could have just said the last part. We would have got it.
Okay.
I hate men. Also, God, I hope men notice me.
That's all women, by the way. That's every
It's not.
woman.
It's not.
You don't hate men? I hate men. I hate women
I do
too.
not hate men.
Okay. Next caller. Sturmovic.
Real quick, wouldn't that be like a big twister if Kyla just comes out 20 years later and she's, God, I hate you, hate all you men after helping so many
Based.
men. Yeah,
In
that would
lab,
be
it's
amazing.
like I
Let's
love you.
get
I want
to
to
the
see you
call.
I'd
succeed.
watch that movie.
Fair enough. Sturmovic.
First, I'll say I talked to Void before. It was interesting, but if you think that Kylo is the one that got the W, then that's because you're lip-tarded. But on the other hand, I guess I still find it interesting that despite for over 50 years consistently undermining men into the ground and turbocharging women, that we are still considering that men have to do basically all the work in order to save ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably
Does
I'm
anybody else
sorry.
want to address it
Is
first?
that direct? Well, maybe I want to like steelman your position. What do you believe is all men's work in this conversation? Like, who do you believe is advocated for saying it's all men's responsibility?
I did.
All of you.
Okay.
What?
I
Um,
definitely push back against that
so
numerous.
This is why I said
I
we weren't having enough conversation about how all
well,
the
the
impacts
issue.
of
So
society.
I'm going to
We're
be as
talking
good
too
faith
much
as
about
possible
dudes.
because I've been super mean to Connor, so I have to earn my points somewhere. I'm
Sure.
going to say that part of why you feel like nobody has talked about the side of like men's issues is because we haven't focused on that realm at all. We didn't really talk about sex worker exploitation of their viewers or anything like that. However, I suspect almost everyone here would probably agree a fair bit on that, which is probably why we didn't end up talking about it. But I don't think any single person on this panel is saying it's all men's fault and women have to do nothing. I think if that's
am.
your takeaway, you're just being that, except for Connor. You can fight
Yeah.
with Connor, I
So
guess.
Skirmovich, let me kind of set expectations. So I try to encourage human beings to improve themselves, but I also expect them to constantly disappoint me. So while I'm trying to be encouraging, get men, hey, get motivated, get a family, work out, take care of yourself, drink water, et cetera, I expect them to be constantly disappointing that ideal. And so I think part of masculinity, stereotypical historical masculinity, is the expectation that you're kind of on your own. You're kind of responsible for your own efforts and your own success, and you should expect to self-evacuate. I've also been told that I typically in debates will treat women like retarded children. And while I do respect the intellect of a lot of women, including Erudite, including many of the women in this space who come in here and be combative, I do typically treat women like retarded children because oftentimes that's how they want you to treat them. So be sexist, be misogynist, survive, work out,
Is
drink
that true,
water,
women?
take your ibuprofen. Yep.
Definitely a lot of women seem to enjoy benevolent sexism. Yeah, there's like a lot
Yep.
of positivist preference. I think it's bad, but this is why like I have a lot of tensions with certain feminists is that like I don't like benevolent sexism. I think it's cringe. And they would say
Be
it's
ready
not
to
benevolent
self-evacuate.
sexism. To be clear, to steal my their position, they would not argue that benevolent sexism is a real thing. This is my suspicion.
Sturmovic, thank you for calling in. Anything else before we let you go?
Well, yeah, they're ignoring a massive portion of it, but whatever.
Okay, well, sorry.
What portion is that?
I was about to say yes.
can we
I
find out?
agree
50
with you,
years?
and you should do it.
50
As I-
years,
as
that it's
I
all men's
said.
responsibility.
Yeah, as I said, people have been saying this for a while that we completely undermined the economy. We shipped everything that men did do overseas, and now we're saying get over it, become a nurse, and okay, obviously everyone's going to do that, and it's going to expand to that point, and obviously the government's going to do it because that's who's in charge, at least in Canada. And yeah, it's not going to work. So instead of working with what men do, maybe you maybe bring that maybe do something actually that works with men and not undermine them for the past 50, 30 years.
So
This is
the
a
issue,
great
the
special
issue,
filter.
the
Mhm.
issue that you're having in this discussion is that most people would probably say that's a worthy thing to talk about. It's just not really what anyone was talking about here. But just because we didn't talk about that issue doesn't mean that we're neglecting that issue necessarily. Because what you're talking about is fundamentally just a different conversation. They're tied, they're obviously linked, but they're not the same conversation that we just had. But it's a valid, I mean, ask Wick to do a panel on that. And
Yeah,
it's a
we
good
might.
conversation.
We might.
Sturmovich,
I
real quick
blame
before you go.
the male loneliness point. That's why.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Sturmovich, we, and by we I mean as a species, human beings and men in particular, have been undergoing a great social filter at all times, deciding who is going to have sex and who's going to have kids and who isn't. So this isn't new. So you have to figure, you individually, you cannot save all men. You can do your best, but you have to figure out how to save
Deliberate
yourself.
social undermining of that is completely different.
Men? Okay, the social undermining by a bunch of effeminate HR fucking representatives is nothing compared to having your city sacked by Mongolians.
Even
Okay?
that's irrelevant.
No, it's not. These are still
Yeah,
forces
it
that
is.
are trying to prevent you
You
from
wanna know,
procreating.
what the issue is? Like
Sure.
we keep saying, the issue is that the strongest and wealthiest exported the entirety of the economy, such as manufacturing, overseas, undermining man's existence to exist, undermining our existence.
Was there a
And so
specific
you're just
group of
going to
people
let
that are
them
the
do it.
strongest and the richest?
Yep, and I'm saying you have to figure out a
No,
way to
not-
survive.
No,
Yeah,
he's not. He's
you.
not. He's just a Stigma. He's not being like a Jewish conspiracy theorist, but he's
I am.
saying something that's he's right. Wait, he's completely right. Low wage men have increasingly less options because the main minimum wage options are often a little bit more customer service, which is a much more like feminine space of service, right? Concrete is like one of the main things that we can still at least do here. Automation of farming, automation of most labor processes, power tools, and then beyond that, there's an increasing number of things like automated like factory work and stuff. He's right about this. This is why men are getting fucked up, is because the specifically low income men, because the jobs that they could traditionally occupy that they were advanced at because of testosterone isn't available to them anymore. So now they're competing along a metric of basically a metric that they're not being socialized into, and they might not want to be socialized into. And most of society is saying, fuck you, figure it out, right? And that's not helping. That's a problem.
Men have been told, fuck you, figure it out for all of history. Fuck you, figure it out.
Thank you for calling in, Sturmovik. We
I'm
don't
11.
have we have to move on. Unfortunately, we got some more callers. I want to try to get as many as I can. But thank you for calling in, and we might do a panel on that later, and I'll reach out if we do. But for now, we'll see you later. Okay. $10 from Aaron M. Sound to say how many on the panel would consider that they have a healthy POV and upbringing and education. How much has the value you've assigned to your experience? Bias your opinion. You can answer.
I
that
had a
if you
healthy
like.
upbringing.
Okay.
Hello. Sorry, I had to mute the stream.
It's fine. You're here.
All right. So my big thing is when Connor was talking about what he would do to get his kid to not do porn or his kid to not consume so much porn, it was like, oh, he'd have hobbies, he'd have a bunch of things to do, he'd have a bunch of things to get engaged with. And then I think that sort of strikes at the core of this topic, which is pertaining to sex and sex work. Sex is one of those things where if it's on your mind and you have time on your hands, you're probably going to pursue something sexual. And doing this thing with porn and with sex work where we try to tell people not to think of the polar bear. Don't think of the polar bear. Don't think of the polar bear. The only thing they can think about is how they're not supposed to think about the polar bear. All they can think about is sex when all they're being told is stop trying to have sex, stop trying to do sex work, stop trying to jerk off. I think a more effective use of time is to just focus on the positive things we want them drawn to, as opposed to spending so much energy on the negative things we want them drawn away from. Because sex is going to be on their mind. It's just a matter of, are we going to create a generation that is engaged in things outside the home, meeting women outside the home, and using that sexual drive as a motivation to create genuine relationships with women? Or are we going to keep just bonking them on the nose every time they look at porn while they sit on their computer and we do nothing about it?
Literally all of us agree with this, though. Like, we all agree, like, yes, you should have other hobbies, you should have other things to focus on, you should have a healthy, like, variety of things within your life so that you're not just sitting in a room jacking off all day. Like, literally all of us agree with this. So when he says this, like, yes, this is part of, like, points that all of us made in some...
but we are incentivized by the algorithm in order to follow sex. This is where I agree with Jeb, and I think that we need to back up to it. The reason why we're talking about sex right now, instead of having a 9-person panel on how men should lift weights, eat chicken and rice, and fucking start walking and drinking less soda, is because if we started talking about how to be healthy, how to lift weights, how to do etc., you can be a successful creator in those niches, but it's not going to lead as much as sex. So I think that while your criticism is well taken, I think you have to take the sexy topics, blood and sex, and then you have to leverage it into positivity. You can't just ignore the algorithm.
That's what I'd be saying, though, because you guys did have a point where you discussed like action items regarding sex work. And as far as the world goes, like you said, sex gets injected into every topic we talk about. You watch a movie about superheroes, sex. You watch a movie about fucking history, sex. You watch Game of Thrones, it's about fantasy, sex. We need to start injecting the positive things into every conversation we're having about sex. Instead of making every action item, we should ban porn, or we should limit porn, or we should change
social norms about porn. Instead, when we're having the conversation about porn, the action items we should talk about, now that we've gotten the eyes due to the porn topic, are the things we want to draw them towards, instead of, the whole conversation you guys had, which was, should we or should we not legislate porn? We should say, no, legislating porn seems to be something that is ineffective, and that time should be spent on things and programs that get people educated and get people out in the world working, getting good jobs. Because one of the other things we don't want to talk about when we talk about birth rates dropping because of sex work and porn is birth rates are also probably dropping because women have been told for a lot of their lives that, what they're good for is being a housewife and doing all that stuff. And now all of a sudden they get out, and all the men they want to do that with are getting their 4-year degrees and not focus on having a relationship right now, because as time goes on, you need more time and training to work in a quality career. So in those 4 years where they don't have a man to pay for everything for them because they're not married yet, what do? Well, they didn't prepare themselves to get their own career, so a lot of them are turning to sex work and OnlyFans because they have some bullshit communications degree or no degree at all, because they weren't groomed for this 4 to 6 year period where they're not married, but they still need to pay bills.
So it's women's
Fuck
fault.
you,
in other
figured
words.
out.
Got you.
No, it's not
Jeb
women's
Tan,
fault.
It's
Sorry,
a
yeah.
joke. It's a joke. Jeb Tan, thanks for calling in. Again, I want to get to everyone before we end, and I
problem.
know people got to go soon, so I want to again speed this up. So, Jeb Tan, thank you for calling in. We'll see you later, buddy. Okay. What you got? Quickly.
Okay, I wanted to actually talk about the direction of the panel, how it's gone, because I know everyone's been pretty consistent on their sex positive, sex negative so far. But what I have noticed is this began with this protecting women. We're worried about them. We're worried about how they feel about all this. But we moved on to we're gonna shame you if you're doing sex work. That's one hell of a reach. I guess you could say that maybe this is kind of an attitude that I guess these people want to tell you to sit down and we'll protect you and just stay in your lane. We'll control your life.
No,
I'm gonna defend Connor and them here and say I think that their argument is that they're trying to protect women from the negative consequences that could come from doing it, more so than shaming them for the sake. Like it seems like there's more so of a desire to protect from the unwanted the negative consequences, more so than like shaming them for the
Listen,
Yes, that's exactly what I was saying.
whatever
Is sit down and do what you're told. That's what.
But
you're
that, I
saying.
don't think, but that's more so of like a power play, more so than a place coming from love or protection. I don't even think Connor was saying that. Like, sit down and shut up. I think,
Hold on. So
you know.
no. So yeah, there's an element of a hyperbole here, right? If let's use Ayala as an example, just because I mentioned her a couple of times tonight. If Ayala was my friend, I would
Ayla?
go to her.
The one that looks like the
I just want to make sure.
AELLA.
Yeah, I think you say it Ayla though.
Birthday
Ayla?
gangbang.
Okay.
Girl.
So
Okay.
let's say that Hila was my friend. Okay. I'm gonna go to them. I'm gonna try to talk to them about their childhood, their lives, their relationships, who they are, what they want, et cetera, and I'm gonna try to come from a place of understanding, and I'm gonna try to encourage them to see the world through my perspective. Okay, if they're my friend. However, if they're a public figure and they're talking about a behavior that I think is negative, and through that conversation, I feel like they're inspiring other young people to make similarly bad decisions, then I'm going to hyperbolically call them an asshole. Now, those are both pointed towards discouraging the behavior, but the tactics are going to change based off of relational proximity.
Exactly. If you don't have relational equity with a person, you can't reach them. Or in fact, it's very likely
more
you
for the
wouldn't even talk
audience.
to them. You're just talking at them. You're just talking to a general population and just hoping that something, an inkling of what you say, reaches their ears. Like we're going to shame the able-bodied people who can contribute to society in a meaningful way, who are trying to now go into a profession that was generally for those who are at the most vulnerable.
Let me say it this
right?
way. Let me say it, if I may. Let me say it this way, right? I think that we can shame behaviors without shaming people. And yes, someone who is engaging in what I consider risky or wrong behaviors, if I can shame that behavior a little bit, I think we should. I think we should stigmatize those kinds of behaviors. I think we should stigmatize people going into into that kind of thing. Now, like I said, we can protect, because there are a lot of them are in a bad place, right? So we need to protect and look after their safety, look after their well-being, and these things like that. But when it comes down to it, again, if I had a kid or if anyone close to me, anyone at any age said, "Hey, I was thinking about doing sex work," I would discourage them. I would discourage it. But that's me.
Yeah, sure, but I would also probably discourage my kid from going into the military or tell them
Sure.
about all the
Yeah,
dangers of doing that
there
as
are a
well.
lot
Like,
of
there's
things I
lots
would
of
discourage my
there's
friends from doing that are
the problem
normalized in
is
the
that
society.
we're kind of talking about both like the harms that'll come to the individual who goes into sex work and talking about like if it was my daughter and she wanted to do OnlyFans, what the list of things that I would tell her that, you know, these could be problems for your future. But then we're also kind of conflating this with like overall like cultural problem that happens and the way that you're going to engage with your child and kind of talk to them
Or a
and what
friend.
you
It doesn't have to
for
be a child.
The
your
Right?
own
reason,
child.
hold on, I want to point out I know you guys already know this, but I'm going to say the reason why I bring up the child example is because that is the most important extension of my existence on this planet. I am protecting it at minimum for 18 years, and realistically, I'm protecting it for the rest of my
Yeah, you have
life.
a
I have
responsibility to do
two, not just a responsibility. These
Dude.
people like they are the one of the many foundations of my life. And so the amount of care, I don't even care about myself as much as I care about my children. So basically, like the reason why I'm using that as such an extreme thing is I think while it might not work for people who don't have kids, or it might not work for people who aren't interested in kids, people who have kids, you know that you err on the side of caution. I
Yeah,
might tell a friend go to the military, but I'm not gonna. Sorry, go ahead. I'm ranting.
well, the reason that I'm bringing this up is because with my kid, yes, I feel like I have like a responsibility to do this. But with my friend, like I don't really care so much what it is that they're gonna do. Like I might talk to them
I
about it, but I'm not gonna
do.
discourage them from doing it.
The real question though is, do you feel like there's a unique problem with sex work and your kid doing it versus the military? Because I would probably dissuade my kids
Yes.
from the military as much as I would dissuade them from football, and it would be for similar elemental reasons. Whereas the reason why I might dissuade my child from sex work is going to be probably fundamentally different.
Well, hold
I
on.
would just, for most people.
Is it hard? So for me, I can see positive, moral, ethical, financial, educational benefits for the military and for sports, whereas I don't see a redeeming feature for sex work. So my criticism of sex work would be more aggressive. So I'm asking you, do you think that your criticism of sex work would be greater or the same?
You're asking me if my criticisms
Yes.
of sex work be the same or greater
Compared
than of
to
military.
playing football, which we all know is physically
Well, let's stick
risky,
to the
or
military
joining the
because
military,
you
which is
can die in the
physically
military,
risky.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
I'd probably exclude football because I think football's super cringe and I don't care that much about it as a
Rugby.
sport. There's so many,
Wow.
well, even rugby. As a rugby player, I genuinely, it's like go play fucking volleyball. Like just save your brain, bro. Um, would I probably? I think there's something inherent about sex work. The problem is that I try to figure out specifically is obviously society engages with these things differently, which is the main reason why I would caution my kid a lot. The question
Yep.
is, does it also have an impact on you in such an intrinsic way? And I actually don't know if it's obvious to me because the way people who served in the military come back, and maybe you can speak to this. I agree it's different in how it intrinsically affects you, but my understanding is that there's a feeling of otherness that occurs because of the type of experiences, the extremeness, maybe even some of the things that you do in the military. And again, I'm not saying that this is analogous to sex work, but I don't know what part of like the intrinsically changing part of you, which is one of my biggest concerns with sex work, is that it negatively impacts the young woman and how she relates to her body specifically. I don't know if it's
Yep.
obvious to me that military might not have a similar effect, just different, obviously, because it's not sex work. It's
No,
like
Lav,
risk and health.
this is interesting. This is something that Lab brought up, but I think she brought up derogatorily, was treating your body as a transaction. That's a whole new psychology. And that is something that's common in the military, is you transact your body towards a mission objective. And so you
Right.
start
For a moral
viewing,
good.
yeah, and you start viewing your health and your physical well-being as a tradable commodity towards a goal that you're told is noble. And when you come back and when you feel like, I'm not saying that I was totally lied to as a young person, but when you feel like parts of the American empire and the war on terror were based off of lies or dishonesty or lies of omission, that can feel
Right.
like a very deep betrayal because you know people who did a massive transaction for a belief that wasn't true. And so,
Right.
yeah, there is. I think that this trauma, while not
Yeah.
purely
Whereas
analogous,
the
can
sex
be
worker is
as
trading her
deep.
body. Yeah. The sex worker trades her body for money. She tells herself that it's going to be worth it. But the issue is 7 years down the road, does her future self still agree? And that's
Instead
the
of
really big
sure,
question. But
instead of
some
and not
do
to
and
hold
some
on.
don't.
The difference
And
between
not
the
to throw
military and sex work is this: in one case, thank you for your service, and the other, it's thank you for your
Right.
cervix.
Well, that's
But
exactly what I was about to say. It's like
Yeah.
the social
But
aspects that Kyla brought up is that yes, you're likely going to get praised for military work, whereas like
that
the
as well.
social stigma for doing sex work, the main reason that I would try to tell my kid or try to tell somebody not to do sex work is because of the social ramifications. That like it might be harder for you to get a job in the future. That if you have kids,
Sure.
they might end up seeing your porn. That like there's a bunch of social ramifications that are going to be the biggest problem with doing porn at an early age, especially when you're like, you know, barely legal or some shit like that.
Okay,
Whereas
this is
you
something
go
that
into the
Lab said.
military, yes, you get a lot of praise afterwards for being
And
a
it's
hero and thank you for your service and all this other stuff.
It's
Lab
very
said something
individualistic.
wildly important that I want to address. Sorry, you go first, but I
just
want to
real
say
quick,
something
because we
before
do
move on
have
that's
2 more
wildly
callers, and I
important.
really want to get to them. I don't want to leave anyone hanging. So yeah.
I do want to say that
I'm sorry, Infallible Foul, but we do got more people. But finish your point, Connor, and then we'll go.
Yeah, so I just want to say this is one of the things that Lav said that actually hit me super fucking hard. So she was saying that she was looking at pictures of herself when she was like 18 or 19 years old, I believe, and she first started escorting. And what she saw was a young kid getting in over their head who was trading their time and innocence for something in something that they believed in at the time, but in retrospect, they never will be able to get back. And so
Right.
for me, like, yeah, of course there's like a parallel to the military right there, but at the same time for me, if I had a daughter and she was telling me, hey, I want to voluntarily trade my innocence and youth and sense of normalness in order to sell my sexual appeal to people who crave me exclusively for my body, who have no interest in my personality or intellect, one, I would view myself as a failure as a parent, and two, I would be horrified by the years to come for my child.
I'm super
but I think
curious, and this is not a bad faith question. Would you feel the same if your daughter was becoming a swimsuit model?
No, actually,
Because everything is the same there. And
except
the incentives
for
are way worse because sex workers, or at least she knows that people are going to think she's dirty and gross for being a sex worker.
it's
If you're a
objectification of her
model,
body
you're
that's
like
making money.
the hot girl. So there's actually more perverse incentives.
Mhm.
But that
okay,
just
hold on,
deals
hold on, hold
with-
on, hold on. Let me articulate the difference because frankly,
Sure.
I don't find this analogous. So
Okay.
while I do understand that swimsuit models do trade their attractiveness in order to make money, absolutely, that's totally parallel. What I would say is that because they're trading their attractiveness in order to sell a product, while it is sex, it's not necessarily like graphically sexual, and they're not selling it to the least common denominator. They're not selling their vagina and their ability to produce children to whatever glup shitto has fucking $500 or $1,000. And
The
as a
issue is
result, they
it's not obvious why
maintain
these things are
as
different.
some
It's
okay, but I will finish the sentence and you might see. As a
Okay.
result, they might maintain some of their societal worth and as a result be willing
Yes.
and able to attract a partner who is worthy of their love, affection,
Right.
and child
So
rearing.
I agree with the social stigma. I agree with why it would be disanalogous within society. The main thing that I'm still trying to tease apart myself is let's assume society stops existing. What is fundamentally different between the bikini model and the sex worker? What makes the vagina, for example, or her tits, not even her tits, her nipples,
It could be tits,
more
yeah.
well, most bikini models have like
Sorry,
everything
continue.
but the nipple out. Yeah. What makes that uniquely different? And I don't know precisely the
Let
answer
me-
other
let me
than
try.
it feels
Because-
intimate, right?
Sure, let me
Hold on,
try.
I can articulate this really quick. The proximity to raising children.
I don't know if I'm convinced that that's what people care about. I'm not sure if
That's
that's
what I
it.
care about.
I think there's a difference between letting
Mm.
someone look at your car and then letting someone drive your car, right? There's a
Yeah,
lot more
but
people I would let
True.
look at my car than I would let get in the driver's seat and take
True.
control and drive this
Yeah,
car.
but I've
When
looked
you
at
are
a ton of research
hold on. The
to
reason this
see-
is different.
That's
Like,
the same with
stop,
the
shut up.
OnlyFans
The
model.
reason this is different, right, is because when you engage in sexual acts with another person, you are putting yourself in their control in a way that you don't, simply modeling for them, right? That is
No,
why
no,
we
no.
do also draw distinctions
do you-
between people who
No,
pose
OnlyFans-
nude and people who
you know-
engage in full service sex work.
While
There's
logically I
differences in
agree with
natures.
you, logically I agree with you, but I've looked into it, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of research or even polling on the fact that women who do sex work or do pornography actually have a whole lot of regret afterwards. There's not like actual real research into this that actually tells us that a large group of women have these problems afterwards that we kind of logically assume might be the case, but there's not real hard data that actually tells us this in any meaningful way.
It's because it's not just about them. It's not just about the harm that is caused to them. It's about what happens, the ideas that are being trafficked.
That's what we're talking about
the-
right
the
now.
I know that's
issue-
what you're talking about, which is why we're missing the point that it's just not an individual
The
problem.
point that you want to make.
No, the fundamental
the point.
question,
Go
the
ahead, Sarah.
fundamental question that we have to figure out in this is the harm only societally based? Because if the harm is just the stigma she will receive and the stigma her children might receive, I know you're saying it's not, that's
So we
super
need
fair,
to be
but
more
that's the
pro-sex.
question that we have to answer. Then the solution isn't necessarily shutting it down. It's actually shifting society so that sex workers aren't stigmatized. That would be the
Sex
left position.
positivity, yeah.
If you disagree, but
Yeah.
you can, because there's not a lot of data, you have to establish why it is uniquely different to do sex work, and it is inherently, at some sort of ontological or naturalistic level, harmful to the individual and to society necessarily, despite society's reaction to it. That's what you have to establish.
I almost guarantee you, if we do correlative studies of sex workers,
I don't care about
not
correlative studies.
causative, I care. So let's say
Why?
why wouldn't I care?
Because you can
How about
correlate
that? That's the
crime and
point.
ice cream sales. That doesn't mean that ice cream is making criminals run rampant. It's the temperature of the
is it?
summer. The reason why
I was
predictive models
analyzing-
matter here is because it helps us put a finger on the problem. If
Can
the
I-
problem is
can
low
I finish
birth
what I'm
rate,
saying?
we need to no, because if the problem is birth rate, what you need to do is not correlate things that decrease birth rate. You need to figure out predictively what causes a society to stop having children. And I suspect GDP and increased technology is one of the leading predictors of that thing, which we're
So
not
let
going
me
to
tell
stop.
you my suspicion. What
Okay.
my suspicion is that I don't have data to back this up. My suspicion is that if we eliminated all the material and social stigma factors, which by the way I don't want to do, towards sex work, at the end of the day, if you did a survey of people who were actively sex workers, I almost guarantee you that there would be a correlated amount of sexual trauma in their childhood or upbringing or something like that that gave them a weird or unhealthy perspective on sex. So as a result, I wouldn't want this to be normalized, destigmatized, considered good or neutral. Absolutely.
I also think
not.
there's
that may be
another. Hold on,
true.
if I may, Azzy. I
Right.
also think there's another argument than just birth rates here. I think that like the effect on the psyche, right? The effect on how we treat each other changes.
Are women treated better in countries where people have to wear burqas than sex-positive America?
True.
True, but
Wait,
there are a
what?
host of other factors that go into these countries, such as religion, cultural and
No,
societal
you have to establish
factors.
it at a naturalist
Man, it's
level.
You have to isolate the
If-
variable.
He's coming from this
No,
from a religious
your
perspective.
burden, if you're not religious, this is why religious people have a
This
trump
isn't a
card in this
religious
argument.
thing. This is something we could.
I know it's not. I'm saying if you want to be opposed fundamentally to sex work and say that it does do harm and you're not a religious person, you need a naturalist argument of how it is doing so. And so when you say the effect on the psyche,
Yeah, I
you
got
need
a
to
naturalist
outline
argument for
a
you.
biological process by which specifically sex work and only sex work harms the brain, or maybe I'm assuming the brain, in a way that nothing else does. That is what you are required to do. Or you have to cop to religion and
Nothing
say,
else
my God
does.
says
I
it's
That's
have to
not
bad.
true.
prove that it's a
You are putting
unique
this
harm?
bar in
Get the
place that
fuck
I
outta
don't
here.
have to.
Yeah,
I
it's a crazy
reject
bar.
having to
This-
clear
wait,
this bar
right.
because
When I say
it does
you
not have to
to-
be unique. The harm could be done in other areas with other things that have similar harms, right? When we engage in certain types of behavior, certain styles of behavior, right? It's a spectrum. It's not binary, right? And we could say the more that this takes place, the more of this type of act, such as lowered inhibitions and impulse control, which play into much more than just sex work and pornography, which plays into things like eating, which plays into things like playing fucking video games, when we can see how all these things, right, lower our ability to say no to ourselves, even when we won't do any harm to anyone else. It does create these issues within us that makes it harder to reject our impulses.
Yes, and to be clear, lack of self-control is a good argument, but it's not a unique argument to pornography. And the issue is that the people who are making that pornography is a unique problem have to identify. So it's fair that if you're saying pornography is not unique, it's not
unique.
Well, we have
because
the
you guys,
But isn't that the entire
have said
argument that
unique.
porn is uniquely problematic?
Yes.
We've been having this argument that porn is uniquely problematic. I don't know if you specifically kind of was making it, but
you guys kept
no. You guys, because you said that the bikini model is fine.
No.
Wait, no, the bikini model isn't video games. You're not. Hold on. No. See.
Some unique at all. In fact, that was
cigarettes are a fucking harm. I can argue against cigarettes because they're bad for you and they have poor impulse control and they have a negative dopamine fucking reflection, and also the health consequences are bad. Those are all correlated to fucking sex. That's not unique harm.
I agree, but that's my position. That's me and Rashad's position.
I have to articulate a unique harm?
No. So if you want to outline why sex work is different than other impulse-related negative things in society, and if you would say, for example, football is super bad for you in a whole bunch of ways, typically the people
really
who
good for you in a whole bunch of ways.
It's horrible for your brain. The main benefit is that it gets you fit, but you can do that in a million other ways, and
camaraderie, team sports.
Sure, but like sex work, I would say they get a shitload of money. They get to experience lots of things. They can help other people with their money. They get to like travel, all sorts of things.
Is that a unique?
None of these things are any like
traveling.
I don't think that's okay. Material. That's not material. I mean, money
isn't materialist or nihilist. Are you fucking shitting?
No,
being able to have an easier life financially isn't just automatically materialism. We all want that, and if we just so choose to happen to get that through sex work, it still is a beneficial thing.
No, everyone wants that.
That's a cop out.
Okay. I want to, like I said, I wanted to get the other colors.
Okay.
I said I want to get the other colors.
The reason why, if I can just make it clear, the reason why I'm saying that you have to identify this as a naturalist, if you're proposed to sex work, is either you have two choices, which is saying anything that is impulsive is somewhat bad for your brain. I could give you a brain area if you want to look at that has some evidence for this, and you have to broaden and say sex work isn't special. Just to be clear, sex work is definitely not special. There's a whole bunch of impulsive related behaviors that are neutral, like drinking alcohol, that when done in excess or any sort of amount is bad for society. You can do that. You can do that broad sweep. But if you're saying sex work is uniquely bad, it's worse than smoking weed, it's worse than like impulsively doing antisocial things with your friends, it's uniquely bad for both the woman and the man, you have to identify why as a naturalist it is uniquely bad. That's what I'm saying.
Let me do that then. Okay, you know what I'll do? I'll go ahead and identify the way in which it's unique.
Airways.
Sex is the most important thing we do. It is the way in which we propagate society. It is the way in which we continue life. So to boil it down to, let's just have fucking pleasure as long as nobody gets hurt, you are massively underestimating the importance of this thing. Football, like in your fucking analogy, can have all these positive and negative analyses. You can get paralyzed, but the chances of that happening are like 1 in fucking a billion goddamn %. Whereas with sex, I'm pretty sure, just through experience, I can say, the more amount of cocks that you have shoved in your fucking vagina, chances are the more amount of childhood trauma that you have, and the less likely that you're going to have children. And that is an existentially consequential result for a family.
Because
if a bloodline dies, that's not a big deal. Are you shitting my fucking asshole right now?
Do you think that would be my position? Do you genuinely think that that's my position or what I'm
I don't
arguing?
know. 20 seconds ago, you were talking about how I needed to come up with unique harms related to sex, which was nobody's position tonight.
For your position, you would need to, unless you're saying my position was always that any sort of impulse-related issue is bad, and that's the problem.
I'm
That
not saying
sex
it's uniquely
pornography.
harmful. I'm saying it's uniquely important. Can you acknowledge that it's uniquely important?
No, why? My question is why?
Because it continues life. What other human behavior continues the species?
Eating, drinking, making sure that you
get
sleep.
the fuck out of here. You know what I
Okay,
mean. You're
okay,
being
this is a good
dense.
place to interject and follow
genuine.
foul. Thank you for being here.
It's
I love you.
genuine
Bye.
Diane,
Is as
so that's
important
over.
as sex. Got it.
Okay.
And it's not even just about us.
Okay.
The point I was trying to make is that when you put those ideas out, it affects other people. So other people who are more vulnerable.
If we
will
don't
have
walk
a
without
high-
rhythm, if we walk without rhythm, we won't attract the worm. So we got to keep walking. We got to keep moving. We got to attract the worm. Let's bring him on.
Got some angry folk tonight, man.
Allison, brief as you can, please.
Hello. Okay, so I got summoned in here because I was like spouting off in chat.
Yeah, you said some things.
periodically.
Repeat them, please.
Okay, so I think the sex trader line is what said you said come in here, say this live. Okay, so I said arguably some of the like sex sellers online are kind of like setting it up for women to where it's like a bit worse. Because a lot of porn stars they do cater to like I mean this is okay, anecdote overwhelm, okay? But it seems like they do cater to impulses that a lot of women don't naturally like super want to play into. Okay, porn stars are like they're catering to shit that the girlfriends don't want to do. Right? That's the point of a porn star and like
threesomes,
a
rim
sex
jobs.
worker. Yeah, I mean it's basically you're selling yourself as a human cum rack. I'm sorry, it's like not fun to say. That's the point.
Based.
It's debased work. It's a vice market, and it's fine if we should treat people with decency. And the prostitute murder rate is very sad. Okay, so that's horrible, but it is a vice market, and I do not understand trying to destigmatize it and pretend that it's actually some like honorable neutral thing when people like sell pussy to perverted men who like can't get it for free. Like it's sad.
Okay, so we have to be
Thank you,
super
Allison.
clear
I
that
love you
nobody
parasocially.
here has
Yeah,
begun
no
to
one's
say
arguing
this is
with
an honorable line of work. And yes, queen. And to be clear, I would grant you immediately, some people do say that, right? Some people do say it's deeply empowering and like hoorah, and that, but that's not this panel. Just to be super, super clear, the worst that's happened is that people said sex work itself is probably neutral.
It's fine and dandy to say that,
I-
but when you say that it is both lucrative, it's good for the economy. It's my own
Good for the economy.
progeny, my
Hurts
own
nobody.
progeny. If they decide to do that, I would respect their decision.
Yeah,
Those
that's crazy.
it starts to muddle the water, so you can't understand.
So like
whether or
let's
not-
just say
are we
your child.
honoring
Let's
it,
say
or we just
if your child pursues sex work,
tolerating
are you just gonna like cut them off forever, or would you just
No,
like
it
accept that
sounds
what's
like
done is done? And
it sounds like a tolerant decision, right? To allow
well, I
them
mean,
to
at
do
some
whatever
point, if
they
they
want,
if they
up to their
if they
own
won't fold, are you going to end your relationship with your child, or are you going to accept it for what it is, but still make it clear that you don't like it?
I don't believe
Depends on whether or not
parents-
he's a bottom.
I don't believe parents. are
Everything
allowed-
has class. Look, hey, everybody
If
has their
you are
line.
a good parent, you never end the relationship with the child. The child usually
Okay.
terminates the relationship with you because they just totally dishonor and they no longer want to represent you.
That's usually
But
not how that
now-
works.
yes,
That's usually
Listen,
not
no,
how that
no,
goes.
no, no, hold on.
Yeah,
I wanna
usually the
clarify. I
kid.
said a joke.
Usually,
I said good
usually the
parent.
kids
I said a
don't
joke.
detonate the relationship.
Listen,
I
listen. I said a
literally
joke,
said-
but I actually want to clarify because it's actually really important to me. Listen, if I have two boys right now, we might have a third kid. Okay, if my boys after the age of 18 choose to become pornographic actors or whatever the fuck, and then they choose to go through a slew of women or whatever, if they're doing all of the correlated behaviors that I expected out of them, like they're doing hard drugs, they're hanging out with loose women, they're partying until late at night, they're not taking any of their responsibilities seriously, they're not taking having children seriously. Yeah, I'm like, one, I might keep their phone number and respond to their text messages if they need me to pick them up from a dangerous
Exactly.
situation, but I am not going to be fucking inviting them over to Thanksgiving dinner to act like everything's fucking hunky-dory. Absolutely the fuck not.
And if they fall to the wayside, it's most likely going to be the family who's going to reconcile them back and
I'll
take
pick
care
them
of them.
up.
They're going to be the
If they
basement
want to get their
dweller
shit,
or the-
if they want to get their
Yeah.
shit together, I'll help them. I will dedicate my life, the rest of my remaining years, to making sure that my children are healthy, happy, successful, good relationships, capable of having children of their own. That is the mission for the rest of my fucking life. But I am not going to help people kill themselves. Ever.
Hey mom,
So
hey mom,
if I could engage,
mom, I want to eat
Allie,
flesh, or hey mom, I want to be a
Hold
hitman.
on,
but
stop,
I'm gonna
stop,
get-
stop,
I'm gonna
stop,
get-
stop,
son.
stop. Everyone, stop. I'm going to use the voice as Bene Gesserit. Stop me. We're going to go to Tom because he hasn't been a chance to go, and I see you, Not So Erudite. We're going to let you go after. So Ben, I'm sorry, not Ben, Bene Gesserit. Let's go to Tom, and then let's go to Erudite, please.
Yeah, I wanted Ali to actually respond because a lot of the things that you were saying weren't things that actually like make this necessarily
I
a
haven't
net
seen the
negative.
whole panel.
Or,
For the
okay, so
record, I
one
was
of the
been like
things that you
randomly
said,
spouting off in chat, and then I got summoned here, so
okay,
I totally might
okay,
not be representing y'all fairly. The thing that blew my mind is like, oh, yeah, I would discourage my daughter from being like a pussy seller on the internet, just like how I discourage military service. I'm like, well,
yeah, I think
that's insane. That is an
well,
insane conclusion, but okay. Like, I get that, but like, they're dangerous. Like, they're both dangerous, but they're so like the reasons why they're dangerous are so bizarrely different. And to like
right.
equate that and to be, yeah, sorry.
We didn't
Sorry.
equate it. Just to be clear, so just so that you make sure what the argument that was being made, because Tom and I made it. We weren't saying that the danger or like the dissuasion that we would have with military and sex work is identical, or that the reasons why we would dissuade them are identical, or even that the scope in which we would dissuade them is on par. We were just talking about like the question is what makes sex work uniquely something that we should dissuade against from the military? Why is it disanalogous? Because that's the interesting conversation here. Just so you know why the analogy was being made,
Well,
to be like, it's not
because I
just about
think it's
dissuading, it's about why.
a
yeah,
lot
it's
of people are always
sorry,
going
Tom.
to think it's shameful to sell sex acts. A lot of people are going to think that's like a shameful, debased thing to do.
But that's the
You know,
problem, right?
always,
That's
always.
Ali, that's the problem that we're discussing is that maybe it shouldn't be shameful. And the fact that people are making it shameful, they need to justify that. That if you're going to shame people for doing this, you need to have a
I mean, it
justified
is chicken or
reason,
egg.
not
Fact
just that
is, porn
other people
stars are
do it.
killing themselves like nobody else. They are so mentally
That's
ill and
not
drug
true.
addicted. And you can say, no, they are. Their
That's
It is
not
mortality
true.
rate is higher. And you can say it's
Female
because the
suicide is
stigma is
almost
getting them down
nothing.
so hard and they're so unemployable. And that's why they're all substance abuse addicted. You can say that. But I don't think you can deny that they're all fucking basket cases. Because, like, I'm pretty sure that can be, like, easily.
The issue,
No,
the
we
issue
just
is
talked about
they
this earlier.
are.
Is that
There's
you can't
3 porn
justify
stars
that.
that female
There's
porn
not
stars that have
actual
killed
data
themselves in the
showing
past
that they
2
have
years.
like real.
Well,
Yes, you.
Of course they are, because of the amount of stigma. The
Real.
problem is the chicken and
Oh,
the
it's
egg. Is the
oh,
reason that they're so crazy and unwell because of the sex work? Or is it because the only people who would even be willing to risk the social taboo of doing sex work are already selected for being mentally unwell? And the issue is that doesn't make sex work the problem. That makes the selection pressures that exist problematic in and of
fuck
themselves.
that. Fuck that. This is dysgenic as fuck. Fuck that.
Well, no, this is kind of like
I
when
mean,
people say like,
wait,
"Oh,
how
men are
are you
committing
gonna
suicide at
find
really
that
high
out,
rates."
Kyla? Like,
Motherfucker, I
how?
literally.
Sorry.
We're going to eliminate all sexual pressure and judgment
No.
away from society. Christians
No.
and conservatives and anybody who has an icky feeling about a chick getting banged out by 50 fucking guys, they're going to be quietly discouraged to just view it as morally neutral. And then we'll find out whether or not it was the suicide from them getting diddled as a kid, the 3,000 cocks that they took in fucking 4 years, it was the hard drugs, or if it was the social pressure. But we should eliminate the
Oh
social
no, we can
pressure
have a
first.
Hold
scale
on,
where
fact check.
the
We are
more sex
doing
positive-
Ayla a disservice. It was 37 guys. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay, at
is
one
that
time.
the more we can have a scale, and the more sex positive like a country gets or society gets, if there's better mental health for these people. Though I don't see much of like what it is that
Yeah,
Ali
they'll
was
have better
talking about.
mental
Every
health
time
because they'll be getting bullied less. So you eliminated one of the 5 variables that makes them fucking
Also,
insane.
to be
Okay,
clear,
it's super-
military members also have a hugely higher mortality rate when it comes to self-deletion and things like that. So, I mean,
So do therapists,
Yeah.
and so do vets. Actually, vets are one of the
And
highest
doctors.
professions that
vets,
kill
like
themselves.
veterans?
Vets are
Veteran,
No,
like not veterans, but,
veterinarians.
veterinarians. yeah, sorry.
Veterinarians. They have a super
Huh.
high suicide rate.
Okay.
Oh, they
I
gotta
remember as a
put their own
child,
shit.
I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian because I loved animals, and then I thought, oh, the
Then you did,
majority of what
you
they do
know.
is put down dogs that are sick. That's
Exactly.
mostly what they do.
To maybe respond with Connor here, I think it's really important because I keep getting frustrated feeling like you're talking to just a ghost in the room. What do you believe my position is? Could you
What?
like
Okay,
summarize it?
Yeah, articulating it. So are we talking about the kids thing?
The thing that Alice has been bringing up about like the effects on society and blah blah
Allison.
blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Allison.
Well, didn't Allison kind of say like we should continue social stigma because this shit is all fucked and we shouldn't be encouraging it at all?
Right. And then you said, and you guys just want to get rid of all the social stigma and say, yes, queen, go and have your sex and blah, 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 blah. What do you believe my position is?
A limit. Okay, so if I was going to assume,
Mhm.
I'm going to be very charitable. My assumption is that you think that there is probably the right way to lead people away from negative behaviors, and there's probably the wrong way. The wrong way probably involves bullying and harassment, where people will often double or triple down on their negative behaviors. And so as a result, if we were more kind and compassionate to people who are engaged in sex work in general, but also people who are downtrodden, and if we gave them ramps back into society instead of being hyper judgmental, then while some people might view that as an easing of the access into that society, the truth is that people who wanted to escape that society would have a much easier time doing so. And as a result, one, they wouldn't want to kill themselves as much while they were participating in what we view as negative behaviors. But two, they could reintegrate into society, which would be beneficial for everyone.
Okay, so that's not really what my position is, just to be clear.
Interesting.
Okay, so my position, if I'll outline it again really clearly, my position is that I think that sex work should be legalized and that we should respect people's right to work in the occupation and not make their life more miserable hell. I've never said anything about vastly reducing stigma. For example, I think we should kink shame people all the time. I think there's lots of kicks that are gross and yucky, and I don't like them. The biggest issue that I have is moralizing about it when we don't actually have a more moral reason. For example, I think gaping is probably the most disgusting thing I've ever heard of. I hate it. Everything about it makes me cringe. And I'm not asking people to not think that it's yucky and icky. I'm not even asking people to not think that it's kind of gross that this other person is doing it. What I'm saying is that we need to allow, first of all, a de-romanticization of sex workers, which means allowing actual veteran sex workers to talk about the pros and the cons of sex work. And the big reason that sex workers never want to talk about the cons is because it immediately will get flipped on them to justify the erasure of their entire field, which is not always valid. I want to make sex work safer. And I think we should shame men and users of sex work who use it to prolific rates and are fucking up their life. Absolutely, because they should stop doing it.
Okay, there's a part where I understand what you're saying, and to some part I intellectually respect it. However, it's hard for me to articulate a reason for why, let's use gaping as an example, why I think that's bad in a succinct format during a debate. However, if I was asked why gaping is bad, my presumption is that we're talking about expanding the anal or vaginal cavity to extreme degrees
like
using toys or hands. Right.
Like this
So
stuff
my-
Max
my
Hardcore got in prison for,
presumption-
and liberals were like, "This is so terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
so
so
the
horrible that the
instinct-
cops came for him." Yeah,
this
like
is-
that.
Okay, so
Wait, why
hold
did
on.
he get imprisoned?
So,
Did he
no,
like
no, no, no.
assault somebody?
Let's not
or-
get
Well, no,
distracted.
no, he
let's
was
follow it
arrested
down.
for
Let's not get
obscenity.
distracted.
Sorry.
Let's not get distracted. Let's follow it down. I mentioned how fucking the chicken earlier in the argument, the conservatives would just say, don't fuck the chicken. Okay. I think that is instinctively correct. But if you need a 3 to 5 minute argument about fucking gaping, which I won't do, Wick, by the way,
Please,
is
God,
that
no. Yeah.
I would assume that expanding the anal cavity with toys or whatever could probably it could stretch the skin in such a way that it loses its elasticity. It can lead to fissures or eruptions inside the anal or vaginal cavity that could potentially bleed. That if you use semen or blood or whatever and you mix that shit together, you have a risk of causing disease. And so when somebody says oh, well, I'm going to wear a glove and I'm going to wear a condom and I'm going to use this specific kind of toy and I'm going to wash it first, it's easier for me to call them a fucking freak rather than run down a fucking 10-minute articulation
hold on.
on why they're a
So
freak.
this is my criticism. You don't need to say all the reasons why, because half the time it's just like concern posting. I wish people would just say
freaks and they should
but
stop.
the issue is, I don't know if
Get
it's
help.
obvious to me, as somebody who agrees that gaping is gross, that it's morally wrong. I don't think it's morally wrong. I just think you're fucking gross when you do it. And I'm not interested
It's not
in doing
moral.
that same thing.
It's
Well,
about.
it's
Hold on.
physically
Hold on.
unhealthy.
Yeah,
and
it's
No, it's
it's-
not.
people
It
are-
literally might not be. My understanding, because I've fought with a lot of gapers, because I hate gaping so much, is that there are multiple ways. For example, the vagina can expand to have an entire baby fit out of it, and there are ways to get
Oh wait, I
elasticity. in
thought you were
certain things.
talking about. I thought
Yeah,
gaping
I would
referred to
call them
assholes. I thought
slurs.
gaping referred
You
to
can do
assholes.
both.
I
You
am
can
not.
do both.
Hold on.
Sounds like
Stop.
vegan.
I
I
am
would
not
call these
familiar
people
enough with
freaks
gaping
and
to
bully
have
them.
this discussion. I am sorry. $5 from
let's do-
Infallible Foul to say sex worker faces challenges legitimizing their career as a legit income. Please, people don't need to lose their kids because we know what's best for women. Thank you for the $5.
Yeah. So the issue is, yeah, gaping might like cause like stretching in your anal cavity and bleeding and some diseases. Every time you drink alcohol, you are necessarily killing your brain. There is no healthy way to ever, literally ever ingest alcohol fucking ever. And nobody is moral posting about this. Exactly.
Yes,
That's my
Wait,
point.
yes, they are.
Just
You see people
Yes, we
moral
do.
posts about it.
Yes,
no,
there's
most
plenty
of
of
you would
people.
say,
alcoholism all
wait.
the fucking time.
wouldn't you guys say drink in moderation?
No,
Would you
some,
guys say that it's bad
there
to have
are
a
a
single
lot.
drink?
Okay, maybe it's the
I
fact
would
that I
never
was
Is it
say
raised
bad to have
Mormon.
one
drink in
drink?
moderation.
Maybe it was
Is
the
it
fact that I
bad
was
to have
raised
one
Mormon.
drink?
Hold on.
Do not
Maybe it's the
drink.
fact that I was raised Mormon, but again, I know tons of people who would say don't drink at all, not a single
But is that the
drop.
current temperature of the
Sure.
culture in general, though?
Yeah, but that would
Is
be
that what
an
you
argument to
think?
say that culture, the reason we've normalized alcoholism, right, is a bad thing,
Okay.
right?
Erudite,
Okay,
hold on.
But what she's saying is that
I want to follow you.
Are they in
real
the
quick.
room?
The
Sorry, Rashad.
equivalent of drinking 2 beers when it comes to gaping is having vaginal sex and sticking your thumb in your partner's ass.
No,
Not taking
literally,
a fucking
there is
volcano
no.
dildo and
But
shoving
there's
it
no
up your.
I
alcohol
guarantee
has
you,
no place
gaping
inside of
is
your body in
probably
general, though.
yeah. Gaping is probably literally safer than ingesting alcohol ever. I am telling you right now, we know very clearly there is not a safe amount ever to drink alcohol because it actively kills your brain through thiamine deficiencies. It is necrotic for your brain cells. I am telling you, we know this. There's no safe, moderate way to drink. However, most of us would agree that, yeah, it's not immoral to drink in moderation. You're allowed to take those risks. It's not immoral to play football and put
Wait,
your
so
body
in
and your brain at
public,
risk.
Am I supposed to say it? So in public, am I supposed to be like, well, people have beers and that's necrotic for the brain. So if you want to gape a little bit as a treat, go ahead. That's supposed to be my fucking position?
Do you think that
Well, you got to
that's
be
what I'm
consistent
saying?
with bodily damage. If bodily damage is your reasoning for why
Well,
you're
no, you're
against
saying
gaping,
that yeah, it's a vice. It's not good for you, but other things are bad for you, and they're the same. That
I'm
non-sexual
saying-
vices are just like
but
sexual vices.
if
I'm
bodily
saying,
damage is your
just be
argument
honest.
for why it's wrong,
Just be
then
honest about it's your feelings. I just wish conservatives would be like, I feel like it's icky. That's fine.
No,
That's all
no,
you need to say.
Erudite.
But you need
No,
to
their argument-
create
no,
and
no.
manufacture
Okay,
all
y'all-
these
Okay,
additional
okay,
causes
gang,
that
gang,
y'all's
don't matter.
argument is
gang,
bodily
gang.
damage is your reasoning for why it's wrong.
No,
Gang,
that was
Yes.
gang,
stupid.
stop.
This is
Stop.
Okay, then-
Azzy, Rashad, all of you, I'll let Rashad go next, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen because I do want to go at some point. So instead of just doing one at a time, I'm just going to bring everyone that's backstage now into the call. We're going to make it more chaotic, have fun, and then we're going to end it when I'm done and tired
Thanks
of all you.
going on.
That's what we're
Alex.
going to do.
All right, but
Wow.
yeah, that was the moderate alcohol consumption is such a huge smokescreen because there's
No,
plenty
it's
of-
not. No, hold on.
it is.
Tell me how it's a smokescreen
Right
right now.
Relax, I'm
As in,
It's
I'm
not a
gonna
smokescreen. If
line
your
you up.
argument is-
Hold on. I'm gonna
Alright,
line
I
you
love you
up,
guys.
and I'm gonna.
Holy shit. Listen. I respect Not So Erudite. I respect her intellect. And I respect her background. However, she's been hanging out with Destiny way too fucking much. Nah, I mean, Yellow Knight, we're done. I am in pain right now. So if y'all got questions or concerns, hit me up, but I'm going to dip in a second. As a matter of fact, it's 9:35. We literally went 90 minutes over just because I did not want to fuck with that. Helldivers 2, I did buy it. It's fantastic. We should have game night on Saturday or Sunday night. Absolutely, RC. So if you're not already in the Discord, get in the Discord. We'll do a game night with some people in the Discord. Puritanical Connor, Christian Valeris, there's something that is frustrating for me. I parasocially love you. You've been here with us for a long time. You show up frequently to the streams. Sometimes you kick in a few dollar dues. So I have much parasocial love when I see Christian Valeris. However, moralizing, morality, the analysis of good and bad, that's what we're here for. We're here to analyze how life can be good and how it can be bad. And then we're here to give each other feedback information in order for all of us to live better lives. So the fact that you take issue with me assessing reality and then trying to give other people feedback about what I think is good and bad about their lives, we just don't see eye to eye on that. Anyways, Fuck sex workers, fuck sex pests. You don't need to add morals to stigmatize, shame them. I don't even know what you just said. Morality is the analysis of good and evil. How do you define morality? How are you defining morality if you're not analyzing it, or if you're not defining it as the analysis of good and bad? Seriously, I'll wait. I'll wait if you want to type it. Morality is simple as the Greeks had morals. They were pagan pederasts. The Spartans had morals. They were slave-owning warriors. The fucking Persians had morals. They conquered like a third of the known world. Alexander the Great had morals. He crucified people. Julius Caesar had morals. He started a civil war that ended the Republic. Everyone has morals. It's the analysis of good and bad. So when you say you don't need to moralize or you don't need to add morals, I don't know what the fuck you're saying. We are using these terms differently. So you can, Christian Valaris, if you want to define morality for me real quick, feel free to do so. Oh, Big Hoff 98 says, imagine thinking degeneracy isn't bad. Why is this so difficult? Yeah, this goes all the way back to the fucking a chicken question, right? So I can't believe Aerody bit down on this bullet, but to be honest, it was spicy content, so I didn't really care. But she was like, yeah, well, you know, you can't explain to me why fucking a chicken before you kill it is bad, or why fucking a chicken before you eat it is bad. And I'm like, yeah, I can. There's all these risks of like disease and harm, and I didn't say harm to the animal, but I probably should have. But there's all these risks of disease and harm, and I can articulate experiential harm versus the harm of death or great bodily injury, but it would take 5 minutes to articulate, which doesn't really fit within a panel debate. And so for her to say like, oh, well, these two things, but I'm not trying to straw man. This is just kind of what I'm taking away. So if she wants to talk about it later, we can. But for her to say like, well, both of these things cause harm to, you know, the creature. So as a result, since they both cause harm, if you can't articulate why one harm is specifically different than the other harm, then you shouldn't do either. It's like, no, I don't need to fuck a chicken in order to survive. It's probably bad for me. It has a whole bunch of risks. There's no reason to fuck a chicken. Whereas eating a chicken actually has, like, if you cook it properly, it has protein. It has, I don't think it has any carbs or anything, but it has a dickload of fucking protein, which is an important building block for the human body. So yeah, you can get your protein sources from fucking vegetables and shit, but at the same time, chickens are kind of retarded, and they're also cruel, and, you know, they can be nice, but there's some cruel chickens. They eat worms, they eat bugs, they rip each other's heads off, they're cannibals, they, you know, all that kind of shit. So like, you know, like, should you value every living creature's life? Of course. But should I carry the same moral weight for a fucking chicken as I do a human being? No. So these questions have been answered, and then they kind of pretend like because they're complicated, they don't have answers, which is fucking insane. I literally think that she's been hanging out with Destiny too much, and as a result, he does this thing argumentatively where he will ask you to identify every single subvariable of your thought, and if there is a flaw in your subvariables, he will rip that thing to fucking shreds. And because his fucking audience is a bunch of autistic fucking logic bros, they'll be like, oh, well, you're wrong because one of your subvariables is incorrect. And it's like, no, you either didn't let me articulate it fully or you disagree with my subvariable. That doesn't mean I'm incorrect. That just means that you were able to find a weakness in the argument and tear it apart. That has nothing to do with whether or not the perspective is correct. There will still be, ultimately, an analysis of the information that is better or worse than the other. Should any sex act between only two married people ever be considered evil? Yeah. If you rape your wife anally, yeah, that should be considered evil. Absolutely. Well, morality is a very volatile thing, to be fair. Okay, that has nothing to do. Everything's volatile. I don't know if you knew this. We're on a ball of dirt hurtling through space at tens of thousands of miles an hour on an unstable orbit around a superheated ball of gas. Everything's unstable and volatile. That has nothing to do with anything. There are more important negative consequences, risks outside of morality regarding sex work. Christian Valaris, you still haven't said what you consider morality to be. I've told you like 5 times now. Morality is the analysis of good and bad. You're like associating morality with religion, and then you're dismissing it because it's oftentimes rooted in religion, but that has nothing to do with morality. I've already said. The Greeks had morality. The Romans had morality. You can have plenty of bad moral systems. The Indians had morality. They had the analysis of good and bad. So saying that morality, you know, you shouldn't use morality, you should use something else. It's like, why? It's the analysis of good and bad. What's the problem with the analysis of good and bad? That is a moral statement, Connor, in which you need to establish that your health and other people's health is a good thing, which you need religion and metaphysics to justify. No, I don't. No, I don't. I really don't. Like, as a matter of fact, this is where I laugh my fucking ass off about the moral nihilist thing. It's like Bing.com said the easiest way to refute a moral nihilist is simply to kill them. And like, I'm joking, but like, for all the people who are like, you need to prove that an individual human life is good or bad. And it's like, no, I don't. Give me a fucking potato peeler, some hot sauce, in 15 minutes with you in a chair, fucking duct tape, and I'll prove to you that there's different levels of good and bad. You know, you can take all this fucking philosophizing bullshit and shove it up your fucking ass. If I fucking take a potato peeler and I fucking start flaying your arm and then I pour hot sauce in the wounds, you're going to be telling me that that is bad real fucking quick. So, like, I've said this before and I'll say it again. The dumbest people in the fucking world think there's no such thing as good and bad. And the smartest people in the world think there's no such thing as good and bad. But the smartest people have effectively deluded themselves with their own intelligence to be so intelligent that they're no longer connected to reality. It's fucking crazy. And by the way, if you want to fucking sign a liability release and have me come over with a fucking potato peeler and hot sauce, I'll prove it to you. We'll do it. We'll do it live on fucking YouTube. We'll create a new account. I'll flay you on fucking YouTube, and you can tell the world that there's no such thing as good and bad as you lose skin off of your arm. Obviously, this is all a joke. I'm being hyperbolic, et cetera, et cetera. However, I'm saying, like, smart motherfuckers think that there's no such thing as good as bad, but they're just deluding themselves. They're fucking crazy. But do you have a study for that? No, I don't. I have a potato peeler and some hot sauce. Yeah. Objective morality needs religion. No, it doesn't. Naturalist? Problem? Ericoda. I love problem ? I've been hearing that from Queeman and I fucking love it. I'm sure he gets it from somewhere else, but yeah. No one wants to solve the single motherhood problem. No one even wants to acknowledge it. Yeah. It's complicated and it's a pain in the ass. I'm thinking of that Warhammer quote about open minds being like a fortress with its gate open. Honestly, I was thinking of that fucking quote when Aerody was talking, because I was like, she's so debate bro that she's lost in the sauce. Saying that you can't have a moral analysis of fucking a chicken before you eat it is fucking crazy. That's a Destiny talking point. I guarantee you that. All right, so this is me shit talking a little bit, right? But I guarantee you, her and Destiny had that conversation. They had that debate. He fucking walked through his logic. She saw that it was like sound, or not sound. She saw that it was valid, and then as a result, she kind of like adopted it as a talking point in order to hold her rhetorical opponents to a higher bar for rhetoric. And so, yeah. What is good or bad? Well, I can prove to you bad real quick. Like I said, send me your address. Who decides good or bad? Me. Me and my potato peeler. Counterpoints 40K. Part of the problem is lefties don't actually care if society continues. They are perfectly happy in being the last people on Earth. Yellow Knight, thank you. Literally was thinking that myself. They don't view the perpetuation of the species as like a moral good or a moral imperative. So yeah. So that's like a fundamental assumption on my part, which I get, but like, if you don't want to exist, go dome yourself, right? Go do it. No skin off of my ass. I don't know why you're here in my chat. If there's no such thing as good or bad, just fucking go, no skin off of my ass. So this is true sometimes. Okay, let's go, bro. All right, Chase T, send me the address. I'll bring my potato peeler and some hot sauce. You can't fight me, though. Or if you do fight me, you got to take it easy on me. I think it comes down to thinking morally bad strictly means harming another person directly. Yeah, which is another retarded thing. You can hurt yourself and that can still be morally bad. This presumption of like it has to hurt another fucking person comes from this libertine fucking libertarian bullshit, which, no offense, is fucking Daddy Destiny's fault. He's a fucking, I'm not going to lie, he's a rhetorical fucking genius. He can argue his fucking way out of a goddamn solitary confinement in fucking Alcatraz, right? But just because he can argue well doesn't mean he's correct. And so this whole perspective that like, just because you're only hurting yourself, that doesn't really mean anything, that's fucking retarded. You can hurt yourself real bad, and it's bad. Counterpoints 40K. If you want to effectively stigmatize sex workers, the good-bad argument is going to convince as many sex workers versus the clear consequences that lead to worse outcomes. I articulated those all fucking night. I articulated them. Also, at some point, you just have to start bullying people. Like, I'm all for articulating variables and arguments in order to get people to see my perspective more, but I'll do that more in like a one-on-one friendly kind of situation. I might even do that in a one-on-one debate if I'm given enough time. But you guys know me; I'm verbose. I like to rant, and so a panel is not always the easiest way to get your ideas out. And by the way, this was me on my best behavior. I was trying to get in and out with my fucking points, and I still caught myself ranting a few times. But like, even fucking Wick was like, we appreciate Connor's rants, and Erudite was like, we like Connor's monologues. And it's like, dude, like, I'm trying to get in and out as fast as I can. So Destiny, because everybody presumes his intelligence, they'll listen to him fucking rant for 5-10 minutes at a fucking time. And typically he is very effective with his information. He won't go over the same point twice. So that's why people have gotten used to listen to him rant. But still, I need room to breathe and room to argue. So pleasure is good and pain is bad. Can be. Everything in moderation, right? So you can't just argue hedonism and pleasure is good. That's what the hedonists used to argue. But then there's a nuanced version of hedonism that says that you have to do some things that are painful that will result in a temporary good in order to avoid a future more terrible pain. And so hedonists and nihilists will forget that. And they'll forget that sacrifice and pain is inherent to existence. So no, you can't boil it down to a simple equation. I'm just trying to tell you that there's a place to start. People deny that there's even a place to start. I can give you the place to start, but the truth is that you need to continue analyzing good and bad constantly. It's never, the analysis of good and bad is never over. It can always be improved. There's good and bad for me. Yeah, but there's good and bad for everybody else too. We ain't winning this battle. Why would you win this battle? Why would you try to argue with me that morality is not important? I don't even understand why that would be a priority for you. Apparently not. Super sexist but true. Erudite gets most of her talking points from Destiny. She's an intelligent gal. She can make her own arguments fairly well, and she can analyze and regurgitate complex information. I've never doubted Erudite's competence or intelligence. I just think that she's got too liberal debate broed. It's all fun and game until there's a societal collapse and the leftists have to fend for themselves. True. And I'll be there with my potato peeler. Pain can be good and service is something that is healthy for you, like the pain of existence or hard work, so long as you're not hurting yourself. Yeah, like hurt and pain is an interesting thing because lifting weights hurts, right? You're ripping your muscle, but you're building a stronger body that is capable of doing more work. So, is it worth it to endure the lower level pain of working out in order to avoid the higher level pain of dying prematurely? That's like a question that you can only answer yourself. Also, the fact that consent alone is enough for healthy relationships is wild. Yeah, Big Hoff 98. I'm not saying that like their perspectives would boil down to that, but they oftentimes default to that. Very frustrating. Where do you get that from? The analysis of the analysis of the world. The analysis of pain and pleasure and virtue and contentment and purpose and life. How's the bolter going? It's going fantastic. I have a printed prototype. I have 100 rounds of like 1,200 or 1,300 feet per second low recoil slugs on the way. I'm going to take it to the range. I am going to torture test it. I will videotape some of my torture testing. I will probably shoot 40 to 50 rounds. I'll let the gun settle for a bit, and then I'll shoot another 40 to 50 rounds. And if we don't have any structural cracks or major melting, then I will move into production. Also, this one the bolter only uses pegs. Right now, it uses 3D printed pegs and locks in order to maintain its structure. I'm probably going to change to heat inserts, which is a metal thread that you melt into the plastic, and then you can use metal screws. So basically right now, I'm using 3D printed pegs and locks, and I'm going to change to metal screws, and it's probably going to substantively improve the structure and integrity. Chase T says, pair character flying in the air with a red cape and a smile on his face. I can't imagine it. And there were some people in this world that can't imagine it. Not because of morals, period. Stay mad. Again, I've defined morality like half a dozen times. Morality is the analysis of good and evil. What the fuck are you guys talking about? What are you guys talking about? The analysis of good and bad. If I take this fucking screw and I jam it into my fucking eye hole, and I can't see out of this eye for the rest of my life, and I'm horribly disfigured, and my wife doesn't want to sleep with me anymore, and my kids think I'm a scary fucking monster, that would be bad. That would make my life worse. If I do nothing, that's neutral. If I stop talking to you cunts, and then I go look at short, medium, and long-range distances so I keep my eyes trained, so I prolong the ability to use them well, that is good, because I'm cultivating a quality of life and a perpetuation of life that goes into the future. The fact that you act like this is some incomprehensible abstraction is fucking retarded. The analysis of good and bad is that simple. Is it good for me? Is it good for the people around me? Is it good for the planet? Is it good for people? Is it good for life? It's that easy. And then, of course, the answers are infinitely more complex. But you guys are acting like morality is like exclusively the domain of religion. That's fucking crazy. Working out your morals, body, and mind may not improve your quantity of life, but will improve your quality of life. Indeed. Get tracer slugs? Maybe we will. I agree, but if you don't have a philosophical foundation for morals and what is good and what is bad, then it falls back to the subjective morality, which I'm pretty sure you don't agree with. I mean, relatively speaking, I just believe in, the one true God, the creator of the universe. I don't know if it's a personal God or not, but that's pretty much like the root of it. I think that this is all a very interesting, weird, schizophrenic experiment by the creator of the universe. And as a result, we're here to enjoy life by exploring its perpetuation and its complexification. So, those are my drives. If you have different drives and you kill yourself early and you don't have kids, then These are dudes that are into getting their balls kicked, punch, stomped. They might like it, but it's still bad for them. So true. So true. Pirate Connor arc true. I feel like you are saying there are objective morals, which I feel like already presupposes a Christian worldview. Morals are in the hearts of all people deep down. No. Not really. I said that the Greeks and Spartans and Romans had morals. They weren't Christians. They had the virtues that they most emphasized in their culture, and then they encouraged and discouraged the virtues and vices that they believed to be best for humanity. And they were, from my perspective, they were right on some and they were wrong on others. Connor has accepted being plugged into the machine. Not yet. Subjective morality ain't convincing those heathen progressive sex workers. My consequentialist analysis will. Stay mad. All right, good luck. Good luck. All right. Well, I have half a dozen DMs. I need to read them. I need to go hang out with a wife. But I do parasocially love you guys. So please donate if you have money. Become a YouTube channel member. If you're not already a member, go to patreon.com/counterpoints in order to donate. Give a Twitch sub or a Twitch bits or whatever the fuck. Check out the Warhammer content when it comes out, and also continue to give me money in those weird ways that you can. That way I can buy more 3D printing materials and more weapons that I can create into science fiction weapons, and then I, in turn, once they're prototyped and functional, I can turn around and sell them to you, because you are all going to be successful. You are all going to get awesome jobs. You're all going to get a shitload of money. You're all going to find the partner of your dreams. You're all going to raise beautiful children, and we're all going to make it. So we're all going to make it, kings and queens.